Over the last 2 months, I have been on a mission to find the most expensive card for every single Pokemon in every single region, and this video is the compilation of each of these regions combined. This is the most expensive Pokemon card for every Pokemon. Buckle up, grab some snacks, and sit back and enjoy as we talk about every Kanto Pokemon's most expensive card, starting with the big one, the first ever Pokemon to appear in the Pokedex, Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is a fan favorite for many people watching this video today, and yet its most expensive card may surprise you. Now, technically, its most expensive card is the Pokemon Snap Contest Bulbasaur card. The problem is there actually hasn't been one of these sold that was ungraded. And since we don't talk about graded cards on this channel, the most expensive Bulbasaur is the Legendary Collection Reverse Holo, which sells for around $150 to $200. Ivysaur is next, and once again we have the Ivysaur found within the Legendary Collection, being the Reverse Holo version at around $150 to $200 again. And finally we can end the Frog Pokemon with the most expensive Venusaur card, the base set Shadowless Venusaur selling for anything up to $2,000. The whole Charmander line has had some super expensive cards, with the most expensive Charmander being the Japanese exclusive McDonald's 2002 promo at $400. As for Charmeleon, this card has a pretty spiteful backstory. To celebrate the release of Team Rocket, Wizards decided they would add a card with their own personal touch to it. Many people just assumed that Pokemon were responsible for these cards, and so Wizards largely got no credit for their effort in the TCG naturalizing in the West. However, this stamped card proves otherwise, a permanent legacy left behind by Wizards of the Coast, and this card can sell for around $250 today. Do I put Charizard at the end of the video for retention? I really thought about it, however after finishing the script, some of the other cards we have coming up are even more insane, and kind of just prove that Charizard isn't always worth the hype. The most expensive Charizard is the base set Shadowless Charizard, which can sell for anything up to $15,000 depending on condition. Which means up next we have got Squirtle, with the most expensive Squirtle card being the McDonald's 2002 promotional Squirtle card found exclusively in Japan. This card is adorable and is one of my favorite Japanese exclusive cards, costing anything up to $1,000. Middle stage Pokemon are honestly kind of cursed, as even the first generation of Pokemon starters have not had amazing cards. Don't get me wrong, they are of course expensive, however the Dark Wartortle Reverse Holo from Legendary Collection really just doesn't stand out that much to me, despite costing up to $240. So let's end the starters with the big bad turtle himself, Blastoise, with the first edition Shadowless Holo Blastoise selling for around $1,500. And now things are going to start to get really interesting. Everyone knows the most expensive cards for the staples of the franchise, the starters, the legendaries, whatever. But I bet most people don't know the middle of the pack. Starting with Caterpie. A lot of the cards that are going to feature throughout this video are going to come from the Legendary Collection, with the Reverse Holo Caterpie selling for $45. And this is of course once again the case for the Metapod card, which is also the Legendary Collection Reverse Holo for around $45 to $65. As for Butterfree though, it actually has two cards that both sell for around $70 to $80. Both the Legendary Collection Reverse Holo version, obviously, but also the regular Holo version found in the Expedition base set, with both of them selling for around the $80 to like $130 mark. Alright, back to Legendary Collection with the Reverse Holo version of Weedle, which sells for just slightly more than Caterpie at around $50. I promise that despite all of the cards coming out of the Legendary Collection throughout this video, there are some real hidden gems for some of the Pokemon coming up. Unfortunately, Kakuna is not one of them, with its most expensive card being the Reverse Holo from Legendary Collection at $45. Finally, a card not from the Legendary Collection. Beedrill's most expensive card actually comes out of Skyridge, and is this Holo Rare Beedrill card which sells for around $150 to $225. But we cannot stay away from the Legendary Collection for long, as Pidgey's most expensive card once again can be found within it, the Reverse Holo Pidgey for $45. Surprisingly though, this is not the case for Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto has a little more clout than Pidgey and some of the other Pokemon so far thanks to Ash and the anime, and as such the most expensive Pidgeotto is the Shadowless base set Pidgeotto at around $55 to $60. Thankfully though, when it comes to Pidgeot, there is a different card as the most expensive. This is the Pidgeot EX Great Ball League promo. At the moment, Pidgeot EX is a very playable card thanks to its ability Quick Search. It became a staple in a lot of decks, primarily Charizard decks, and as such it was handed out as a promo at various Great Ball League events across Southeast Asia, with this card costing anything up to $450. Much like previous entries on today's list, Rattata actually has two cards that are around the same price point. As you guessed, the first one is the Holo found within the Legendary Collection. However, the second one is one of the newest fully released cards on the list today, the Pokemon Rumble Rattata, which recently has been climbing in price pretty quickly, with both of these cards selling for around $50 to $60. For the Alolan Rattata, we have the Rattata from the Japanese Pokemon Go set for $2. The Raticate Legendary Collection card is bizarrely expensive, costing around $75 to $100, which is in the upper echelon of Legendary Collection cards coming up today. We do also have the much more disappointing Alolan Raticate GX found in Celestial Storm for $5. I am surprised Spearow is not a more popular Pokemon within the Cantonian lineup. Despite being integral to Ash and Pikachu's friendship, Spearow just isn't that popular, with its most expensive card being the Legendary Collection Spearow for around $40. Gym Challenge and Gym Heroes did a pretty amazing job at adapting Pokemon that the trainers would have into trainers' cards. However, Fearow may have the weirdest one yet. The Lieutenant Surge's Fearow. Does this dude just use this as some kind of sick target practice for his Raichu? We may never know. The Gym Heroes card sells for around $100 to $120. Ekans was not found in the Legendary Collection, and because of that we have our first stamped card next, with the Reverse Holo Team Rocket Returns stamped Ekans. This card makes so much sense, Jesse's Ekans was awesome for a long time, and giving it the stamp just works. This card sells for around $25. Remember the Charmeleon card from earlier that featured the Wizards of the Coast stamped? Well, this next card features the exact same stamp, the Dark Arbok found within Team Rocket. Now technically the most expensive Arbok would be the 4 position only error card, but given we do not count error cards on this channel in these videos, the most expensive Arbok is that Wizard stamped one at $50, which means we have the mascot now, the OG, the Pokemon with the most cards ever. Pikachu has received a grand total of around 300 cards since the Pokemon TCG first began. It's kind of crazy the number of cards Pikachu has received. We have tag teams, we have Stellar Terra EXs, we have Gold Star cards, and more promos than you can count. However, the most expensive of all of these is the Mario Pikachu, which can sell for around $8,000. The most expensive Raichu is the Shining Raichu found within Neo Destiny. In a first edition, this can cost anything up to $1,000. If the pre-release card ever comes to market though, that card will wipe the floor with this one. For the Alolan Raichu, we have the Raichu and Alolan Raichu GX tag team from Unified Minds for $450. Alright, we took a bit of a break, but now it's time to get back to the Legendary Collection with the Reverse Holo Sandshrew selling for anything up to $70. And then for the Alolan version, we have this McDonald's 2019 Alolan Sandshrew for $4. We almost had Sandslash appearing here with a Legendary Collection card too, but thankfully there is one card that just beats it. The stamped Dark Sandslash Reverse Holo found within Team Rocket Returns for $60. As for Alolan Sandslash, we have the Staff pre-release for Guardians Rising at about $20. My poor editor is probably so sick of hearing me say Legendary Collection throughout this video. I swear there are a lot of cards in this video that are not from the Legendary Collection. Unfortunately though, Nidoran Female is not one of them, with the Legendary Collection Reverse selling for $45. Conveniently, this is also the exact same card and price as the Nidorina, with the Legendary Collection Nidorina selling for $45 again. Thankfully though, Nidoqueen is not another Legendary Collection card, as the most expensive Nidoqueen card actually comes from Skyridge. Compared to Nidoking, it seems that Nidoqueen has not had that many good cards, as this card sells for anything up to $200. Right, let's get back to Legendary Collection with the Nidoran found within, costing yet again around $45. And the Legendary Collection Reverse Holo Nidorino also joins this list, costing around $75. Legendary Collection must be incredibly popular with fans, and to be fair, they do have the best holo pattern of any cards. I want to apologise, once again, in my most expensive card from every set video, I said that the Nidoking found within Aquapolis was the most expensive card in this set. This is not the case, however the Crystal Nidoking is the most expensive Nidoking, costing around $900 to $1,000. Recently, Clefairy has been getting a lot of love within the TCG thanks to its Lily Trainer card team up. Clefairy was always popular, but recently that popularity has begun to skyrocket. The most expensive Clefairy card is actually a Sun and Moon Japanese promotional card featuring Lily. This card was given out to customers within Japan who bought booster boxes for the Dream League set at participating stores. The logo in the bottom corner of the artwork is actually the same as the logo for the set. This card has become really expensive recently, with it now costing anything up to $500. For the first time in today's video, we have got an official pre-release card. The Clefable pre-release from Jungle. Pokemon was incredibly popular back in the original series, and yet not that many people seem to have been able to grab this pre-release card. Nowadays, the card sells for up to $450. The last 3 cards have not been from Legendary Collection, and thankfully Vulpix will continue this role, as the most expensive Vulpix is the Sun and Moon Japanese exclusive promotional card. This card was given out within the Vulpix Crystal Season Special Box, alongside a regular Cantonian Vulpix as well. Both of these cards are really expensive, with the Alolan version selling for up to $230, and the Cantonian version selling for up to $150. Our streak continues as we head into Vulpix's Evolution Ninetales. The most expensive Ninetales is the first edition Shadowless base set Ninetales Holo, costing around $350. I'm starting to get a little bit fidgety without Legendary Collection. Don't get me wrong, I will always love the Legendary Collection cards, but I was really worried this video would be primarily Legendary Collection cards. Thankfully, the most expensive Jigglypuff card is the Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff GX Alternate, costing around $270. Surprisingly, Wigglytuff does not have that many expensive cards. You would think being a Pokemon from Generation 1 would guarantee at some point during the TCG history, it would have gotten one card that was particularly valuable, especially for a final stage Pokemon. The most expensive Wigglytuff is the Jungle First Edition Wigglytuff, costing around $100. This next Pokemon actually has quite an interesting circumstance behind its most expensive card. Or should I say, cards. Zubat has 2 cards that sell for around $50. both of the versions found within Skyridge, and their reverse holo cards. The reverse holo versions of these cards sell for around 50, and the regular versions also can sell for around 50, which is really confusing. The Skyridge trend continues with Golbat's most expensive card next, the reverse holo for around $60. I don't want to say anything too much about Legendary Collection, but we have now gone 10 cards without any cards from the Legendary Collection. Now obviously it will come back eventually, but not now, as Oddish's most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Aquapolis for $40. Aquapolis would also give us the most expensive Gloom card, the reverse holo for $30. Surprisingly though, the most expensive Vileplume card is not the one found within Aquapolis, although this one is still expensive. The most expensive Vileplume card is the Alternate Art GX found within Cosmic Eclipse, which featured Erica on the card as well. This card now sells for anything up to $100. I have no idea why we have so many Aquapolis cards at the moment, but I'm not mad at this. Aquapolis, Skyridge, and Expedition base set are some of the best sets ever released, and are incredibly rare, which is why so many of these cards come from these sets. The most expensive Paris card actually appeared within my weirdest card arts video as well, with the reverse holo Paris costing $20. Aquapolis may be the new Legendary Collection though, as the most expensive Parasect card I could find is the Aquapolis reverse holo for $30. It seems that Bug, Grass, and Poison type Pokemon all did really well within this miniature series of Pokemon cards, as Venonat's most expensive card would come from Skyridge, the reverse holo Venonat, which sells for around $35 today. Fun fact, despite being a Generation 1 Pokemon, Venomoth has only received 14 cards since 1995. That means that Venomoth gets a grand total of 1 card every 2 years, which is crazy for a Kanto Pokemon. The most expensive Venomoth card comes in the expansion sheet 2 for the Versus series, and is the Janine's Venomoth card, which sells for around $40. Number 50, we're a third of the way done, so I'm going to take a second to say if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and join my Discord for sneak peeks into future videos. And what better way to hit number 50 than by talking about my favourite type of card, the Rumble Diglett, which would cost you $60 today. The Alolan Diglett card is the McDonald's 2017 card for $4. We are now 18 cards deep without a Legendary Collection card. See, I told you they weren't all Legendary Collection cards. And this continues with Doug Trio, with the most expensive Doug Trio being the Dark Doug Trio First Edition from Team Rocket for around $100. As for Alola Doug Trio, we have the alternate art found within Surging Sparks for about $7. Meowth has a weirdly expensive card at the top. The most expensive Meowth card is the Scarlet and Violet Promotional Meowth card, although this is going to go down pretty quick now that Phantasmal Flames is out. This card was found as a promo card in Japan with the Generation Start decks. I reckon now that this card can be found in English, the price will start to go down. We also need to talk about 2 more Meowth cards. First, the Alolan version, with this Pokemon Card Gym stamped Meowth that sells for about $10. And then we have the Galarian Meowth from the Shiny Vault and Shining Fates, which sells for like $5. As for Persian, this Pokemon was also pretty relevant within the anime and of course the first game. Giovanni and his Persian were so intimidating and scary to me as a kid, and this is probably why the Giovanni's Persian from Gym Challenge has become so expensive, costing around $150. We also have the Alolan Persian Rainbow Rare from Cosmic Eclipse for $15. I am glad that Psyduck gets a lot of love. Despite being a first stage Pokemon, this Pokemon has appeared in exclusive promos, tag teams, expensive sets as reverse holos, and of course the Legendary Collection. However, the most expensive Psyduck card that I could find is the Screen Promotional Psyduck, which sells for anything up to $1,500. I have some pretty awful news. The 21 card streak without a Legendary Collection card is officially dead, as we have the Golduck Reverse Holo from Legendary Collection as the most expensive at $120. And unfortunately, it seems like we're gonna struggle to get back on track without Legendary Collection, as the most expensive Mankey card also comes from the Legendary Collection, costing up to $80. I am super surprised that Primate does not have a better card than the Reverse Holo found in Legendary Collection. The Reverse from the Legendary Collection wins at $60. We really are stuck back in Legendary Collection purgatory, as next we have the Reverse Holo found in the Legendary Collection for Growlithe, costing $150. We also have to talk about Hisuian Growlithe with the card found within Twilight Masquerade for $20. Thankfully though, we're not going to be stuck here for quite as long, as we have Arcanine next. Arcanine is one of my favourite Pokemon, and given it is the legendary Pokemon, it is safe to say why. Arcanine has the best qualities that every Pokemon needs. It is powerful, majestic, cool, and just an amazing design. And the most expensive Arcanine card is the first edition Light Arcanine found within Neo Destiny, costing up to $600. As for Hisuian Arcanine, we have the Hisuian Arcanine V Full Art found within Silver Tempest for $5. We are back to some of these slightly more boring cards for a bit, such as the Poliwag Reverse Holo found within Skyridge, costing $35. Then there is the Reverse Holo for Poliwhirl found within Skyridge at $60. For Poliwrath, we have yet another card coming from Skyridge, the Poliwrath Holo card. This card is actually really expensive, but luckily for Poliwrath fans, it is not actually that bad for such an old card, costing around $200. But it is back to Legendary Collection now with the Abra found there, which in a reverse holo would cost you about $110. The most expensive Kadabra card is the reverse holo from Legendary Collection, costing around $120, which of course brings us to Alakazam, the real victim of the Uri Geller lawsuit. Imagine how many cool Alakazam cards we could have got had this not gone through the way it did. I would have loved to see the state Alakazam cards would have been in. Of course, the most expensive Alakazam card is the Alakazam Gold Star found within EX Crystal Guardians for anything up to $1,200. We are quickly approaching the halfway point, so let's jump through a lot of these cards coming up, such as the Legendary Collection Machop, which sells for around $70. Then we have the Machoke, where once again it is the Legendary Collection card for $80. Fun fact, did you know that the base set first edition Machamp is the most printed card in the history of the TCG? Seriously, you can buy this card pretty consistently at around 10 to 15 bucks because of just how common it actually is. The most expensive Machamp card is the Marshadow and Machamp GX Alternate Art, found within Unbroken Bonds for anything up to $350. Do people have some issue with Bellsprout that I do not know about? The Bellsprout Reverse Holo from Aquapolis is the most expensive, but even then it only sells for around $25. This trend also continues into Weepinbell, with the most expensive Weepinbell card being the Reverse Holo found within EX Legend Maker at around $15. Even the Holo Victory Bell from Aquapolis is not actually that expensive, selling for around $70, which is insanely low for such an old holo card. Back to Legendary Collection, where we have the Tentacle Reverse Holo, which sells for around $50. I am really surprised that some of the more generic holos from Aquapolis are not that expensive, as the most expensive Tentacle card is the Tentacle Holo found within Aquapolis, which only sells for like $100. The most expensive Geodude card has had me howling at a Discord call with my friends, as the most expensive Geodude card is technically not a Geodude at all. The most expensive Geodude card is the stamped Ditto disguised as a Geodude for $100. Now technically this is not a Geodude card, and the most expensive Geodude is the Legendary Collection Geodude, which sells for around $75. As for the Alolan version is the Team Up Reverse Holo for $2. And of course the Graveler card is the Legendary Collection Reverse, which sells for $80. And then Alolan form for Graveler is the Reverse Holo from Crimson Invasion for $2 again. And that means with Golem we have crossed the halfway point for this video. We have a lot of expensive cards coming up and things will only get crazier from here. Golem's most expensive card is the Crystal Golem found within Skyridge for anything up to $650. And then the Alolan Golem is the Rainbow Rare version of Alolan Golem EX found within the Japanese Awakened Heroes set for $15. We really have a lot of regional forms here, as up next we have Ponyta. The most expensive Ponyta card is the shiny version found within Platinum Arceus for $120. As for Galarian Ponyta, it is the shiny version of this form too, found in Shining Fates for $10. Rapidash's most expensive card is the Reverse Holo found within the Legendary Collection, which would cost you $110. As for the Galarian version, it is the Alternate Art V found within Chilling Reign for $70. I love how the later generations have expanded upon a lot of Generation 1 Pokemon. Earlier in the video we talked about the Slideduck and Slowpoke GX Tag Team card, which was not the most expensive card for Psyduck. Thankfully though, it is the most expensive card for Slowpoke, costing $350. As for Galarian Slowpoke, it's the Sword and Shield promo Slowpoke found within the Evolving Skies single pack blisters. And for Slowbro, we're back in the Legendary Collection with the awesome Dark Slowbro Reverse Holo, costing $120. And for Galarian Slowbro, it is the V card from Darkness Ablaze for $2. I have spoken a lot on the channel about how much I loved Magnemite as a child. I remember when Magnemite appeared in the episode where Ash caught his muck and was obsessed with Pikachu's static electricity. The most expensive Magnemite card is the Legendary Collection Reverse Holo for $80. We have not had that many cards from base set today. This was arguably the peak of Pokemon popularity when Pokemania was hitting the news and Playground rumors were circulating like a contagious virus, which is why a lot of the base set cards for the more standard Pokemon are not on the top of these lists. However, for Magneton this is not the case, as the most expensive Magneton is the base set first edition Holo Magneton for $300. I was writing the section for Farfetch'd when I suddenly remembered that Farfetch'd has a regional form, the Galarian Farfetch'd. Who would have thought that the little bird from Kanto would go on to get a hugely memorable regional form, especially within the Pokemon Journeys anime. The most expensive Galarian Farfetch'd is the version found in Shining Fates for like $2. However, the most expensive regular Farfetch'd is the regular Reverse Holo from Skyridge for anything up to $60. As for Doduo, we have the hidden mascot of the Pokemon franchise in the East making an appearance, Imakuni. The Imakuni's Doduo card found in the Japanese Challenge from the Darkness set is the most expensive card at around $50. If there's one thing this list has continued to show me, it's that we need another set like Legendary Collection. A lot of the cards throughout this video have been from Legendary Collection and are evidently very popular, with the Reverse Holo Doduo costing $90. And of course the Reverse Holo for Seal from Legendary Collection is the most expensive at $75. Thankfully though, Seal would get an awesome evolution in Dugong. I have used Dugong in a lot of different playthroughs, most recently in the Hidden Treasures of Area Zero DLC guarantee for Scarlet and Violet. The most expensive Dugong card is the Holo Dugong found within Skyridge for $200. As for Grimer though, it is back to Legendary Collection once again with the Reverse Holo Grimer costing $80. For the Alolan Grimer, it's the Reverse Holo found in Sun and Moon base for like $1. I do feel like some of the tag team values are a little bit inflated at the moment as people are trying to scrape as much as they can out of some of these cards. However, the Muck and Alolan Muck Tag Team GX is actually a pretty reasonable price, costing about $140, which is of course the same for both versions of Muck. For the first time in today's video, we have a card that could be found within the EX Fire Red and Leaf Green set, with the Shelder Reverse Holo found there at about $20. I'm really surprised there are not more cards in this list from that set. If you are the one fan out there of Cloyster, but this card may be the one you have to pick up. Cloyster does not appear to be that popular of a Pokemon, which is kind of surprising. Its most expensive card is selling for only like $90, and it is an old holo from Expedition base set. Did you know that Ghastly's Temporal Forces art rare has become really expensive in the last few months? It was once selling for $10, but now it goes for closer to $60. However, this is not Ghastly's most expensive card. I just thought it was interesting. Ghastly's most expensive card is the Reverse Holo from Legendary Collection for $140. As for Haunter, it once again is the Legendary Collection Reverse Holo for $210. And now we have the big dog, my favourite Pokemon by far. I love Gengar, and I think a lot of people will agree with me on this one. It is well designed. I remember getting my first Gengar in Platinum and being over the moon with this Pokemon. And the most expensive Gengar card is the Vending Japanese promo for up to $2,500. But it is back to Legendary Collection for Onix, whose most expensive card is the Reverse Holo for $75. And this continues with Drowsy, with this Reverse Holo selling for $80. And this is the most expensive Hypno card ever, costing up to $200. I was quite surprised that Krabby does not have a more expensive card. Honestly, the most expensive card I could find for this is a Reverse Holo found within EX Crystal Guardians, which you can find selling for like $15. As for Kingler, the most expensive card Kingler owns comes from the Expedition base set, with the Holo Kingler that sells for around $70. You are about to be stunned by Voltorb's most expensive card. What better way to hit Pokemon 100? Pokemon has had a part of their Play Pokemon events that often gets a bit ignored when it comes to competitive Pokemon, the Professor Program. The Professor Program is a group of insanely knowledgeable Pokemon TCG fans who know everything about the T competitive scene. And to thank them for their work and effort, they can get exclusive rewards like playmats and more. And one of the cards given out to these professors is this Reverse Holo Voltorb from Scarlet and Violet. Seriously, this card is barely 2 years old and already it sells for up to $2,500. As for Hisuian Voltorb, it's the Crown Zenith of Galeria Gallery version for $3. A pretty big difference between both forms. For the millionth time in this video, we have a card found within the Legendary Collection with the Reverse Electrode found within. This card is really cool and to be honest can constantly interchange with two other cards at the top, either the Electrode EX from Fire Red and Leaf Green or the Aquapolis Holo. At the moment though, the Legendary Collection card is at the top at around $100. As for Hisuian Electrode, it is the V Full Art from Lost Origin for $4. Can someone please explain to me something in the comments? Why on earth did Execute get a shiny secret rare card within Plasma Blast? If you like collecting the shiny secret rare cards or just want a weird piece of G history in your collection, then you should pick up this card at $80. I could see that card making sense if the Executor also had a secret rare within the set, but it didn't. The most expensive Executor is super interesting. This is the bilingual Executor card, which sells pretty consistently at around $205. This is one of the only cards ever printed as a bilingual card and has become really rare. And the Rowlet and Alolan Executor GX Tag Team Alternate Art also sells for around $200. For the first time in this video, and likely the last, we have a Chinese card as the most expensive card for one of these Pokemon. The Cubone art rare found in the Chinese Gem Pack free set. This card would set you back anything up to about $110 today. We now have only 46 Pokemon left. We have crossed the 100 Pokemon mark and are making our way to some of the most expensive cards on this list, such as the Dark Marowak Reverse Holo. Weirdly, the reverse seems to be more expensive than the regular Holo version, with this stamped card selling for $100. As for the Alolan Marowak, we have the Pokemon Card Gym stamped Marowak GX promo for $10. We have yet another early Pokemon pack card next with the Hitmonlee coming from the Fossil expansion. Fun fact, we have done 105 Pokemon so far in this video, and Hitmonlee is the first Pokemon with a card from Fossil, with the first edition Fossil Hitmonlee selling for $80. As for Hitmonchan, we have the base set first edition Shadowless Holo Hitmonchan for $350. Lickitung does not seem to be anyone's favourite Pokemon. I have never actually met a Lickitung fan, and that is probably why Lickitung's most expensive card is not even that expensive, with the Reverse Holo from Aquapolis selling for about $40. Once again, if you have watched this much of the video, make sure to subscribe. This script has taken me a long time to make, and I'm sure the editing is going to take my editor just as long. Let the editor know down below that you appreciate their work. For now though, the most expensive Coughing card is the Vending Series 2 Coughing exclusive to Japan, which sells for around $50, closely followed by the Cosmic Eclipse Alternate Art, which sells for around the same amount at $45. As for Weezing, we are heading back to the Japanese version of Expedition base set, with the Weezing found there that sells for around $80 to $110. We are about to begin our Safari Zone Gauntlet, but first we have to talk about Rhyhorn, whose most expensive card is the Reverse Holo from the Legendary Collection for $60. Rhydon was the first Pokemon ever designed, and it's pretty easy to tell. This Pokemon was an awesome beginning for the Pokemon design team, and sets up a lot of design fundamentals that Pokemon still use to this day. The most expensive Rhydon card is the Rhydon Holo found in Skyridge for anything up to $250. We're once again going back to base set where we have this Chansey Holo first edition card, which sells for a lot of money. Chansey was super popular because of the anime, and as such the card now sells for $350. There are some of the best Pokemon found within Kanto coming up, but I think a lot of Pokemon fans tend to forget that Tangela originated in Kanto. Tangela was just kind of forgettable until it got the Tangrowth evolution, and the most expensive Tangela card is the Toys R Us stamped Tangela for $50. We have finally reached the newest card of this video, a card that literally came out a set ago, the Mega Kangaskhan EX SIR. I was super surprised that this was the most expensive Kangaskhan out there. Now, technically, the most expensive is the Parent and Child Tournament promo, which is quite literally priceless, and so finding a price could be a challenge. I could not find any sales of this card that weren't PSA graded, and I like to avoid PSA graded cards in these videos. This card in a PSA 10 sold for $175,000, but if you wanted a card that you could realistically find, it is the SIR Mega Kangaskhan card, which sells for around $80. Once again, we have a Pokemon that have two cards that are incredibly similar in price, so picking one from the two is very hard. Horsey has received both a Reverse Holo in Aquapolis and a Reverse Holo within T Returns, with both of these cards selling for $20 on average. As for Seadra, the most expensive card I could find is the first edition Misty Holo from Gym Heroes, which sells for around $80. This card also had a pre-release version that could sometimes sell for around the same amount. Goldeen is an incredibly disappointing Pokemon. Its most expensive card is the Reverse Holo found within Aquapolis for like $15, which is insanely low for a Gen 1 Pokemon. Unfortunately, Seaking does not get much better, as Seaking's most expensive card is the Reverse Holo, also found in Aquapolis, for $20. We have 32 Pokemon left, and now we have to talk about Staryu. The most expensive Staryu card is the Reverse Holo from Skyridge for around $40. Why do people hate the new design for Mega Starmie? I personally feel that it is one of the funniest Megas we have ever. Not every Mega has to transform a Pokemon into this edgelord cool Pokemon. Sometimes they can just be kind of funny. And Starmie's most expensive card is the Starmie Holo from Skyridge for about $300. Mr. Mime is a bit of a weird Pokemon within Kanto. It does not really seem all that useful, but in the anime he became a weird father for Ash, I guess? Kinda weird if you ask me. Despite anime popularity, Mr. Mime's most expensive card is not that bad. Coming from EX Fire Red and Leaf Green, we have the Mr. Mime EX, which sells for up to $100. As for Galarian Mr. Mime, it is the shiny version found within Shining Fates for $3. I love Cypher. I remember in Johto where you had the bug catching competition and you had a chance to get Scyther. I love Cypher since this, and Sizzle just made this iconic Pokemon even cooler. And the most expensive Cypher card is the Rocket Scyther EX from Team Rocket Returns for $350. I don't want to spend that much time on Jinx, the Pokemon just kind of weirds me out. Jinx's most expensive card is the Reverse Holo from Legendary Collection for $100. Electabuzz is up there amongst some of my favourite Pokemon ever. I love electric types, and Electabuzz evolves into my favourite electric type out there, Electivire. But it would take a couple more generations to get this evolution. During the Kanto days, the most expensive Electabuzz is the first edition Lieutenant Surge's Electabuzz for Gym Heroes for $100. For the first time in today's video, we have a card found within EX Ruby and Sapphire. I'm kinda surprised that a Gen 1 Pokemon's most expensive card is found within the base set for Generation 3, but this Magmar EX is super cool and would cost you around $45. I may have to buy this card soon. Pinsir always needed a partner, and the introduction of Heracross created a duo pretty close to Electabuzz and Magmar, with the most expensive Pinsir card coming from Jungle, with the first edition Holo Rare Pinsir for $70. Once again, we have another Pokemon that we have to talk about two cards for. Tauros. The Cantonian form of Tauros' most expensive card is the Tauros found within the Legendary Collection, which would cost you about $80. As for Paldean Tauros, it is the art rare found in Paldea Evolve for $15. Magikarp is really hard once again to find prices. There are so many different cards that sell for insane amounts of money. So instead of taking the leap, I'm going to talk about all three that I think are the most expensive. First, we have the Tamamushi University Prize Magikarp that doesn't have any recent sales to take a price from. Then we have the Shining Magikarp that sells normally for up to $1,200. Then we have the Magikarp and Wailord Tag Team Alternate Art, which sells for, again, around 1,000. They're all pretty close in price, but if I had to guess, I would say the Tamushi Magikarp is the most expensive. As for Gyarados, we have my favourite card found in Hoenn Phantom, the Gold Star Gyarados, for anything up to $2,000. And now we are really starting to get to the big boys, as next we have Lapras, whose most expensive card is the Reverse Holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $140. The first edition version found within Fossil also sells for around this too, but if not a little bit less. We're about to hit the evolutions, but first we have to talk about Ditto, whose most expensive card is technically a Squirtle card. This is the 2007 Games Expo Ditto card that contains a little stamp in the bottom corner. This card sells for around $500 to $600. Now, I don't think a lot of people watching this are going to believe that the most expensive EV card is actually a Japanese exclusive. The card was released from April to December 2000. In order to get this card, you would have had to earn 500 GET points by purchasing products in Japan. This card would cost you a lot of money today, and I can't even really find any recent sales of it. The closest one I can find it was selling for $4,000. But we're not done with the evolutions yet, as we make our way back into EX Power Keepers, where the original Eevee trio can be found in their shiny Gold Star forms. Starting with Vaporeon. Vaporeon is one of the most well-known evolutions for a multitude of reasons, and this card really captures just how cool Vaporeon can actually be. This card is a bit tough to pinpoint the price from, although some of them have sold for $650, whereas some have sold for closer to $1,500. It really depends on the quality of the card as to how much it will sell for. However, despite Vaporeon's popularity, my favourite evolution has always and will always be Jolteon. I don't know why, but as a kid I just had a real affinity for Jolteon. I loved electric types, and an electric type evolution really just made my day. The Jolteon Gold Star actually makes me so sad with how cheap it is now. Whether Vaporeon could get up to around $1,500, I couldn't find a single non-graded Jolteon for more than $1,000, with most of them sitting between $450 and $800. Which brings us to the final evolution, Flareon. I feel like none of these cards really miss. They're all expertly designed, and this unique design has gone on to make the Gold Stars as a whole some of the most sought after cards, and the Gold Star Flareon tends to sit at just above the price of Jolteon, between $500 and $1,000. Similarly to the Eevee card from earlier, next we have the Porygon card found within the same promotion, except it would cost you more points to get. This Porygon would cost you 700 points, whereas the Eevee would have costed you 500, and this Porygon can sell today for up to $1,500. Right back to Legendary Collection, where we have the Omanyte Reverse Holo, which will cost you $65. As for Omastar, we once again have a Japanese vending exclusive card with the Masaki promo Omastar card that would cost you up to $300. Back to Legendary Collection again for the Reverse Holo for Kabuto, which sells for up to $80. I was quite surprised that Kabutops has had so many expensive cards, especially at the beginning of the TCG. I do not really remember the earlier days of Pokemon and have no idea why Kabutops was popular enough to get a Shining card and a Crystal card. And this Crystal card is the most expensive at about $1,000, although the Shining card can sell for about the same. We have 10 cards left. This video took me about 10 hours to just script alone, and I'm sure it will take my editor 20 more to make this. So if you did enjoy this video, please let us know down below. Also, let me know what cards I have missed. The most expensive Aerodactyl card is the Aerodactyl V Alternate Art, which sells for up to $220. Snorlax is one of the best Pokemon found within Generation 1. This dude has been relevant throughout multiple generations, making a comeback in Generation 6, sleeping on a random bridge in France. And the most expensive card for Snorlax I could find was the Rocket Snorlax EX, found within Team Rocket Returns for around $1,000. And now we have the big boys, the legendary Pokemon, the Pseudos, and of course the Mythical Mew. But first I have to right some wrongs. In my most expensive card for every legendary video, I mistakenly read that the Stained Glass Bird was the most expensive card for the legendary birds. I accidentally read the PSA 10 price, so let's fix that. The most expensive Articuno card is the Holo Articuno found within Skyridge for about $450. And for Galarian Articuno, it is the Galarian Articuno V Alternate Art from Chilling Reign for about $100. As for Zapdos, the most expensive Zapdos card is the first edition base set Shadowless Zapdos for around $500, with the Galarian Zapdos being the alternate art found in Chilling Reign again for $100. And finally we have Moltres. The most expensive Moltres card is the Rocket's Moltres EX from Team Rocket Returns for $400. And then the Galarian Moltres is the alternate art version found in Chilling Reign for $350, which means we are at the first ever pseudo legendary. The original, the one to start it all, the most expensive card Dratini has is the Reverse Holo from Legendary Collection at $100. As for Dragonair, we have the Dark Dragonair Reverse Holo card found in the Legendary Collection at around $125 to $150. Dragonite was such a magical Pokemon when I was growing up, especially with the Pokemon Lighthouse episode of the anime. This dude was so awesome, and it has been just as awesome throughout the history of the TCG, with the most expensive Dragonite card being this promotional Dragonite card that was given out as part of the Pokemon Card Trainers magazine in November 2002. This card is a bit hard to find a price for, but I found one listing that sold for $1,000. I cannot confirm how accurate this is though. And so we have the last two, Mewtwo and Mew. So let's start with Mewtwo. I love Mewtwo and have said on numerous occasions that Mewtwo might be my favourite legendary Pokemon out there. Something about its design, story, and just overall coolness really hit me as a kid, especially in the first Pokemon movie. And the most expensive Mewtwo is both the Shining Mewtwo from Neo Destiny and the Gold Star Mewtwo from Hollow and Phantom. Seriously, both of these cards are selling for around $2,200 today, which is kinda crazy. And finally, that brings us to the last Pokemon in this video, Mew, the mascot of our entire channel and one of my favourite Pokemon of all time. Mew has a lot of expensive cards. The Gold Star from Dragon Frontiers for $1,000, the Shining Mew from Korokoro for $600. However, the most expensive Mew card of all time is the relatively new Chinese Scarlet and Violet promo for Mew EX. This card is one of the only Pokemon cards ever to be released in a lottery format, where each month on the 15th between March and December 2025, you had a chance to earn this card. However, the entry requirements were brutal. Firstly, you had to have entered 15 organised competitive events across China in at least 3 different gyms or venues, and you had to do this within 151 days prior to each lottery day. Every lottery drew 151 winners with a total of 1,510 cards across the entire year. This is probably the most exclusive Pokemon card ever created that has seen a pretty big release. And nowadays, if you bought it, you would have to be ready to spend up to $12,000. And I know I don't talk about graded prices on this channel, but if you wanted to get this in a Beckett Black Label grade, it would cost you up to $125,000. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know I probably got some of these wrong, so please correct me down below if that's the case. All of these prices were cross-referenced between TCG Player, eBay, and price charting, and it took me a long time to do all this. If you did enjoy this video, please let me know down below, and I would really appreciate it if you guys did subscribe. This channel has grown so much, so quickly, and I'm just so grateful for all the support. I genuinely can't explain it. I'll make a YouTube post recently about the situation I was in, but you guys are the best. I love you guys. Thank you very much. We have done the most expensive card for every Kanto Pokemon, and now it is time to head to their unruly neighbor, Johto. Compared to our Kanto video, we have a way shorter video today with every Johto Pokemon. So let's start with Chikorita. The most expensive Chikorita card is actually a McDonald's e-pack minimum card found in McDonald's back in 2002, from January 26th to February 24th. This Chikorita sells today for around $1,000. One of my favorite middle stage starters of all time is Bayleaf. This Pokemon just so excellently captures the middle stage. I remember Ash's Bayleaf from the anime, and to be honest, the older days of the Pokemon anime really just molded my beliefs and perceptions of Pokemon. The most expensive Bayleaf card is the Unseen Forces pre-release Bayleaf, which surprisingly only sells for like $20. I really think Bayleaf deserves better than this. I'm surprised by just how many people dislike Meganium. I get that Bayleaf was such a perfect Pokemon, but compared to grass type starters we would get throughout the entirety of Pokemon, I really don't think Meganium is as bad as everyone claims. The most expensive Meganium is actually a really interesting one. Back in 2001, Pokemon was celebrating the Johto Starters before we transitioned into Generation 3. To celebrate these Pokemon, they decided to run an event called the Starter Triple Get campaign. This event was a lottery run by Pokemon where people would have to show proof of purchase for free Pokemon products in Japan, found within the Pokemon e-starter decks. By doing this in February of 2022, you had a chance to win this Meganium card, where only around 1,600 were printed. This Meganium is pretty expensive nowadays, selling for anything up to $500. If you guys do enjoy these videos, please take a brief second to subscribe. It really does help out, and I would really appreciate it, but enjoy the rest of the video. If you guys watched my Kanto video, you will know that a lot of the cards found within that video were from the Legendary Collection, and thankfully, that is not the case for this video. The cards found for every Johto Pokemon are considerably more spread out throughout the last 25 years of Pokemon, such as the Cyndaquil card, with the most expensive Cyndaquil being the card found within the Chikorita half deck, featuring a little Chikorita stamp in the corner of the artwork. This card sells today for $50. Compared to the Chikorita line, the Cyndaquil line has pretty disappointing cards found within. However, Quilava's, despite being a relatively inexpensive card, is actually really cool. This is the Quilava found within volume 16 of the Pokemon Card Trainer magazine, released back in May 2002. As I said, this card is actually pretty cheap today, selling for like $50. Which brings us to Typhlosion, where we once again have a lottery card also found within the Starter Triple Get campaign, the same as Meganium, with the Typhlosion card found within this lottery selling today for about $700. Typhlosion also has the Neo Genesis First Edition card that also sells for around $700, so they're pretty on par with each other. And for the first time in this video, we have to talk about Hisui and Typhlosion. Compared to our video on Kanto, we won't have to spend nearly as much time on regional forms in this video, and we won't spend any more on Hisui and Typhlosion. Hisui and Typhlosion's most expensive card is the Rainbow Rare V V-Star found within Astral Radiance for $11. My favorite Johto starter though has to be Totodile. I was so happy to see Totodile getting something in Legends ZA. I feel like the Johto starters were largely left behind when it came to unique forms and gimmicks, especially in the more recent Pokemon games. And so for Alligator getting a Mega really just brought back some hype for Totodile. The most expensive Totodile card is the Reverse Holo found within Expedition base set, which sells for around $100. And with Croconaw we have yet another cool card, an electric type Delta species stamped Croconaw released alongside Dragon Frontiers. This card is super cool and honestly isn't that expensive, costing around $20. And to end out the Johto starters we have for Alligator, who has the cheapest of the free starters within the Starter Triple Get Lottery, with the for Alligator version selling for around $400. So we're done with the Johto starters, but don't go anywhere. Much like our Kanto video, this is where the video really starts to get interesting. We have some of the oldest, some of the newest, and some of the weirdest expensive Pokemon cards coming up, starting with Sentret, whose most expensive card is the Team Rocket Return stamped Sentret that sells today for $30. As for Furret, we had quite a few cards around the $30 mark, and the most expensive of all of these is the Reverse Holo of the card found within Aquapolis that sells today for around $35 to $40. We're gonna have quite a few E-Series cards in this video. The E-Series of Pokemon really went insanely hard when it came to designing excellent Pokemon cards, and mix in the scarcity of these cards too, and you have something really special, such as the Hoot Hoot Reverse Holo found within Skyridge that sells today for $25. It was surprisingly hard to find pictures of some of the Reverse Holos from the E-Series sets, mainly due to how obscure the cards actually can be. Throughout this video, you're going to see cards that aren't Reverse Holos, but the most expensive will most likely be the Reverse Holo. However, I had zero difficulty when it came to the most expensive Noctowl card. Of course, the most expensive Noctowl card is the Shining Noctowl found within Neo Destiny, which sells today for $500. I actually love the most expensive Ladybug card. I feel like Ladybug doesn't get the respect it deserves. While yes, one of the worst bug types out there for just about any playthrough, from a design standpoint, I love its little arms and big eyes. The most expensive Ladybug card can be found within the Southern Islands promotional release with this Reverse Holo. Southern Islands was a name given to a special set of Pokemon cards released in 1999 in Japan, and then the West 2 years later. This set was originally connected to the second Pokemon movie as part of two collections, the Rainbow and Tropical Island in Japan. But by the time 2001 came around, Wizards of the Coast decided to just release the Southern Islands collection, containing every released Southern Island card in one. The Ladybug card has become very expensive, selling for $100. As for Ledian, we have a pretty expensive holo found within the Skyridge set. Skyridge has gone down as one of the best sets Pokemon ever released, filled with Crystal Pokemon, iconic holo cards, and more. And the holo Ledian is awesome, selling today for up to $200. Spinarak would not get very lucky within the Neo and E-Series sets for Pokemon. However, it would get a Team Rocket Return stamped holo card that sells today for around $50. Thankfully though, for Ariados, we would get considerably luckier within the Aquapolis set, where we got this holo Ariados card that sells today for around $80, which is pretty cheap for an older holo. If you like Ariados, this may be the card to get. As for Crobat, we have the Crystal Crobat. We spoke a lot about the Crystal Pokemon in my every Crystal Pokemon card ever video, but I had no idea just how good the Crystal Crobat actually was competitively. Both of its attacks were incredibly powerful and just pumped damage into your opponent's team, while also allowing you to push status effects onto them. This card is insanely cool and sells today for $1,000. Then we have Chinchou, one of my favorite evolutionary lines from Generation 2, with the most expensive Chinchou being the Reverse Holo found in Aquapolis, which sells for around $30 to $40. The first graded card me and my wife ever owned was a PSA 7 Lantern found in the Japanese version of Aquapolis. Unfortunately, this is not a card that we own anymore, as we did have to sell it a while ago. One day I would love to get this card for my wife again, and conveniently this is also the most expensive Lantern card, with the English version selling for up to $90. Which brings us to the baby Pokemon, starting with the first ever Pika clone, sort of, Pichu. For those who have completed a Pichu Master Collection, I have some awful news for you. You probably aren't done. The most expensive Pichu card is Rough. This is the Card Design Contest Televi Kun winner Spiky-Eared Pichu, one of 7 Pichu cards that were released as part of a design contest to coincide with the movie commemoration random packs back in 2009. Fans would be given a blank version of this Pichu card with only the Pichu and would then design the background for the card. All of these cards are insanely valuable, but most of them have never been sold. Even the Televi Kun winner card has only been sold very few times, with this card costing $7,500. For the first time and probably only time ever in the history of the Pokemon TCG, we can mash the next 3 Pokemon together into one card, as we have the Togepi, Cleffa, and Igglybuff GX Tag Team card. I love the tag team cards, and Cosmic Eclipse has some of the best cards ever released, such as the alternate art for these tag teams. Sort of. The alternate art for this card would eventually be released in the Small But Mighty Premium Collection, and has become really expensive, costing $250, which means we are 24 Pokemon down with 76 left to go. Thankfully, Johto is a very small Pokemon region, especially after all of the insanely long videos we have been making recently. But let's not ramble. Let's talk about Togetic. The most expensive Togetic card is the Light Togetic found within Neo Destiny that sells today for $300 in a first edition. compilation. And then we have Natu, whose most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells today for $50. And we won't be leaving Skyridge with Xatu, as we have the holo found within Skyridge, the final holo of the set, which sells for around $140. One thing I will say about Johto is I do not feel like we really have any bad cards yet. I'm not a huge fan of Legendary Collection, but I can see why most people are. The holo effect is really cool. I just love being able to jump back and forth across multiple sets, and it's time to take a pretty huge jump ahead for Mareep to 2009 with this Pokemon Center stamped Mareep card handed out at the 1009 Pokemon Center card free battle events. This card sells today for $50 to $60. And for Flaffy, we have to look into the Totodile half deck. Back with the release of the Neo era of Pokemon, Media Factory and Pokemon were trying to figure out different ways to get people playing the TCG. Everyone loves to collect these cards, but a lot of people just really never play with them, which is completely fine. And the way they decided to get people into the TCG was through half decks. There were two of these half decks, the Chikorita half deck and the Totodile half deck, where the Chikorita one prioritized a variety of types within the deck. Totodile's half deck was primarily water and psychic types, and the most expensive Flaffy card could be found within this deck and is selling today for $100. We have spent quite a while on both Mareep and Flaffy, so let's speed up a bit for Ampharos, with thankfully a pretty simple most expensive card. The Dark Ampharos card found within Neo Destiny. This card sells today for anything up to $250. We have a couple of Pokemon coming out that were evolutions for Generation 1 Pokemon, starting with Blossom. I love Blossom. The way you have to find it in New Pokemon Snap on the Switch and the Hulu inspiration behind it was incredibly clever and has made this a fan favorite grass type. Today the most expensive Blossom is the Aquapolis Holo Rare, which sells for up to $150. I often forget that Marill is actually a Generation 2 Pokemon and not a Generation 3 Pokemon. I never really played Johto all that much, at least not until I knew most of the Hoenn Pokémon, and I always just assumed Azurill, Marill, and Azumarill were all Generation 3 Pokemon. The most expensive Marill card is pretty expensive. It is the Southern Islands Reverse Holo for Marill, which sells today for $150. And so we end the non-Hoenn Pokemon lineup with Azumarill, whose most expensive card is the Holo Rare from Acropolis, which sells for $150. I used to despise Sudowoodo, but for such a strange reason. Does anyone remember Pokepark Pikachu's Adventure for the Wii? I used to love this game, and even to this day, I would call it one of my favorite Pokemon games ever released. But the one downside of this was Sudowoodo. In Pokepark, you could play hide and seek with Sudowoodo, and being a little human at the time, I couldn't for the life of me find Sudowoodo. All the while, it just kept saying its name, taunting me. The most expensive Sudowoodo card is the Holo Sudowoodo found within Aquapolis, which sells today for $130. And now we have the GOAT of all frog Pokemon, Politoed. I love Politoed, and it really was an amazing addition to the Poliwag lineup. The most expensive Politoed is the holo found within Skyridge, which can sell for up to $275, which is really expensive. I was going to jump past Hoppip a bit until I found out that it actually has a really expensive card as its most expensive. This is the Japanese Hoppip promo, and it has a really weird story behind it. While in English we would see this card within Neo Discovery, in Japan it was actually given out during a short-lived manga series titled How I Became a Pokemon card. This manga had 6 volumes in total, each revolving around different Pokemon in every volume. The Hoppip card could be found within volume 3 and features a Gengar on the card too. This Hoppip sells today for $250. In comparison to Hoppip, Skiploom's most expensive card is really disappointing. We have the Skiploom stamped reverse holo found within Team Rocket Returns, which sells today for up to $40. And that brings us to Jumpluff, whose most expensive card is the holo found within Aquapolis. This is actually really cheap, selling for around $100. And the cards are just getting weirder from here, as next we have Apom, whose most expensive card might be the most unique of the video so far, with the San Diego Comic-Con Apom. This card was handed out at the San Diego Comic-Con back in 2010. Pokemon don't often attend Comic-Cons, and so this card is pretty unique, and surprisingly isn't actually that expensive, selling for a max of like $90. Unfortunately, things do not get much weirder with Sunkern, as the most expensive Sunkern card is the reverse holo within Skyridge for like $30. As for Sunflora, we are jumping decades ahead to the release of Silver Tempest, where we would get the Sunflora Staff pre-release, which sells today for up to $50. Also around this price is the reverse holo from Skyridge for around $45. Yanma is one of those Pokemon that desperately needed an evolution. Yanma without Yanmega is just not that good of a Pokemon, and upon the release of Yanmega in Generation 4, it finally had some purpose to it. However, Yanma has actually had quite a few expensive cards. 2 of them come to mind. First, we have the most expensive Yanma with the holo found in Neo Discovery, which in a first edition sells for $120. However, there is also the shiny found within Platinum Supreme Victors, which sells for around $75-ish. I just wanted to mention this card because I love it. And that brings us to everyone's favorite boy, Wooper. I love Wooper, and I think most people out there do. It's just one of those Pokemon that has somehow managed to become popular without any haters, and the most expensive Wooper card is the reverse holo found within Aquapolis, which sells for $120. And then for Paldea and Wooper, we have the Paldea Evolved Art Rare, which sells for like $10. I personally quite like the regional forms that evolve into different Pokemon, as Paldea and Wooper would not evolve into a Paldean Quagsire. In my opinion, this does not undermine Quagsire as one of the GOATs. The most expensive Quagsire card is the Misty's Quagsire found within the Japanese Versus set, which sells for $80. And now we are in the big leagues, the Espeon and the Umbreon. These two are probably going to have two of the most expensive cards of the video. So let's start with Espeon. Espeon is slightly overshadowed by Umbreon a lot of the time. I always preferred Espeon, but it seems most fans of a TCG lean more towards Umbreon and Espeon. The most expensive Espeon card is the Gold Star Espeon, which today sells for a lot of money. In a good condition, this card can go for up to $5,000. And so of course we have Umbreon next. Umbreon has received a lot of expensive cards. The Umbreon VMAX Alternate Art from Evolving Skies, the Moonbreon Holo from Skyridge, Umbreon Prime found within Hot Gold Soul Silver Undaunted, and the Prismatic Evolution Stellar Terra Umbreon. But what is the most expensive Umbreon card out there? Well, it is none other than the Gold Star Umbreon, which sells for up to $8,000. But if every Pokemon card sold for $8,000, the hobby would be unsustainable. So let's head back to some of the cheaper cards of the video, such as Murkrow, whose most expensive card is the Japanese exclusive Morty's Murkrow found within the Versus series, which sells for $80. As for our next Pokemon though, it is back to expensive cards as we talk about Slowking. Now granted, this Slowking card is not selling for thousands of dollars, but it isn't cheap. This is the Holo Slowking found within Aquapolis, which sells for up to $300. As for the Galarian version of Slowking, we have the alternate art found within Chilling Reign, which sells for up to $70. Sometimes it feels a bit weird to look back on older Pokemon cards that are holos for non-fully evolved Pokemon. Given that we received a lot of new evolutions within Generation 4, looking back and seeing holos for cards like Yanma, even Golbat and Onix, just feels weird. And one of these Pokemon is Misdreavus. The Misdreavus first edition holo found within Neo Revelation sells today for $250. Do not worry though, I won't be doing the most expensive unknown card for every letter. That would require an entire video on its own. The most expensive unknown card is the question mark holo unknown found within EX Unseen Forces, which sells today for up to $100. The exclamation point also sells for around this, but a little bit less. And so finally we have Pokemon number 50, the halfway point for the video. So once again, if you guys are enjoying this video, please subscribe and leave a like down below. And what better way to do our 50th Pokemon than with Wobbuffet? And the most expensive Wobbuffet card may be the newest Pokemon so far in this video, the Pokemon Center stamped Wobbuffet, which sells today for up to $100. Right, let's speed through the next few Pokemon cards as they aren't that interesting. Starting with Girafarig, whose most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Skyridge, selling for $60. Then we have Pineco, who once again has a reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $30 to $40. And to continue our Skyridge run, we have the holo found within Skyridge for Forretress, which sells today for $150. And this also continues with Dunsparce, with the reverse holo found within Skyridge that sells today for $40. Finally, to finish our Skyridge run, we have the reverse holo for Gligar, probably my favorite ground type Pokemon. The reverse holo for Gligar sells today for $30. When it comes to one of the most iconic steel type Pokemon ever, we were actually a bit spoiled for choice with expensive cards. We had Steelix cards like Bruno Steelix found within the Versus series, Steelix EX from Unseen Forces, Steelix holos in both Skyridge and Aquapolis. However, of course, the most expensive Steelix card is the Shining Steelix First Edition found in Neo Destiny, which sells today for $550. Now, when it came to Snubbull, there were actually two cards that were pretty on par with each other for price. One was, of course, the reverse holo from Skyridge. However, there is actually a second card that sells for about the same, the Build-A-Bear stamped promo for Snubbull. This card was found exclusively at Build-A-Bears, and nowadays they both sell for around $40. And for Granbull, we once again have the reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells for $40. I'm surprised that we really do not have that many Neo era cards within this video. I thought for sure we would be finding most cards within that era, but I think so far we have had more cards from the E-Series era, such as Quillfish, whose most expensive card is the stamped Quillfish from Team Rocket Returns, which sells today for $40. As for the Hisuian Quillfish, we have the common card from Astral Radiance, which sells for like 6 cents. Bankbreaker. And now we have a trio of some of the best bug types out there, starting with Sizzle. I was obsessed with Sizzle when I was a kid. The red design for a bug was super cool and really unique at the time, and giving this brand new bug type the brand new steel type was such an excellent choice for Pokemon. And the most expensive Sizzle today is the Rocket Sizzle EX, which sells for anything up to $500. The second Pokemon within our bug type trio is potentially the funniest and weirdest gimmick Pokemon ever created, Shuckle. Now on paper, Shuckle does not look like an amazing Pokemon, but with its variety of stat changing moves, this Pokemon could become a real powerhouse. The most expensive Shuckle card is the Janine Shuckle found within the Japanese Versus series, which sells today for around $120. And finally, we have the bug and fighting type Heracross. I loved Ash's Heracross growing up and wish that I could afford this Heracross card. The Heracross holo found within Neo Genesis, which sells for $160, which honestly isn't that bad. But now things are gonna get expensive once again as we talk about Sneasel. Now, finding the most expensive card for Sneasel was once again incredibly difficult. This Sneasel card has no real price out there because of how exclusive it was. was. But there is no doubt in my mind that this card is the most expensive Sneasel. This is the 25th anniversary Sneasel card. This card features the 25th anniversary stamp in the bottom corner of the artwork and was given exclusively to employees at the Pokemon Company, meaning it doesn't come up for sale very often, and when it does, it sells for such a huge variety of prices. This is definitely the most expensive Sneasel card, but I cannot find a price for it. So the second most expensive Sneasel card is the Rocket Sneasel EX found in Team Rocket Returns, which sells for $200. As for Hisuian Sneasel, we have the Cosmos Holo Sneasel found exclusively in the full 2022 collector's chest. This card sells for like 50 cents, which is way worse than the priceless regular Sneasel. Right, that was a lot of Sneasel, so let's speed through the next few Pokemon once again, starting with Teddy Ursa, whose most expensive card is the Reverse Holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $50. As for Ursaring, we have the first edition Holo found within Neo Discovery. This card sells today for anything up to $100. I actually quite like Slugma as a Pokemon. I get some people aren't huge fans of the design, but it's actually one of very few fire types which has a lava element to them. The most expensive Slugma is the Reverse Holo found within Skyridge, which sells for $35. Did you know that Makago actually received 2 Holo cards within Skyridge? Not even Charizard received 2 Holos in this set. Both of them sell for around the same price, with them both selling for between $100 and $120. And we won't be leaving Skyridge anytime soon, as we have the Swinub Reverse Holo found within Skyridge, specifically this card and not this one, which sells for $40. And of course we cannot leave Skyridge next, as we have the Holo Piloswine found within this set, which sells for anything up to $200. Thankfully though, for the time being we are done with Skyridge. At least for one card, as the most expensive Corsola card is once again found within the Japanese Versus expansion with this Misty's Corsola card. This card was released in the Theatre Limited Versus pack to celebrate the release of Pokemon Heroes, which sells for $30, which is pretty cheap for such a funny looking card. As for Galarian Corsola, we have the shiny version found within Shining Fates for $3. I feel like throughout this video we have only really spoken about 3 to 4 sets. It's either been Skyridge and Aquapolis, the Japanese Versus expansion, or Team Rocket Returns, where the most expensive Remoraid can be found, which sells for $20. And for Octillery, it is once again the Aquapolis Holo as the most expensive. Except this is actually not that expensive, costing only around $70 to $80. So if you're an Octillery fan, grab this while you can. Given it is December, we should get a bit more festive, as we have the Santa Claus Pokemon next, Delibird. I love Delibird, and given it is probably the only Pokemon that pulls some inspiration from Christmas, that makes it really quite unique. The most expensive card that Delibird has is the Delibird First Place Pokemon League card that was released to coincide with Black and White boundaries crossed. This card is really cool and sells today for around $80 to $90. I am surprised that Mantine did not get a full holo within Skyridge. It's still kind of weird to me that Pokemon like Yanma and Misdreavus did, and yet they got evolutions in Sinnoh. Meanwhile, Mantine didn't and got a pre-evolution in Sinnoh. The most expensive Mantine card is the Reverse Holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $30. Which brings us to Pokemon number 75. We are now in the final quarter of Pokemon found within the Johto National Dex. These are some of the most expensive Johto Pokemon out there, but that won't be starting with Skarmory. The most expensive Skarmory is the Falkner Skarmory found within the Japanese Versus set, which sells for $110. Can anyone tell me why the most expensive Houndour card is actually a holo found within Neo Discovery? Did Pokemon get confused or something and misread Houndour and Houndoom? For some bizarre reason, both Houndour and Houndoom would get holo cards within the Neo series, with Houndour appearing in Neo Discovery. This Houndour card sells for $200. As for Houndoom, we actually have a lot of expensive cards here. Cards like the holo found in Aquapolis, the first edition holo found in Neo Revelation, the Dark Houndoom found within Neo Destiny. However, the most expensive is of course the holo found within Skyridge, which sells for $500. And for the second time in this video, we have one of the Crystal Pokemon making an appearance with the Crystal Kingdra. This card was an amazing addition to the Kingdra card roster, and really is one of very few good cards Kingdra has received. I feel like Kingdra doesn't get the respect it deserves most of the time, and the Crystal Kingdra is super expensive, selling for $500. If you search on eBay recently sold for Fanpy, you'll see some of the strangest cards that just aren't Fanpy. Cards like the Art Academy Mew, the Gold Pikachu EX from Prismatic, and even the Charizard VMAX found within the Charizard UPC. I have no idea why searching Fanpy does this. The most expensive Fanpy, however, does start to appear way further down, with the Japanese McDonald's promotional card released back in 2002, which sells for $50. I love Donphan, and for a pretty weird reason. Did anyone ever play Pixelmon growing up? The Minecraft Pokemon mod? For years, I spent most of my weekends hopping on a Pixelmon server and using my Donphan. It was actually my starter and the Pokemon that I constantly had in my team. The most expensive Donphan card is actually really cheap, with the Dark Donphan selling for $100. It took way too long for Porygon to get a full evolutionary line. Porygon first appeared in Kanto before getting the Porygon 2 evolution within Johto, and then finally the Porygon Z evolution within Sinnoh, but we'll get to him in a later video. For now, we have to talk about Porygon 2, whose most expensive card is the first edition Dark Porygon 2 holo found within Neo Destiny, which sells for $150. I feel like Stantler needed the Weird-It evolution way sooner than it actually got it. The reverse holo Stantler from Skyridge is honestly kind of mid, and had we got Weird-It sooner, we may have gotten a cooler Stantler card to go along with it. This Skyridge card sells for $30. I genuinely had to spend a while ensuring that I had found the most expensive Smeargle card. For some reason, I had managed to Mandela effect myself into thinking this card had an Art Academy version, but it turns out it didn't. That is because Smeargle is the mascot for the Art Academy, as well as various illustration contests, and as such has never received a version itself. The most expensive Smeargle card is the first edition Holo Smeargle found in Neo Discovery, which sells for up to $120. We are quickly approaching the end of the video now, and next we have Tyro, whose most expensive card is actually a promotional release. Since its debut in the 90s, Tyro has only appeared on 7 cards, so it really hasn't had that much of a chance to get an expensive card. However, the most expensive out there is the promo found within the 2002 McDonald's Pokemon cards. This card sells today for $40. I actually really like Hitmontop. I think it was an excellent addition to the fighting type duo of Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, and it has had some pretty cool Pokemon cards, with its most expensive being the Bruno's Hitmontop found within the Japanese Versus expansion, which sells for $60. For only the 3rd time in this video, we have a card found within EX Unseen Forces, with the Reverse Holo Force Smoocher. There is no way Jinx was a popular enough Pokemon to warrant getting a baby evolution. Thankfully, it did not get a Sinnoh evolution as well. This Reverse Holo Smoocher sells today for $35. And we're about to start a bit of a roll with Unseen Forces, as Elekid's most expensive card is also found within Unseen Forces, with the Reverse Holo selling for $70. And we end the baby Pokemon added for Generation 1 middles with Magby, who is not found within Unseen Forces. The most expensive Magby actually comes from the Expedition base set, which really hasn't appeared much throughout this video, with this Holo Magby that sells for anything up to $150. But it is back to Unseen Forces we go for the most expensive Miltank card. I really thought we would have seen more Unseen Forces in the middle and beginning of this video, and it is insane how late in the video we have come for this set to make so many appearances. The Reverse Holo for Miltank found within this set sells for $50. This is also around the same as what the Miltank from Aquapolis sells for as well. And so we are in the final 10. We have been going for a while, so make sure you let me know what your favorite card of the video is so far down in the comments as we head into Blissey. The most expensive Blissey card is the EX found within Unseen Forces, which sells for around $125 to $150. And now, of course, we have the 3 legendary beasts who are cats, just saying. Starting with Raikou, my favorite of the legendary beasts, whose most expensive card is the Raikou Gold Star found again within Unseen Forces, which sells for up to $1,100. You're probably going to notice a bit of a trend for the next 2 Pokemon as well, since we have the Gold Star Entei next, which sells for up to $900. And so that leaves us with Suicune, whose most expensive card is, surprise, the Gold Star found within Unseen Forces, which sells for up to $1,300. And then there were 6, starting with Larvitar. Ash is the biggest fumbler in the world within any anime or cartoon. Bro had a Larvitar and decided to just let it go? How do you have a pseudo-legendary Pokemon and suddenly decide you are done with the Pokemon just before it starts to power up? The most expensive Larvitar card is a bit of a unique one. It is this Japanese exclusive promotional Larvitar card that was given out to passengers flying on any domestic or Nippon Airways flight between July 13th, 2001 and September 30th, 2001. Passengers could redeem their boarding pass for a 2-card set featuring the Larvitar and a Pikachu too. Nowadays, this card sells for around $100 max. Pupitar has not had a very good run within the TCG. It's yet to get any art rare, trainers Pokemon, or anything particularly mind-blowing. And as a result, the most expensive Pupitar card is the Stamped Dark Pupitar Reverse Holo from Team Rocket Returns for $30. Tyranitar has had a lot of cards throughout its time within the TCG. It had a tag team with Mega Sableye, a Holo found within Aquapolis, but it has one card that stands out above the rest. The Shining Tyranitar found within Neo Destiny that can sell for anything up to $1,000. And so we have 3 left: Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Celebi. 2 of the most iconic legendaries and one of the most iconic mythicals. Time and time again, I have managed to fumble the price of this Lugia card. The card changes price almost every day, and keeping track of it has become really difficult. The most expensive Lugia card is the Holo found within Aquapolis, which sells for up to $3,500. As for Ho-Oh, we have the Skyridge counterpart to Lugia with the Crystal Ho-Oh, which sells today again for around $3,500. And so we end our list with Celebi. This video was actually a lot longer than I expected it to be, especially given there were only 100 Pokemon to talk about. I feel like when Legendary Collection is taken out of the midst, you have a much more diverse set of expensive cards for every Johto Pokemon. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and turn on notifications to be ready for the release of the most expensive card for every Hoenn Pokemon. But for now, the most expensive Celebi is the Shining Celebi from Neo Destiny, which sells today for around $1,200. We have done the most expensive card for every Kanto Pokemon. We have done the most expensive card for every Johto Pokemon, and I need a vacation. So let's head to the oceans of Hoenn, and we're starting with a big one. All 3 of the Hoenn starters would appear within the EXT Rocket Returns set as Gold Star cards. These are cards that have become incredibly rare and of course incredibly expensive. The Gold Star Trico sells today for anything up to $3,000. The most expensive Grovyle card is a 2003 Black Star winner promotion Promotional Grovyle. This card was handed out at the Pokemon E-League series of events up to October of 2003. These cards featured the winner stamp in the bottom corner. Nowadays, this card sells for around $100. Did you know we have not seen a Sceptile card since Sun and Moon Lost Thunder? This may not sound like that long ago, but I'm about to crush some hearts out there. Lost Thunder came out 7 years ago. Let that sink in. The most expensive Sceptile card is the Full Art Mega Sceptile EX found within X and Y Ancient Origins, which sells for up to $250. There is also the Sceptile EX found within Team Magma vs Team Aqua that sells for around $240. And now for Torchic, we have the second Gold Star and certainly not the last for this video. The Gold Star Torchic sells today for around $4,000. And then we have Combusken, who has a pretty interesting card as the most expensive. The State Championship Staff Combusken. This card originated from the Furious Fist set. The card would be reprinted with a crosshatch holo with the Arena Cup logo at the 2014 Bremen Arena Cup in December of 2014. To coincide with this card, they would release a staff version which has become the most expensive Combusken card at about $70. Blaziken was having a pretty tough time in the TCG for a while. And to be fair, all of the Hoenn starters have. It seems that no matter what Pokemon do, they just can't make very good expensive Hoenn starter cards. And they have tried, of course. With Blaziken, we got cards like Mega Blaziken EX, the National Championship stamped Blaziken, and many more. That is until Chilling Reign came along where we would get the alternate art version of Blaziken VMAX. This card has become the main chase card within Chilling Reign and costs up to $500 today. And so we end out the starter trio with, of course, the Gold Star Mudkip. This card sells today for around $3,000. Let's move on to March Top with the November 2003 E-League winner card. This card was handed out as a prize to those who attended the Pokemon E-League during November of 2003. The card is basically just a reprint of the Nintendo Black Star promo that was found in Japan, except this time they added the winner stamp in the bottom corner. The regular print version nowadays sells for up to $60. Also, forgive me using a graded card for the image here, I just couldn't find a good quality image of this card anywhere. Compared to the rest of the Hoenn starters, Swampert has not had a good time. It has received barely any cards, with only 3 EX cards for its regular form kicking about today. This is such a shame because Swampert really deserves so much better. The most expensive Swampert is the Swampert EX found within Team Magma vs Team Aqua, which sells for roughly $150. Make sure you subscribe, we are uploading the next generation every single week up until Generation 9, and you do not want to miss this. Also, while you're down there, let me know your favorite Hoenn Pokemon card. I am actually insanely excited for the Hoenn Pokemon video. Kanto was full of Legendary Collection, then Johto was full of the E-Series. I feel like Hoenn is where we're gonna see some insane diversity on where these cards originated. The most expensive Poochyena card is the EX Deoxys stamped Poochyena. Surprisingly, this card is not that expensive, costing around $20. A big reason I make these videos is so I can find out about cards that do not normally come up in conversation, such as the most expensive card for Mighty Edda. Everyone loves to talk about the Charizards, the Evolutions, the Pikachus, and more, but I love every card in between. The most expensive Mighty Edda is the Mighty Edda EX found within Holon Phantoms, which sells for $70. There are not that many Pokemon throughout Hoenn with regional forms. In fact, we only have 2 to talk about, starting with Zigzagoon. First though, let's talk about the most expensive card for the regular Zigzagoon. The most expensive regular Zigzagoon is the EX Emerald stamped Zigzagoon, which sells for $15. A steal for stamped card collectors. Then we have the Galarian Zigzagoon with the shiny found in Shining Fates for $1.50. Well, that was a bit underwhelming. And for our final regional form of the video, we have Linoom, whose most expensive card is also the reverse holo found within EX Emerald, which sells for $30. As for Galarian Linoon, it is also the shiny version, which sells for $2. And you would think that a Pokemon like Wurmple would have a pretty boring card as its most expensive, right? Well, you would be completely wrong, much like I was. I even thought that Wurmple would have a boring card myself. However, its most expensive card is this 2004 Poker Card Creator Wurmple. The Poker Card Creator Pack was a collection of cards found within the EX era of Pokemon cards, but with designs created by winners of the Kids Warner Brothers Poker Card Creator Contest. Kids between the age of 5 and 15 could design an image of one of the 5 Pokemon, and then the winner would get an exclusive pack called the Poker Card Creator Pack. These cards are pretty expensive today and are some of the few cards actually released exclusively in English. This Wurmple was designed by Katie Gross and sells for up to $300. We can speed through some of the next cards as they aren't that interesting, such as Silcoon, whose most expensive card is the EX Deoxys stamped Silcoon, which sells for $10. The most expensive card for Beautifly is also the EX Deoxys stamped Beautifly card, which sells for around $15. There is also the holo found within Ruby and Sapphire that sells for a little bit less at around $10 to $12. Cascoon's most expensive card is the EX Legend Maker stamped Cascoon, which is really disappointing, selling for around $10. And we end the bug types with Dustox. Beautifly didn't get much credit during the EX era, and really ever for that matter. Dustox meanwhile would receive an EX card found within EX Legend Maker, which sells today for $70. Right, I'm gonna jump in quickly and point out some of the rules that I have for these videos. Firstly, I do not talk about graded cards. They inflate the value and make numbers seem way larger than they are. This is also the same reason I do not talk about error cards. I try to be as accurate as possible with these, and if there are any cards I missed, let me know down below. Finally, if a card is only ever sold in a graded form, then that card is gonna normally be priceless compared to the other cards I talk about. I may mention them, I may not. This happened with the Pokemon Snap contest cards back in Kanto. So yeah, if you think I'm wrong or missed any cards, let me know down below. Back to the video. There was a bizarre moment in the TCG during Platinum Base Set and Diamond and Pearl where Pokemon just randomly decided to give some Pokemon shiny versions. And one of these Pokemon was Lotad. The shiny reverse holo for Lotad sells today for $80. Right, this video is on track to be over an hour long if I don't speed things up, so let's speed up a little bit. The most expensive Lombre card is the reverse holo version of the card found in EX Sandstorm, which sells for $15. As for Ludicolo, we have the holo found within EX Sandstorm, which sells for $50. This is also around the same price as the EX Crystal Guardian stamped reverse as well, although this generally sells for a little bit less. As for C-Dot, we have the reverse holo EX Legend Maker stamped card, which sells for $10. I love the cards found within Crystal Guardians. All of them have some kind of crystal element to them. Some may even say they are the guardians of their crystals. Probably shouldn't have held for applause, huh? The most expensive Nuzleaf is the stamped reverse Nuzleaf, which sells again for about $10. This is going to be a bit of a trend with some of these stamped cards in this video. And we can finish the C-Dot line with Shiftry, whose most expensive card is the EX found within EX Crystal Guardians, which sells today for $55. Again, this is also about the same price as the EX found within Power Keepers as well. Taylor's most expensive card is the EX Delta Species stamped Taylor card, which sells today for $15. I am shocked that Swellow has not received a good card yet. This Pokemon was insane in the anime and deserves way better than a reverse holo found within EX Emerald. This card does have a pretty sick holo though, and sells today for $20. It seems that a lot of the cards today are the stamped reverse holo cards found within various sets throughout the EX era, such as Wingull in the EX Deoxys stamped version, which sells for $10. And now we have the newest card of the video, the Pelipper. Pelipper has been hugely popular in the VGC for years as an excellent Rain Team Pokemon. Unfortunately though, in the TCG, Pelipper has not had quite as amazing of a run. The most expensive Pelipper is the Staff Paldea Evolved promo given to staff at various pre-release events that nowadays sells for around $50. And the Scarlet and Violet era cards continue into the Ralts line, with the most expensive Ralts card being the Art Rare found within Scarlet and Violet, which sells today for $30. Surprisingly, Curlier has had an exceptional run within the TCG and has 4 cards that sell for a lot of money. However, the most expensive of these is the pre-release staff card, which was released to coincide with Secret Wonders. This card sells today for $150. Which brings us to Gardevoir. Gardevoir has so many expensive cards that are close to the top of the list. The shiny Gardevoir found within Dark Explorers, the new Mega Gardevoir EX Gold card within Mega Evolution, and even the secret rare Gardevoir EX found within Steam Siege. However, the most expensive Gardevoir is the Gardevoir and Sylveon GX Tag Team, which sells for up to $900 today. Surskit is yet another stamped reverse holo found within EX Deoxys, which sells for $10. This is also the case for Masquerain with another EX Deoxys stamped reverse holo for $10. Okay, I know that EX Deoxys may be the rarest set in TCG history, but so many cards within this video come from that set, such as Shroomish with the reverse holo from EX Deoxys selling for $20. Thankfully, we can switch things up with Breloom, sort of. Breloom's most expensive card is the reverse holo found within EX Emerald, which sells for $25. As for Slackoff, it seems that the most expensive card is the Slackoff found within Surging Sparks, which sells for around $10. But this is also around the same price as the Slackoff reverse stamped version found within EX Deoxys. As for Vigoroth, you guessed it, we have the EX Deoxys Vigoroth, which sells for $20. I am actually really surprised that Slacking never got a good card in the EX era of Pokemon. This Pokemon never received an EX in any of the EX sets, and it would take up to Scarlet and Violet before it would finally get one. The most expensive Slacking is the holo rare found in EX Ruby and Sapphire, which sells for $20. Damn, that's kind of disappointing. But not quite as disappointing as Nincada, with the most expensive Nincada card being the reverse holo EX Deoxys stamped card for $10. At least the stamped Deoxys cards all sell for around the same amount though. Up next we have Ninjask, whose most expensive card is the stamped reverse holo from EX Deoxys. Although this one does sell for closer to $20. Shedinja actually has a pretty cool card as the most expensive. For the first time in this video, we have a card found within EX Dragon with the holo rare Shedinja that sells today for $40. I really like Whismur. I think it really is a great example of anxiety meets Pokemon. And the most expensive Whismur is actually kind of cool. This is the Imakudi's Whismur. All 3 of the Whismur line would get Imakudi cards, and these are kind of expensive, but they are really cool. These cards were handed out within volume 21 of the Pokemon Card Trainers magazine in Japan. This exclusive release has made Imakudi Imakune's Whisper quite expensive, costing $70. As I said though, Loudred and Exploud would also get Imakuni cards found within this promotional release, with the Loudred card selling today for $90. Okay, I feel a little bit bad. The most expensive Exploud is not actually the Imakune's Exploud EX card found within the Japanese Trainers magazine, but it is very expensive, costing $120. The most expensive Exploud is actually a National Championship staff card handed out at various competitive events back in 2005. This card doesn't sell that often, but when it does, expect it to sell for around $150. For Makuhita, we have our first Japanese card for the video, with the Japanese Makuhita found within Reviving Legends, or as we got it in English, Heart Gold Soul Silver Undaunted. This card sells today for around $30, which is weirdly more than the version we got in Undaunted. For the first time in this video, we have a card found within EX Deoxys that doesn't have a stamp on it. This is the Hariyama EX found within EX Deoxys, and this card sells today for around $60. It's back to EX Delta species for Azurill with the stamped reverse holo Azurill, which sells for $30. I really think Nosepass should have gotten its evolution within Hoenn. It kinda just sucks without Promo Pass in the mix. The most expensive Nosepass is the EX Deoxys stamped Nosepass card, which sells for $15. This Skitty card really confused me. This is the Craze Club Skitty. This card is really hard to find any information for because it was never really that well documented. Back in 2004 to 2006, there was a magazine circling around the UK by the name of Craze Club. This magazine was sold at various stores to kids and talked about anime, video games, and more. One of the volumes of this magazine gave out this Skitty card, which sells today for $75. Back to my favorite EX set, we have Delcatty EX found within EX Crystal Guardians. This card sells today for around $55. And for Sableye, we have the first but not last tag team of the video. I loved the tag team cards, and this may be one of the hidden gems within the roster of cards. The Mega Sableye and Tyranitar GX Alternate Art sells today for $370. Okay, we can speed through the next few once again. Marwa's most expensive card is the staff pre-release card received within Obsidian Flames, which sells for around $65. Aron's most expensive card is the reverse holo stamped card found within EX Legend Maker, which sells today for $15. This is also where the most expensive card for Lairon comes from, with the stamped reverse holo Lairon selling for $25. Which brings us to one of my favorite Pokemon, Aggron. Aggron actually has 3 cards that all sell for around the same price. First, we have the Mega Aggron EX found within X and Y Primal Clash. The full art version of this card sells for around $160. Then we have the Aggron EX found within Crystal Guardian, which sells for $150. And finally, there's the Aggron EX found within EX Sandstorm, which sells for $120. Really, any of these cards could be at the top on any given day, but it seems that normally the Aggron EX in Crystal Guardians is the most expensive. For Metatype, we have the Stellar Crown Illustration Rare, which sells for around $10 to $15. I love Metacham, but for the longest time, I thought it was a Generation 4 Pokemon. The most expensive Metacham card is the EX found within EX Emerald, which sells for around $70. For the record, anyone who is wondering, the prices for this video was taken from price charting and eBay recently sold. I mainly prioritize eBay recently sold now, but price charting and TCG Player are also used to check these prices. And from one EX Emerald card to another, we have the EX Emerald stamped reverse holo Electrike, which sells for around $20. For Manectric, we have the awesome EX found within EX Deoxys, which sells for $80. And for the first time in this video, we have a card found within EX Hidden Legends. This is the Plus All reverse holo found within this set. This card is adorable and has become pretty expensive, costing around $80. There is also a Players Club promo Plus All that sells for around the same at about $75 to $80, as well as a holo found in EX Dragon that sells for just below $70. So really, any of these 3 cards could be at the top spot on any given day. As for Minun, there are only 2 cards that are that close together. There's the EX Hidden Legends reverse holo Minun, which sells for up to $100, and finally the EX Dragon Minun, which sells for $90. For some reason, the Minun version of the Japanese Players Club promo doesn't really sell for as much. Volbeat's most expensive card is the reverse holo EX Emerald stamped Volbeat, which sells for $10. This is also the case for Illumise, with the EX Emerald stamped reverse selling for $20. For Roselia, we have the EX Legend Maker stamped reverse holo yet again, which sells for $15. Gulpin has a card that has come up a couple of times in previous videos, particularly ones where I talk about weird cards, with the Japanese Pokehyun collection Gulpin. This card would also appear within the Generations Radiant collection in English, but the Japanese version seems to be more expensive at $15. Which brings us to Swallow, who actually received a pre-release card back in 2004 to coincide with the release of Hidden Legends. This card sells today for $50. For Carvana, it's back to EX Deoxys with the stamped reverse holo selling for $15. This is actually really cool artwork. And that brings us to Sharpedo, where we have the Sharpedo EX found within EX Deoxys, which sells for as high as $150. Whalmer's most expensive card is the EX Legend Maker stamped Whalmer reverse holo, which sells for $25, which is a little bit more than some of the other stamped cards in this video. And now things get expensive again with Wailord. Recently, the tag team cards have been skyrocketing in price, and they really don't seem to be slowing down. People have finally started to realize these are some of the best designed Pokemon cards ever released, and the Magikarp and Wailord GX Tag Team Alternate Art is one of my favorites. Nowadays, this card sells for up to $2,000. Numor's most expensive card comes from one of my favorite sets of the Sword and Shield era, Pokemon Go. The most expensive Numor is the Pokemon Go Peelable Ditto card, which sells for $10. I love the 3D render Pokemon cards, especially cards designed by Ryo Ueda. These are some of my favorite Pokemon cards, and the Camera Up EX found within EX Emerald is one of the best, selling today for $90. I love Torkoal as well. This Pokemon really shouldn't be as popular as it is. This is one of the Pokemon out there that really blew up because of anime notability. The most expensive Torkoal is the Torkoal Holo found within EX Dragon, which sells for $50. As for Spoink, we have the EX Emerald stamped Reverse Holo, which sells for $15. And for Grumpig, we actually have a pre-released card that was handed out to coincide with the release of EX Emerald. This card sells today for $20, which is a great price for the, 2 Grumpig fans out there. Spinder is actually a pretty expensive stamped Reverse Holo with the EX Legend Maker stamp, which sells for $20. Wait, wow. For the first time in this video, we have a card found with an EX Holon Phantoms. I love the Holon Phantoms set and all the lore that the EX era introduced to the TCG. I feel like this really hasn't been a thing now since the EX era, with all the Delta species lore. And the Trapinch Reverse stamped card from Holon Phantoms is the most expensive at $20. We're currently jumping back and forth between some different sets for the first time in this video, as the most expensive Vibrava card is the stamped reverse found within Dragon Frontiers, which sells for $20. The most expensive Flygon card is actually really cool. This is the winner stamped Flygon, which was handed out to event winners of the Pokemon E-League back in 2003 to 2004 season. This was one of the EX era cards that still use the e-reader, and so has become a bit of a holy grail for fans. This card sells today for $170. As for Mega Flygon, I'm just gonna go cry for a bit. I'm surprised we've not had more Team Magma and Team Aqua cards throughout this video. These are some of my favorite cards from the EX era, and even some of the X and Y ones are cool too. The most expensive Cacnea is the Team Aqua's Cacnea pre-release card, which sells for $30. You know what? Cacturne doesn't get enough love. Countless Pokemon have tried and failed to capture the magic of Cacturne, most notably Maractus. That's not to say Maractus is bad, I just think Cacturne is better. The most expensive Cacturne card is the Cacturne EX from EX Emerald for $90. Way earlier in the video, we spoke about the Arceus sets and just how it randomly added shinies. Well, our second shiny from that set is here with the Swablu shiny, which sells today for $50. And the shiny trend continues with Altaria, who has a pretty obscure card as the most expensive. This is the Japanese Song Collection shiny Altaria card. I really struggled to find information on this card. All I could find out is that this card was found inside the Character Song Project Collection Volume 2, and is pretty rare nowadays. This card was released in 2016 and nowadays sells for $370. As for Zangoose, we have the EX Emerald stamped reverse, which sells for $30. And for Zangoose's rival, we have the Survivor Holo found within EX Sandstorm, which also sells for around $25 to $30. EX Sandstorm also contains the most expensive Lunatone card, with the Holo Lunatone that sells for $20, as well as the most expensive card for Solrock too, with the Holo Solrock from EX Sandstorm selling for again about $20. We have only 48 Pokemon remaining, and some of the cards coming up are going to be really cool. Starting with Barboach, whose most expensive card is the EX Deoxys stamped reverse for $10. As for Whiscash, we have the awesome card designed by Tomokazu Kamiya, which in a reverse holo sells for $25. For Corphish, it is back to Team Magma versus Team Aqua, with the reverse holo for Team Aqua's Corphish, which sells for $15. I've always loved Crawdon. Whenever I have the option of using it within any game, I always find a way to make it work in any game I can. And the Crawdon EX from Holon Phantoms is really cool and actually pretty cheap, selling only for $60 today. Baltoy's most expensive card is the reverse holo stamped version from EX Emerald, which sells for $10. Another set we haven't spoken about too much throughout this video is EX Power Keepers, where the most expensive Claydol can be found. The Claydol EX sells for $50. The most expensive Lileep card is the reverse holo found within Holon Phantoms for $10. I'm surprised Cradily only has 9 cards. I feel like the Generation 3 fossils kind of just fall behind every other fossil we have received. The most expensive Cradily is the Cradily EX found in Team Magma versus Team Aqua, which sells today for around $80 to $90. As for Anorith, once again we have a reverse holo found within EX Holon Phantoms, which sells for $10. And now for the moment of truth. Is Armaldo's most expensive card more expensive than Cradily? Well, the Armaldo EX from Legend Maker sells for $105. I always preferred Armaldo anyway. Feebas is very cheap compared to its evolution. However, compared to other stamped reverse holos throughout this video, the FEMAS EX Emerald stamp sells for around $30, which is quite high. I love Milotic, and as I'm sure most of you know, we have a running joke on this channel about my friend Dino and his Milotic card that he destroyed as a kid. The shiny Milotic is not the most expensive, but I just like to bring this up. The most expensive Milotic is actually the Milotic EX found within EX Emerald, which sells for $330. Castform has a lot of forms, and thankfully all 4 of them from EX Delta species sell for the same money. We have the Sunny, Snowcloud, and Rain cast forms, with each selling for $20 in their stamped forms. As for base cast form, we have the Holland's cast form, which sells for $30 in a reverse holo. Now, Kecleon is where things get kinda confusing. There is a card out there that is honestly kinda priceless, the Art Academy Kecleon. This card is priced on price charting for $6,000. However, it very rarely ever comes to market because it was exclusively found in France, and it was only ever given to one person. This card could, in theory, sell for up to $20,000. It's just so hard to find an accurate price for it. Okay, let's speed through the next few, starting with Shuppet. The reverse holo for Shuppet from EX Dragon sells for $15. As for Bayonet, we have the EX found within Legend Maker. This card sells for up to $140. I had no idea Duskull received a shiny within Stormfront. Diamond and Pearl was a weird time for these shiny cards. The shiny Duskull sells today for $120. I love how Dusclops has an EX card. There are quite a few Pokemon from the first few generations that would receive special cards and then eventually get an evolution in a later generation. This has led to some really obscure and weird cards, like the Dusclops EX from Emerald, which sells for $100. To celebrate the release of Rising Rivals, Tropius would get a Staff pre-release card, which sells today for $85. Some of the Pop Series cards have become insanely expensive, particularly from the middle sets of Pop Series. Some cards are cheap and some are expensive, and the Chimecho is definitely expensive, costing at most $800 to purchase today. Ouch. And the expensive cards are on a roll now. The most expensive Absol is the Battle Festa EX Absol. This card was handed out at various Pokemon sanctioned TCG competitive events in 2014 as part of their Battle Festa event, and nowadays this stamped card sells for $240. But we end the expensive cards with Wynaut. The most expensive Wynaut is the stamped Legend Maker card, which sells for $25. And with Snowrun, it is back to the Japanese Radiant collection or the Pokekyun collection, with this Snowrun that sells today for $15. For the first time in this video, we have a Mega Pokemon as the definitive most expensive card, with the Mega Glalie EX Full Art found within Breakthrough. The Full Art version of this card sells for $45. And now it's time for everyone's favorite ball of ice, Spheal, whose most expensive card is the reverse holo found in Team Magma versus Team Aqua, which sells for $30. This is also the case for Celio, with the reverse holo selling for $20. And we can end out the original Seal, or are they walruses, line up with Walrein. The most expensive Walrein card is actually the EX Legend Maker Holo EX, which sells for around $70. It is back to Hidden Legends for the most expensive Clamperl, with the reverse holo from within this set selling for around $5 to $10. The cheapest cards so far in the video. We have 4 Pokemon to speed through before we hit some of the best Pokemon cards ever made, starting with Huntail, whose most expensive card is the stamped reverse from Legend Maker for $20. The most expensive Gorbis is the Hidden Legends stamped reverse holo, which also sells for around $20. And then we have the shiny Relicanth found within Supreme Victors, which is honestly a really weird Pokemon to give a shiny card to. This card sells today for $40 to $50. And we can end out the last card before we see some amazing cards with Loftus, whose most expensive card is the stamped reverse from EX Emerald for $15. Bagon's most expensive card is a pretty big one. This is the Bagon Gen Con Black Star promo. This is a stamped card that was given out at Gen Con in August 2004. Gen Con was a convention that specialized in all things tabletop games, and even to this day they're still hugely popular. This was the first year that Pokemon attended the event without Wizards of the Coast, and so they felt it was only fitting to bring a promotional card with them, with this Bagon costing around $130 today. As for Shelgon, we have a Staff promotional card, found at various regional tournaments back in 2012. This card is actually not that expensive to get if you enjoy collecting the promotional competitive cards, as the card sells for around $65. Salamence has appeared in some of the most expensive sets in history: EX Deoxys, Dragon Volt, Power Keepers, and many more. Salamence has gotten a lot of cards and all of them can be quite expensive. However, they really don't break the bank. The most expensive Salamence I could find though was the Salamence EX found within Dragon Frontiers at $110. Now on a surface level, this Beldum does not seem like it should be cheap. It is a winner card after all. This card was handed out at way too many events though. The card was given out at various tournaments starting from June 14th, 2004, where winners would receive this card. The price of it is a little bit hard to find, but it seems to sell for around $30 to $35, which is insanely low. As for Metang, we once again have a competitive release card, except this one is a bit different. This is the Stadium Challenge Metang card, a card that was exclusively given out at 3 separate events: the South Stadium Challenge in Arlington, Texas, the East Coast Stadium Challenge in Rockville, Maryland, and finally the West Coast Stadium Challenge Challenge in Berkeley, California, with all of these events taking place in July of 2014. This card would be distributed to participants of the event, and it is estimated about 350 to 400 exist. This card is pretty expensive, costing up to $300. Which brings us back to my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon, Metagross. Do I have to spend any time on this one? The most expensive Metagross card is the Gold Star Metagross, which sells for anything up to $1,800. And so we begin a trend of Gold Star cards. These cards are insanely expensive and are some of the most sought after cards in the world nowadays. Starting with the Gold Star Regirock, which sells today for as high as $1,100. Then of course we have the Regice Gold Star, which sells for up to $1,550. And we can end out the Regi trio with Registeel, my personal favorite of the Regis. The Gold Star Registeel sells today for up to $1,300. And this Gold Star trend continues with Latias, whose most expensive card is the Gold Star version, which sells for anything up to $4,000. Surprisingly though, the most expensive Latios card is not the Gold Star version. No, technically the most expensive Latios card is the Latias and Latios GX Alternate Art Tag Team card. This card sells for $3,500 compared to only $2,000 for the Gold Star Latios. I really don't get why people prefer Latias so much. Now, Kyogre is where things get a little bit confusing. There's a Kyogre card out there that is the most expensive, with the Art Academy contest winner Primal Kyogre EX. This card is really rare, mainly because of how it was distributed. Back in 2014, Pokemon held their Art Academy contest. Designers and illustrators from around the world could draw or design cards for the chance to have an actual Pokemon card created. The problem is the person who illustrated this Kyogre never really gave any out or sold any of these copies. This card is the most expensive Kyogre out there, but has never sold ungraded, so a price for it is unknown. Outside of this card, the most expensive Kyogre is the Gold Star card, which sells for up to $1,750. I have a question for all of you. Who do you prefer, Kyogre or Groudon? I always prefer Groudon, but I still love both. The most expensive Groudon card is the Gold Star Groudon, which sells for up to $2,600. Which brings us to Rayquaza, and of course it is the shiny Gold Star Rayquaza at the top. This card is awesome and honestly one of the best Gold Star cards out there, selling for up to $9,000. Jirachi's most expensive card also has a pretty long story behind it. This is the Premium Champion Pack Jirachi Japanese promo. This card was given out as a reward to those who took part in the Pokemon Card Gym tournaments between May and July of 2015 in Japan. This print of the card featured the Pokemon Card Gym logo on it too. This card would be reprinted alongside the Premium Champion Pack booster box at participating Pokemon Card Gym venues and Pokemon centers. This card would set you back around $250 today. And that brings us to Deoxys. We've gone through a lot of cards in Hoenn. Sinnoh is just on the horizon, so if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and make sure to turn on notifications for when the Sinnoh video finally drops. Deoxys was actually really hard to pinpoint the most expensive card for. There is one card that we will come back to that has only had one sale in recent years. I would say this is somewhat unreliable, and as such I'll talk about the second card first, which is the Sky Splitting Lenticular Deoxys card. I spoke about this card in my weirdest card arts video, where a viewer said that Deoxys changes form based on how you look at the card, which is really cool. This card would cost you $250 today. However, the most expensive I could find was the Stadium Challenge Deoxys. This card was handed out at the Stadium Challenge event in Salzburg, Austria back in 2005 to winners of the event. This card sold recently for $7,000, which is insane. If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe and I'll check you guys later. Bye bye. Kanto, Johto and Hoenn are done and dusted, so for this video we are heading back to Sinnoh to talk about the most expensive card for every Sinnoh Pokemon, starting with Turtwig. I've made some pretty controversial statements in the past revolving around the Sinnoh starters, and I'm gonna say it. The Turtwig and Chimchar lines carry this generation hard. The most expensive Turtwig card is the Japanese promotional Turtwig that can be found in the Regigigas Level X collection pack. This Turtwig sells today for $25. I know I have said this for every video now, but I do think Sinnoh is going to have a lot of variety throughout the video. This is the first set without Neo, original series, the EX era, and Grottle is a perfect example of this diversity, as the most expensive Grottle is the Grottle art rare found within Temporal Forces. This card has become pretty expensive, selling for about $15. And we can end the Torterra lineup with the Level X Torterra found within Diamond and Pearl base, which sells today for $25. If you guys do enjoy this video, please make sure to subscribe. We are very quickly approaching the 5k subscribers mark, and I would love to hit that in the new year. Chimchar has a much more interesting card though. This is the Fan Club Promotional Chimchar card. This card was handed out to members of the Pokemon Players Club in Japan at a time when the TCG wasn't doing so well. Fans had become a bit disillusioned with Pokemon come Diamond and Pearl due to how complex the TCG became with Level X cards, and so these cards are really hard to find. This club would eventually become the much more well-known Pokemon Daisuki Club. The card costs 2000 XP to get, and despite all of this, the card is not actually that expensive today, costing around $30. Monferno's most expensive card is really boring. It is the reverse holo found within Diamond and Pearl Majestic Dawn for $4. Does anyone else remember how sick the anime made Infernape's Blaze ability? This dude would hit low HP and suddenly could take on behemoths like Electivire and more. Infernape was such a badass in these shows, and it's no surprise that as a result it became incredibly popular with fans. The most expensive Infernape card out there came from the 2009 Platinum Rising Rival set, with the Level X Elite 4 Infernape card. This card is actually not that unreasonable to buy if you want to collect some Infernape cards, costing around $200, which is a lot, but it's actually not bad. The tag team cards were super cool. Combining two fan favorite Pokemon into one card was such a clever idea from the TCG creators. I have no idea why they decided to abandon these cards as they headed into Generation 8. Maybe it was just to simplify the meta, or maybe they had no more good ideas. Thankfully, we have cards like the Blastoise and Piplup tag team alternate art from Cosmic Eclipse to remember this era of Pokemon, with this card selling for around $500 at the moment. If you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to check out my Discord down below to get some sneak peeks on some interesting videos I have coming up. Prinplup probably has the most boring card yet. It isn't a Cosmos Holo, not a unique art rare. No, Prinplup's most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Dark Explorers for $4. Empoleon is probably the weakest of the Generation 4 starters, and yet it has the most expensive card. I don't think it's too controversial to say that, because Empoleon is still pretty cool. Every starter from Gen 4 backwards doesn't really miss, but Empoleon compared to Torterra and Infernape just isn't the same hype level for me, with the most expensive Empoleon being the Plasma Freeze Shiny Secret Rare at about $270. With Scarly, we are heading forward to the Scarlet and Violet era with the Starly art rare found there. This card is honestly adorable and I love it so much. Today this card sells for $5. And this entire line does actually have quite a diverse lineup of cards, as the most expensive Staravia card is for the first time in this series out of a Pop Series set, with the Staravia found in Pop Series 6, which sells for $10. Which brings us to Staraptor, where we are heading to Supreme Victors. There are so many cards for the Diamond and Pearl Pokemon, and so we're going to be going through a lot of sets today, but I imagine most of them will be found within the Diamond and Pearl and Platinum era. The most expensive Staraptor is found in Supreme Victors and sells for $20. And then we have the ace, the god of Pokemon himself, Bidoof. No, I am not joking. Bidoof is such a fan favorite Pokemon just because of how stupid it looks, how cute it looks, and how cool of a design it is. The most expensive Bidoof is the special delivery Bidoof card, which was included in orders of the Pokemon Center over in North America. In order to get this card, you had to apply for it via email and then make any purchase of $20 or more on the Pokemon Center website to get this card. The card is only 5 years old and already is selling for up to $600. And we can continue the trend of weird cards with the Pokemon Rumble B-Barrel card. To celebrate the release of Pokemon Rumble, Pokemon decided that they would release a Pokemon Rumble TCG set. And this set is actually the only B-Barrel card ever to feature a female B-Barrel. Kind of interesting, a commenter told me that recently. This is one of my favorite Pokemon sets ever released, and the B-Barrel card sells for $60. Kricketer is disappointing, with the reverse holo from Supreme Victors selling for $5. But hey, that's more than Monferno and Prinplup. Thankfully though, Kricketune is a bit more interesting, as we have the Trainer Gallery card for Kricketune. Kricketune was actually one of my favorite Pokemon within Legends Arceus, just because of that first alpha fight. There are so many other Pokemon that they could have given this honor to, but Kricketune was such a good idea. This Kricketune card sells today for $4, which is such a cool price for a beautiful card. And for Shinx, we have the first shiny for the video. Shinx was a very fun Pokemon in the Sinnoh games, and Luxray is part of the Core 6 team that everyone used in these games. The whole Shinx line is awesome, and of course the shiny found in Platinum Arceus is the most expensive, selling today for $80. And the trend of expensive cards for this line continues, as up next we have the Staff pre-release Luxio, which was given out to coincide with Diamond and Pearl's release. This card sells today for $110. So we end the Shinx line with Luxray, who absolutely should have been a Dark and Electric type. We got robbed. The most expensive Luxray card is the Staff Luxray card handed out at various national championships back in the 2007 to 2008 season. This card has become the holy grail for Luxray collectors and sells for $180. This is also around the same price as the Luxray Level X card found in Rising Rivals. The most expensive card so far is up next, and boy is it a big one. I think when Pokemon designed the Bidoof card found in Prismatic Evolutions, they were just glad to be bringing Bidoof back to the TCG. It had been years since we had received a Bidoof card and fans were longing for one. However, upon this card's release, people realized it was insanely playable. It required no energy to use Itchy Pollen, and you could disrupt your opponent while they set up their hand, blocking them from using item cards. This card was really storming the competitive side of the TCG for a while, and so during the Premier Ball League of the 2025 to 26 season, they decided to release a stamped Bidoof card, which is handed out to winners of the Asia Championship Series or for the Premier Ball League. This card has become quite expensive today, selling for, on average, between $900 to $1,400, which is insane for Badoo. For Rose Raid, we are heading over to Dragons Exalted with the regular rare Rose Raid. This card has become bizarrely expensive, selling for close to $30. This isn't a holo, an art rare, or anything. If you know why it's so expensive, can you let me know down below? Let's speed through some of the next cards because otherwise this video is going to end up being 4 hours long. Up first, we have Cranidos, whose most expensive card is this Diamond and Pearl promo, which sells for $7. Then we have Rampardos, which is super disappointing. Rampardos should have way better cards than it does, and the most expensive is the Rampardos found within Platinum base for $10. For Shieldon, we have the Japanese 11th movie commemoration promo, which is a pretty cool card and is not that expensive to grab if you like fossil Pokemon. This Shieldon sells for $7. And with Bastiodon, it is back to Pokemon Rumble with the Rumble Bastiodon, which sells today for up to $60. Bastiodon is the most fun Pokemon name to say. I was going to talk about all 3 forms of Burmy, but honestly they're all insanely mid, so I'm just going to talk about the most expensive one, which is the Reverse Holo found in Platinum Arceus for $5. Wormadam is actually kind of cool, with the Sandcloak Wormadam found within Pop Series 7. I do like Wormadam, but it's just not very good to use. Pop Series 7 was not a good set, and the Wormadam really doesn't stand out amongst any of the other mid cards found within. This card sells today for $7. As for Mothim though, things get more expensive with a staff pre-release card for Majestic Dawn. This card sells today for up to $60. Majestic Dawn would also give us the most expensive combi card with this reverse holo that sells for $4. Somehow this combi is more expensive than the most expensive Vespiquen, which is the Stormfront reverse holo, which sells for $3. No wonder Vespiquen got EXs in Obsidian Flames. One day I'm going to make a video about every Pika clone's most expensive card, but for now let's talk about Pachirisu, whose most expensive card is the art rare found within Scarlet and Violet base set, which sells for $10. Now, technically, there is a promotional Pachirisu out there that is worth more with the Rumble Pachirisu. However, I avoid prices for graded cards on this channel, and the Rumble Pachirisu was never sold ungraded. If you want to learn the price for that one though, check out my Rumble video when you're done with this one. As for Buizel, we have got the Buizel Diamond and Pearl Black Star promo. This card was found exclusively within the Diamond and Pearl Value Pack 2, which contained 4 packs, which is definitely not value nowadays. This promo sells for about $6. I always really liked Buizel and Floatzel. Seeing Ash's Buizel in the anime was so cool to me, and when I finally used one in Diamond, I fell in love with Floatzel. This is one of my favorite Gen 4 Pokemon, and the most expensive Floatzel is the Gym Leader Level X from Rising Rivals, which sells for $30. For Cherubi, it is back to Platinum Arceus, where we have the Reverse Holo, which sells for $7. Of all the Pokemon to give Pokemon Rumble cards to, Cherim was nowhere near my list. The Pokemon Rumble cards have become incredibly expensive in the last couple of years. However, the Cherim still is pretty cheap, costing around $30. And for Shellos, we have a really interesting card, the San Diego Comic-Con Shellos. For some reason, during the Diamond and Pearl era, and only the Diamond and Pearl era, Pokemon would start to hand out promotional cards at San Diego Comic-Con. There are a couple of Pokemon on the list today that would receive these cards, and nowadays this Shellos sells for up to $80. Unfortunately though, for Gastrodon, we didn't get quite as lucky. The most expensive Gastrodon is the holo found within Secret Wonders, which sells for $15. I have said in multiple videos recently, I'm not a huge fan of the cards that just put Ken Sugimori's artwork into the card. They feel a little bit lazy and like a last minute addition to the set. The most expensive Ambipom is the reverse holo found in Majestic Dawn, which sells for $5. Ambipom deserves better than this. Pokemon need to decide where its priorities lie. Funny monkey Pokemon with Ambipom, or balloon that kidnaps children. Next, we are talking about Drifloon, whose most expensive card is the shiny reverse holo in Diamond and Pearl Stormfront for up to $60. Once again, unfortunately, the evolved form of Drifloon does not get quite so lucky. The most expensive Drifblim card is the Diamond and Pearl promotional release, which can be found in the Stormfront 2-pack blisters. This card sells today for $8. For Baneri, much like Shieldon from earlier, we have the movie commemoration Baneri. This card was part of a pack given out in Japan to celebrate the release of Arceus and the Jewel of Life. This card is a bit hard to find the price for today, but it seems to sell for around $10, give or take. As for Lopunny, we are jumping ahead all the way to Sun and Moon with the Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff GX tag team found within Cosmic Eclipse. This card is adorable and of course very expensive, with it selling today for $220. And then we have Miss Magius, whose most expensive card is the Fantina's Gym Leader Level X. This card is super cool and sells today for only around $35. For Honchkrow, I just want to say I am so disappointed that the most expensive card is not the Honchkrow V found in Brilliant Stars. I feel like this card absolutely should be the most expensive. Thankfully, the actual most expensive card is still kind of cool with the Level X Honchkrow found in Secret Wonders, which sells for $20. For Glameow, we have yet another promotional release with the Glameow promo found as part of the Majestic Dawn 3-pack blisters. This card is not that expensive, selling for like $5. I'm surprised Perugly never got a Level X card given how insane insanely powerful it is in the Diamond and Pearl games. For most Nuzlockes out there, Perugly has become the run killer, and the most expensive card is literally just the Reverse Holo and Platinum base set for $4. In our least Pokemon card video, the real standout was Chingling. This dude went years without getting a Pokemon card outside of Sinnoh, and only with the release of Destined Rivals did he finally get a 4th card. The most expensive Chingling card is actually the Chingling handed out in the 2008 Countdown Calendar, which was essentially the same as the winter calendars we get today. This version of Chingling has a little gold snowflake in the bottom corner, and nowadays this card sells for around $25. And for the second time in this series, we have a card found in Countdown Calendar, with the gold snowflake stamped Stunky card. These are the only 2 cards that are ever going to appear in this series with that snowflake, and they just happen to be right next to each other. This card sells today for up to $35, which is kind of insane. And yet again, within this video, we are heading back to Pokemon Rumble for Skuntank, with the Rumble stamped Skuntank selling for $60. Which brings us to Bronzor, whose most expensive card is a little hard to find. There are 2 cards that sell for basically the exact same amount, with the Reverse Holo in Stormfront and the art rare found within Temporal Forces. Both of these cards sell for about $6, so it was near impossible to find the most expensive. For Bronzong, we have a card found within the X and Y era, with the XY Phantom Forces stamped staff pre-release for Bronzong, which sells today for around $30. So next we have Bonsly, who once again has a pretty horrendous amount of cards within the TCG. Bonsly has only ever received 4 cards, so finding the most expensive Bonsly is pretty easy. It's the Reverse Holo found within Diamond and Pearl base, which is selling at the moment for around $150. Apparently this is a result of a YouTuber who plays the harp and loves collecting these cards, which makes me wonder if I should not share my favorite cards with you guys. Mime Jr. is even more disappointing than this though, as its most expensive card is a regular promo card. This Mime Jr. was handed out in the Majestic Dawn free pack blisters and sells today for $15. There are actually 2 more Mime Jr. cards around the same price. The Rota's Mime Jr. as well as the Japanese alternative to the first card. Both of these cards also sell for around $15, so there's 3 around there. It took both Johto and Sinnoh for Chansey to get a full evolution line, and boy did it need it. Happiny was my little sister's favorite Pokemon growing up. Whenever we took family holidays, I would take my Pokemon toys with me, and it was the only one she would play with. One day I'm gonna get my sister this card, as the most expensive Happiny is the Mysterious Treasures Diamond and Pearl stamped Happiny card, which sells today for like $15. I'm surprised that Chatot has never had a more popular card. This is one of very few Pokemon to really have a big gimmick behind them with the Chatot attack. The most expensive Chatot is the Chatot art rare found within Temporal Forces, which sells for as high as $10. Thankfully though, recently Spiritomb has been getting a bit more love, because prior to the release of Cynthia's Spiritomb within Mega Dream EX, the cards were kind of a letdown. However, at the moment, the most expensive Spiritomb card is the Spiritomb Holo found in Legends Awaken, which sells for $10. For Gible through to Garchomp, we have 3 cards that are part of a set, starting with Gible, whose most expensive card is the 2009 to 2010 Staff Championship card. These cards are really cool, and the Gible sells today for $40. Recently, I have tried using multiple platforms to find the most accurate price, and I really struggled with Goodbye. But on eBay, this card sells for $110, on Price Charting it's $100, on TCG Player it's $80, and this is the real challenge I face when it comes to pricing cards. It really does depend on which site you prefer to buy your cards from. Either way, this is the most expensive Goodbye card I could find, and let's call it $100. Garchomp has been a staple of competitive Pokemon for a long time. Seriously, this dude was good in the VGC for years, and also had some spells within the TCG as well. It seems that wherever Cynthia's Ace goes, it crushes everyone. And the most expensive Garchomp card to go along with this legacy is the Garchomp Cynthia Staff card. This card was handed out at competitive events during the tail end of Diamond and Pearl. The card doesn't have that many sales though, so determining a price for it is much harder, although one did sell recently for $550. This is the Pokepark Munchlax card. There were 2 versions of these cards ever released. The first one was the Pokepark Forest Premium file for Munchlax, illustrated by Kanako Ayo. This card was found across the Pokeplanet and could be grabbed pretty easily. However, there was a different version of this card as well that is more expensive. This is the alternate art version of the original Pokemon Park Premium file, although only no one knows the artist for this card, and even to this day they remain unnamed. This card was given out to people who wrote the Pichu Brothers Rascal Railway at the Pokepark in March of 2005. This card recently sold for $420. Earlier in this video we spoke about the San Diego Comic-Con Shellos, and now we have yet another San Diego Comic-Con card for Riolu. This card is super cool and sells today for $110. For Lucario, we have a card that I have really struggled in the past to figure out why it is so expensive. We have this Japanese Rainbow Rare Lucario V-Star, and I finally figured out the really complex story behind this card. On September 23rd, 2022, Pokemon ran an invite-only Lucario competition with 8 celebrities in Japan. The tournament was live streamed on YouTube, and people would be able to guess which celebrity would win the championship. Entrants had to follow the Twitter accounts involved, and if you got the correct celebrity, you would be entered entered into a lottery for a chance to win one of 2,000 Rainbow Rare Lucario V-Star cards, which sells today for $1,500. I think it's really hard to find a price for these ones. But it is back to some pretty disappointing cards, with the most expensive Hippopotas card, which is the reverse holo from Rising Rivals, which sells for $2. Rising Rivals would also give us the most expensive Hippowdon card with the Level X Hippowdon, which sells for $30. For Scorpy, we once again have the reverse holo found in Stormfront, which sells for $4. And we're back to Japanese cards with the most expensive card for Drapion, which is this promotional card. While in the West we would get this card as part of Platinum, in Japan this was available within the Intense Fight and the Destroyed Sky visual book in August of 2008, or as this set is otherwise known, Stormfront in the West. Nowadays this card sells for $30. For Krogunk we have a bit of a predicament. Much like Pachirisu earlier, the most expensive Krogunk card is once again the Pokemon Rumble promo that was exclusive to Japan. But this card has never sold ungraded, so I can't talk about it in this video. Most expensive Krogunk after this one is the Japanese movie commemoration Krogunk for $10. I love the Krogunk and Toxicroak line. Toxicroak is one of my favorite fighting type Pokemon, and it's just super cool. The most expensive card Toxicroak has is the Galactic Toxicroak promo. This card was found inserted in the Platinum Player's Guide to coincide with the release of Rising Rivals. This card sells today for up to $40. As for Carnivine, we have the Galactic Carnivine. This card is a little underwhelming and sells today for $4. With Finneon, things start to get weird. You would not expect Finneon to have a stupidly expensive card at the top. However, with Finneon, we have the Staff pre-release card for Lost Origin. This card has become quite expensive like most of the 2020's Staff pre-releases, and sells today for $70. As for Luminion, we have our first Chinese card for the video. For some reason, the Chinese version of the alternate art for Luminion V is incredibly expensive, selling for anything up to $70. I have no idea why this one is so expensive. For Mantike, we actually have a pretty cool card as the most expensive. Mantike hasn't received very many cards, so finding the most expensive is easy. The most expensive of all of these is the Samiya's Mantike Meiji promo. This card was an alternate version of Samiya's Mantike that was handed out in collaboration with the Japanese Meiji chocolate brand back in June of 2006. This card sells today for up to $55. As for Snova, we have the newest card yet of the video with the art rare for Snova found in Mega Evolution. This card sells today for $3. This is also conveniently where the most expensive Abomasnow comes from, with the Mega Abomasnow EX full art. This new full art design for the Megas is just so cool, I really like it. This card is one of my favorite Mega cards in Mega Evolution and sells for $4. Interestingly enough, Sneasel has a more expensive card at the top than Weavile. We're in the point in the video now where most of the Pokemon coming up are new evolutions for older Pokemon, and the most expensive Weavile is the Trainer Gallery Weavile from Cosmic Eclipse for $10. Magnezone has actually received a lot of really cool cards throughout its history in the TCG. Cards like the Magnezone EX from Flashfire or the Prime card from Triumphant. However, the most expensive card for Magnezone is the Staff pre-release for Astral Radiance, which sells for $80. Now, I'm not saying I am a huge Licky fan, but for a new evolution for a Gen 1 Pokemon, Pokemon should have a much better card than a holo for Licky. The most expensive card Licky has is the holo found within Secret Wonders, which sells for $10. Gosh, these next three are some of my favorite Pokemon from Generation 4, starting with Rhyperior, whose most expensive card is the Level X card found within Legends Awakened that sells for $15. As for Tangrowth, once again we have a Level X card with the Level X Tangrowth found in Platinum Arceus. This card sells today again for $15. And now my favorite Generation 4 Pokemon, Electivire. I love Electivire so much. This was my first shiny Pokemon that I got through a Wonder Trade in X and Y on a cartridge that has been lost to time. One day I'll make the effort to get another shiny Electivire. The most expensive Electivire card is the Heart Gold Soul Silver Triumphant Staff pre-release card, which sells today for up to $100. Unfortunately for Electivire's adopted sibling, Magmar is a little bit more underwhelming, with its most expensive card being the Magmortar found in the Japanese Dragon Blade set. The reason this card is so expensive is because in the West we would actually get a different version of the artwork for this card, because the Japanese version was seen as too violent because it looks like they're pointing their cannon at you. This card sells today for $40. We're on a bit of a roll for expensive cards, as up next we have got the Togekiss, whose most expensive card is the Obsidian Flame Staff pre-release, which sells for $40. I thought the run of expensive Pokemon would be dead with Yanmega, but I was pleasantly surprised this was not the case. The most expensive Yanmega card is the Staff pre-release for X and Y Steam Siege, which sells today for up to $50. And of course, the run continues with Leafeon, whose most expensive card is the Leafeon Level X found in Majestic Dawn, which sells for up to $850. Conveniently, this is also where the most expensive card for Glaceon comes from, with the Level X Glaceon, selling for up to $620. Another favorite Pokemon of mine from Generation 4 is Gliscor. This Pokemon is just so cool. I think I remember Ash's one in the anime fighting against Byron, and it just being such a sick battle. The most expensive Gliscor is the Level X found in Legends Awakened for $40. I am surprised that Mamoswine does not have a more popular Pokemon card. I feel like Mamoswine deserved at least a Level X back in the day, and they really missed an opportunity. The most expensive Mamoswine is the Legends Awakened Holo for $8. Thankfully though, things won't stay cheap for long, as up next we have Porygon Z, whose most expensive card is the Level X found within Majestic Dawn that sells for up to $70. And for Gallade, we have our second Mega Pokemon for the video with the Mega Gallade EX full art card found within X and Y Roaring Skies. This card sells today for up to $60. Unfortunately, there were just too many new evolutions within Diamond and Pearl for all of them to get Level X cards or Prime cards or whatever. And Probopass was definitely at the bottom of the barrel when it came to getting new cards. The most expensive card for Probopass is the Holo from Legends Awakened for $4. Dusknoir would get a lot of love from fans upon its release. Dusclops was an amazing Pokemon, and it would be hard for any evolution to live up to the name. But Dusknoir did a great job. The most expensive Dusknoir is the Plasma Blast Secret Rare Shiny, which sells for up to $120. Frostlass's most expensive card at the moment is the Mega Frostlass Full Art found in the new Japanese Mega Dream set. However, this is going to go down pretty soon, so I'm going to talk about the most expensive card that has been out for a little while at this point, with the Gold Frostlass found within Evolving Skies. This shiny Frostlass sells for up to $15. Way earlier in this video, we spoke about the Badoo card that featured the Premier Ball League stamp, but once again we have a stamped card with the Premier Ball League Judge Fan Rotom card. This card was handed out to judges at the Premier Ball League event in Asia, and nowadays this card sells for up to $1,200. We are nearing the endgame now with only legendaries and mythicals left, starting with Uxie. Uxie's most expensive card is the Level X found within Legends Awakened, which was a really playable card. This card sells today for $70. As for Mesprit, it is also the Level X version found within Legends Awakened, which will cost you $40. And with Azelf, we go 3 for 3 with the most expensive card also coming from Legends Awakened with the Azelf Level X, which sells for $50. Dialga and Palkia are going to get mashed together here, as the most expensive card for both of these Pokemon is the Arceus Dialga and Palkia GX Alternate Art Tag Team found within Cosmic Eclipse. This card would set you back $500 today. We've had a couple of staff cards throughout this video, however this one is way different. Staff cards are given out to volunteers at Pokemon sanctioned events like pre-releases. However, way before pre-releases were a thing, we would get staff cards handed out at regional competitions, such as the Heatran that was given out at various regional championships throughout 2008 and 2009 season. This Heatran would cost you $110. I love the concept that the Titans have some overpowering force above them. Regice, Regirock, and Registeel were fine, but introducing a force that keeps them all in check was a really cool addition to the lore. And Regigigas has had some really expensive cards, with the most expensive being the Regigigas EX Full Art found within Next Destinies for $70. I got Giratina insanely wrong in my most expensive for every legendary video, so it's time to set things right. The most expensive Giratina is the Japanese promo for Giratina EX. This card was handed out back in 2012 to Pokemon shoppers who purchased 4 Black and White Dragons Exalted products at participating stores. People who did this could enter a draw for the chance to win this Giratina card that sells today for up to $1,500. For some weird reason though, Cresselia is considered a legendary where Darkrai is considered a mythical. This just makes no sense to me. The most expensive Cresselia card is the Darkrai and Cresselia Legend card, specifically the top half, which would cost you $120. The bottom half does tend to sell for around the same amount though. People really don't seem to care about Fione, despite being a Generation 4 mythical, sort of. I think the whole thing about Fione not evolving into Manaphy just kind of confuses a lot of people. The Fione cards are all under $10, except for one, which is the Cosmic Eclipse Staff card, which sells for around $11. I have no idea why people don't like this Fione card more. It's just way too cheap. I wish that I could say things get better for Manaphy, but they really don't. Manaphy has had a movie, various art rare cards, and a lot of promos in exclusive and expensive boxes. However, despite all of that, Manaphy's most expensive card is the full art version of Manaphy EX, found within the Japanese Rage of the Broken Heaven set, which we call Breakpoint. Why is the Japanese name so much better? This card would cost you only $40 to get today. I feel like a lot of people tend to forget that Darkrai is a mythical Pokemon. Its counterpart, of course, Cresselia, isn't a mythical, and so it kind of makes sense that Darkrai would be a legendary too, right? Sort of. Darkrai has had a lot of cards, even a tag team with Umbreon, which I was really surprised to not see at the top of this list. Instead, the most expensive Darkrai card is the Darkrai EX card found within Black and White Dark Explorers for around $400. This card we have for Shaman is honestly kind of insane. Generally, a Pokemon card that is released in both the West and Japan will tend to be similar or close enough in price, such as the Shaman EX from Roaring Skies, which costs $190 in English, but then around $320 in Japanese. However, the most expensive Shaman card is this version of Shaman EX that would cost cost you $50 for the English version or $650 for the Japanese version. The Japanese version is so much more expensive because it could be found within the Pokekyun premium set in Japan, which was incredibly rare. The set contained packs, sleeves, deck boxes, stickers, and more, and has become a pretty expensive sealed product now, costing anywhere up to $9,000. You would think that a Gen 4 Arceus card would be the most expensive, right? Well, you would be completely wrong. Before I reveal the most expensive Arceus card, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and let me know your favorite Gen 4 card from the video down below. The most expensive card that Arceus has is the Arceus Dialga and Palkia GX Tag Team card from Cosmic Eclipse for $500. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. We have spoken about the most expensive Pokemon card for every region, but now it's time to talk about the biggest region of Pokemon ever, the Unova region. We have a lot of Pokemon to cover, so get ready. Starting with Victini, one of the best mythical Pokemon ever created. I'm currently starting the script for this video, and I know we're going to have a lot of Black Bolt and White Flare throughout this video, but I also think there are some Pokemon with cards that might surprise us all. Now, you may think that the recently released Red Victini is the most expensive Victini card. However, this card is still $1,000 short of the actual most expensive card, the Victini EX Chinese promotional card. If you want to learn more about this video, I don't really have time to go into it here, so check out my country exclusive Pokemon card video at a later date. Basically, the Chinese version of this Victini card was given out at an event in Hong Kong, and it would cost you anything up to $2,500 to get today, which is kind of insane. But let's get into the meat of the set with Snivy. The Snivy line has recently been getting a lot of love within the TCG. It's appeared within Black Bolt and White Flare, it appeared within Silver Tempest, and of course it appeared within Cosmic Eclipse, getting the luxury of a tag team card with the Gen 1 starter Venusaur. This is a huge deal, and so Snivy's most expensive card is the alternate art promo for Venusaur and Snivy GX, which sells today for up to $70. As for Servine, it finally begins as we have our first card found within Black Bolt, with the Servine art rep. Now, to be fair, compared to other sets that have appeared frequently throughout this series, Black Bolt and White Flare is really cool, and this Servine card is too. Nowadays, this card sells for up to $12. If not for Servine, we might have had a full line of Pokemon without a Black Bolt card as the most expensive, since Superior's most expensive card is also not from Black Bolt. Instead, you can find the most expensive Superior card within Black and White Dragons Exalted, where we have the shiny secret rare Superior, which sells today for $150. With Tepig, things get pretty interesting as we have to talk about a Jumbo card, with the nameless Tepig Jumbo card. This card was released as part of the terrific Tepig box in September of 2011. However, in recent years, this has become surprisingly rare, as it barely ever sells raw. This card can sell for up to $35. For Pignite, we are heading back to White Flare with the art rare Pignite found within. This card is actually really beautiful and sells today for up to $10. And much like Superior from earlier, for Emboar's most expensive card, we are heading to the secret rares found within Black and White Next Destinies, with the shiny version of Emboar, which sells today for up to $150. However, my personal favorite Generation 5 starter is Oshawott. I just love this little guy, and clearly a lot of other people do as well, as Oshawott's most expensive card is the art rare found within White Flare, which sells for $50. Conveniently, this is also where the most expensive Duot card comes from, with the White Flare art rare for Duot selling for around $13. And with Samurott, we are going free for free with their most expensive cards being in White Flare, as the most expensive Samurott is this art rare, which sells for $40. As for Hisuian Samurott, we have the Galarian Gallery Hisuian Samurott V, which sells for $10, which is actually pretty good for quite a cool card. If you guys do end up enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe and let me know your favorite Generation 5 Pokemon down below. Also, if I missed any cards, can you guys let me know? It's really hard to find every card for every Pokemon in every video, so I do sometimes miss some. Over the last couple of generations, Patrat's appearances within video games, TCG, and anime have become more and more scarce. It would take all the way up to Legend ZA before Patrat would appear in a regional Pokedex outside of Unova, which is kind of insane. Absence does make the heart grow fonder, with the most expensive Patrat being the art rare found within White Flare for $8. White Flare also gives us the most expensive card for Watchog, with this art rare selling for $4. We do have a lot of cards coming up found within Black Bolt and White Flare, and I will say none of them are disappointing cards, such as the Lillipup art rare, which sells for $20. This is also where the art rare for Herdia comes in, which sells for $7. Did you know Stoutland was one of the first receivers of a Trainer Gallery card? Back in Sun and Moon Cosmic Eclipse, Stoutland appeared in their Trainer Gallery, although at the time it was not called that. Unfortunately though, this amazing card is not the most expensive, as once again we have the White Flare Stoutland art rare for $13. For Purloin, we are stepping away from White Flare and instead talking about the 2012 McDonald's Purloin. This card was originally found in Black and White Emerging Powers before being added to the McDonald's promotion. This card sells today for $11. As for Lipard, once again, despite having an art rare within White Flare, the most expensive card is actually a staff pre-release for the Brilliant Stars expansion, with this Lipard selling today for up to $75. And yes, this is genuinely the best picture I could find of this card. Recently, I made a video where I ranked Stellar Crown as a better set than Neo Genesis, but I think this statement will be more controversial. I love the Elemental Monkeys. At least their first stage evolutions. The whole design being based on Sinnoh, Hinno, Sinnoh Evil is really cool, and the fact they are essentially a second starter in black and white meant as a kid I used Simisage. The most expensive Pansage card is the Black Star Promo Pansage, which could be found in the Toys R Us exclusive black and white booster 2-packs. This card sells today for around $40. We were almost on a roll there without cards found within Black Bolt and White Flare, but it's back to Unova special sets for Simisage, whose most expensive card is the Black Bolt Art Rare, which sells for $6. Unfortunately, because Pansage was relevant in the black and white anime, this Pokemon has a little more clout within the TCG. This is not the case for Pansear, whose most expensive card is the White Flare Art Rare, which sells for about $8. Bizarrely, within Crown Zenith, they decided to give us Simisir V-Star to go along with the Simisir V we received in Brilliant Stars. I don't hate this Pokemon, but even I am questioning why it got a Galarian Gallery V-Star card, with this card selling today for $25. And it is once again back to Black Bolt with the Panpour Art Rare, which sells for $7. As for Simipour, let me just say, I get why people don't like this one. The most expensive Simipour card is the Art Rare from Black Bolt, which sells for $7. And this is also the case for Munna, whose most expensive card is the Art Rare from Black Bolt, which sells for $11. I honestly would have thought that at some point in the TCG history, Mashana would have received an expensive promotional card or something. This Pokemon is part of the reason hidden abilities exist today, and it just deserves way more credit. However, the most expensive Mashana is just the Art Rare from Black Bolt for $7. For Pidove, we once again have a Toys R Us exclusive promotional card that was the next promo card after the Pansage from earlier. This card sells today for around $85, which is insane for one of the least popular regional birds. Tranquil is probably one of the most forgettable flying types out there, and its art rare is the cheapest so far in the video, selling for around $4. Now look, I'm not a huge Unpheasant fan, but I will say one thing, I do like how the art rare from Black Bolt incorporated both the female and male designs. This card is actually kind of cool and sells for $12. I always did like the Generation 5 Pokemon. I get that a lot of people didn't like these Pokemon, but Pokemon Black was the first game I ever owned myself. Every other game I would play on other people's console. And Blitzel is one of my favorite Gen 5 Pokemon, with the art rare selling today for $7. As a kid, I was terrified of Elisa and her Zebstrika. Prior to playing Heart Gold and Soul Silver, this was my Whitney's Miltank. Whenever I played Pokemon White, this Pokemon would always destroy me. I am too proud to admit on multiple occasions, people or the strategy guide had to help me. The most expensive Zebstrika card is the art rare from White Flare for $13. Cards like the Rock and Roller art rare from White Flare make me wish that Black Bolt and White Flare were way easier to open upon their release. I feel like I missed out on what could have been one of my favorite sets ever. The most expensive Rock and Roller card is the White Flare art rare, which sells for $5. This is also where the most expensive Boldor comes from, with the art rare Boldor selling for $5 as well, which is pretty good for a pretty cool Pokemon card. I think fans love to criticize Pokemon for what they are, but I genuinely cannot think of a single Pokemon that I cannot at least see some appeal for, except Bruxish. One of my favorite design Pokemon ever is Gigalith, with the most expensive Gigalith being a staff pre-release for Black and White Emerging Powers, which sells today for up to $40. The art rare for Woobat found in White Flare kind of reminds me of the artwork found in sets like EX Crystal Guardians, which is probably why this card is pretty expensive, selling for around $8. White Flare also gives us the most expensive card for Swoobat, with this art rare selling for $8. Black Bolt gives us the most expensive card for Drillbur with this art rare, which sells today for around $5, which is a steal for a really adorable Pokemon. And then we have the most badass ground type in all the land. Do you get the joke? Excadrill is probably up there as one of my favorite ground types ever, and its most expensive card is amazing. Designed by Mitsuhiro Arita, we have the Excadrill EX Special Illustration Rare from Black Bolt, which sells for $25. I love the art rare cards or even basic Pokemon designs that use wool to create the card. In a world where AI is taking over art creation, it's nice to see cards like the Ordino art rare still kicking about. This card sells today for $17. And we also have the Black Bolt art rare for Timber. Now, I don't think this is as good as the one from Temporal Forces, but it is more expensive, selling for $8. And then we have Gerda, whose most expensive card once again comes out of Black Bolt with the art rare selling for $6. I did warn you that most of Generation 5 would be found within Black Bolt White Flare, as up next we once again have the Black Bolt art rare for Conkeldurr, with this card selling for $20. It seems we're in the Black Bolt White Flare run of this video, as up next we have the Tympole found within the set, which sells for $8. And this continues with Palpitoad with this art rare, which sells for $9. And then we have Seismitoad, who has one of the coolest cards found within Black Bolt and White Flare, and the price of it definitely reflects that, with this Seismitoad selling for $120. Okay, this video is going to be hours long if we don't start speeding through some of the next few. The most expensive card for Throw is the Black Bolt art rare, which sells for $5. And the Sork counterpart from White Flare is also the most expensive, selling for $5. The Swaddle art rare from White Flare is so cute, and the most expensive card for Swaddle selling for $12. I'm quite surprised this line of Pokemon is not more popular. The most expensive Swadloon is the art rare from White Flare, selling for $6. And that leaves us with Leavanny, who ends the trifecta of White Flare art rares, selling for $21. Unfortunately though, it is straight over to Black Bolt for the next trio of bug Pokemon, starting with Venipede, whose art rare from Black Bolt sells for $6. And this is also where the most expensive Whirlipede comes from, with the art rare selling for $6 again. And once again, we finished this bug type 3 with the art rare for Scolipede from Black Bolt, which sells for $20. Making this video, I realized that Unova really needed Black Bolt and White Flare, as it really didn't have that many good chase cards. I just wish they would have been trickle fed to us for a bit longer as opposed to just dumping everything into one set. The most expensive Cottony is the art rare from White Flare for $5. Surprisingly though, for Whimsicott, the most expensive card is not the special illustration rare from White Flare, but rather a prize pack series stamped card which sells for $50. But it is immediately back to Black Bolt for Petalil, whose most expensive card sells for $11. And for Lilligant, we have two cards to talk about, both the regular form and the Hisuian form, with the regular form being the art rare from White Flare which sells for $25. And for the Hisuian form, we have the alternate art found within Astral Radiance which sells for $18. And much like Lilligant before it, if we have to talk about two cards for Basculin, starting with regular Basculin, where we have the, you guessed it, White Flare art rare which sells for $5. And then for Hisuian Basculin, we have the cheapest card of the video so far, with this regular promotional card that sells for 25 cents. This set really was amazing for Generation 5 card rates, as up next we have Sandar with the art rare from Black Bolt selling for $8. And we also have the Krokorok from this set which sells for $6. And with Crocodile, finally we are ending the near 20 card run we have been on for Pokemon cards found within Black Bolt and White Flare. As within Black and White Dragons Exalted, we would get a secret rare shiny Crocodile, which sells today for up to $200. And for Darumaka, it is back to two cards, starting with Unova Darumaka with the Black Bolt art rare which sells for $9. With Galarian Darumaka, we have the shiny found in Shining Fates which sells for $1.50. Once again, we have two cards to talk about for Darmanitan, and surprisingly neither of them are from Black Bolt White Flare. The most expensive Unova Darmanitan is the Black and White Staff pre-release which sells for up to $70. For Galarian Darmanitan, we have the snowy counterpart Rainbow Rare VMAX which sells for $7. I had to double check this across a couple of sites, but the most expensive Maractus is found in Black Bolt. However, it isn't an art rare, but rather the Master Ball pattern Maractus which sells for $7. Dwebel's art rare is probably my favorite card found within this set. Look how adorable the little guy is. This card sells today for $25. Crustle has been on an absolute roll recently. Not only did Crustle get an art rare within Black Bolt, but it also got one in Destined Rivals and in Paradox Rift. Who in the Pokemon TCG design team suddenly decided to run rampant with Crustle? I'm not mad, I love this Pokemon. The most expensive card Crustle has is the Master Ball Hollow which sells for about $10, although this card may be a victim of artificial inflation. For Scraggy, we are once again changing lanes and heading to the land of McDonald's, with this 2016 promotional Scraggy card which sells today for up to $55. Can someone, anyone, please explain why these Pokemon McDonald's cards are so expensive? I knew this video was going to be long, but we're still on track for this video to end up being over an hour long, so let's speed through the next few, starting with Scrafty, whose most expensive card is the White Flare art rare for $16. For Sigilyph, we do not have a card found within White Flare, but rather yet again a shiny secret rare, this time found within Plasma Freeze, which sells for up to $100. Okay, so working on PokePlanet this much has cooked my voice, and I think I need a bit of a break. So to ensure we manage to get this video out in time, I've had to hand the narration off to my awesome wife, who has agreed to finish out this video for me. Everyone say thank you to the wife.
With Yamask, first we have the art rare from White Flare for regular Yamask selling for $5, and then the shiny hollow rare for Galarian Yamask, which sells for $1.50. For Cofagrigus, we have the White Flare illustration rare, which sells for $18. Tortuga has very few cards within the TCG. Only recently did it make a comeback. The most expensive Tortuga card is the Black Bolt illustration rare for $15. Once again, this is where the most expensive Caracosta comes from, with the art rare selling for $7. For Archon, we have another amazing art rare from White Flare, with this card selling for $6. And I'm not 100% sure why this secret rare Archeops is so expensive, but I think it's because this card is based on a card that got banned from the competitive scene. This secret rare Archeops from Dark Explorers sells today for $75. But back to White Flare with Trubbish, this art rare sells for $10. This card's kind of adorable. I actually really like the shiny gold cards that appeared through the Black and White era. They add so much more value to these sets. They were probably super fun to pull from when I was a kid. The most expensive Garbodor is the shiny secret rare from Plasma Freeze, which sells for $200. For Zorua, we have a really interesting card that I really struggled to find a price for. We have the Illusions Zorua Pokemon Fan Japanese promo. To celebrate the release of Ruler of Illusions Zoroark in Japan, Pokemon ran an art contest using the newest Pokemon added to the Pokedex. During the submission period, 10 illustrators would receive prizes, such as the cards that were designed. You're seeing some of them here. As I always say with Art Academy promos, finding prices for them are really hard, and none of these, to my knowledge, have sold ungraded, although I could be wrong. However, one of these cards is definitely the most expensive. As for Hisuian Zorua, though, we have the Hisuian Zorua from Lost Origin for 10 cents. I have no idea why Hisuian Zorua has not gotten an art rare yet. Up next, for Zoroark, we are heading into the Sun and Moon Unbroken Bonds, where we have the awesome tag team alternate art between Zoroark and Greninja. This card's so cool and is up there as one of my husband's favorites, selling for $260. For Hisuian Zoroark, we have the EB Games stamped Hisuian Zoroark, which sells for $75. Minccino actually has a Cosmos Hollow version of this card as the most expensive, this card selling for around $13. Once again, we have a bit of a roll going for cards not found in Black Bolt and White Flare, as up next we have the staff pre-release for Sword and Shield for Cinccino, which sells for up to $90. All things good must come to an end, as for Gothita, we are heading back to White Flare for this amazing card, which sells for $12. Never really liked the Gothitelle line, always more of a Uniclus kid, but I must admit these cards are really well designed. For Gothorita, we have the White Flare Art Rare, which sells for $11. And how to know that Gothitelle has not had a good time in the TCG, its most expensive card is a really new promo. The Gothitelle promo found within the White Flare Tech Sticker Collection. For anyone who's played Elden Ring, this card kind of reminds me of Renala, like if you get the reference. This Gothitelle sells for $4. Solosis is just a little upsetting. Solosis and its art rare from Black Bolt have become victims of market inflation. People were pumping the price of this card, and unfortunately, it does not seem like it's ever coming down. The card is super cool and currently sells for $30. This bled slightly forwards to Duosion as well, unfortunately, because all these sneakerheads are pumping the price of these cards. Hopefully, they will crash soon. The art rare Duosion from Black Bolt sells for $12. And we end the squishy psychic line with Reuniclus, whose most expensive card is the shiny secret rare found within Dragons Exalted, selling for $130. Am I crazy, or do people like Ducklet now? I remember when this Pokemon was first found in black and white and people did not like it, but now its art rare from White Flare is selling for $16. What happened? Time for the fast round. Next 10 Pokemon are going to be shot by very fast because this video is becoming very long. Swanna, most expensive card, White Flare art rare, $8. Vanillite, White Flare art rare, $7. Vanillish, also White Flare with the art rare selling for $8. And Vanillux, still the art rare from White Flare, $27. Wow. Deerling, Temporal Forces art rare, which is one of the best connected cards ever created, selling for $23. And the Sawsbuck being the other half of this connected duo, selling for $32. For Emolga, we're heading into Legendary Treasures with the Radiant Collection Full Art Emolga, which sells for $65. Up next, we have Carablast with the Staff Championship Series card, selling for $50. And then for Escavalier, we have the Black Bolt art rare, which sells for $11. The art rare card for Foongus found within Black Bolt, which sells for $12. And for Amoonguss, we have two cards tied for most expensive, which both selling around $30 near mint. First, the art rare found in Black Bolt, of course. Second, though, is a Sun and Moon staff pre-release from Unified Minds. Both of these cards around $25 to $30. For Frillish, it's back to White Flare with the actually really cool art rare found within, which sells for $12. At the moment, Jellicent is one of the most formidable cards within the meta, and the special illustration rare for this amazing card sells for $30. Let's be honest, no one cares about Alomomola. Its most expensive card is the art rare from Black Bolt, $12. During the Scarlet and Violet era, Joltik got 3 art rare cards. They're all awesome, but we're here for the most expensive. Most expensive Joltik is the illustration rare from White Flare, which sells for $22. For Galvantula, once again, we have 2 cards at around the same amount. First is the art rare found in White Flare, and the second is the amazing special illustration rare in Stellar Crown. Both of these going for around $15. One thing I will say about Unova is I think it has some of the best steel types, such as the Ferroseed line, with the most expensive Ferroseed being the art rare from White Flare at $5. And then for Ferrothorn, we have the awesome White Flare illustration rare, which sells for $12. Next, Clink, we have the art rare from Black Bolt for $5. Clang, also Black Bolt art rare, also $5. And then finally, Kling Clang, the art rare from Black Bolt for $15. For Tynamo, we won't be going far, as the most expensive from Black Bolt is the Tynamo art rare for $15. I actually really like the electric art rare found within Black Bolt. This card's super cool and sells today for $20. That brings us to Electros with the art rare from Black Bolt selling for $16. This is actually a really popular evolutionary line within the set, as all of the cards are pretty expensive.
Thank you everyone for bearing with us in that segment. I knew I would not get through this entire video, so thank you to my wife for taking over even just for a little bit. Anyway, let's go back to some Pokemon cards. I feel like LGM does not get enough love from Pokemon fans around the world. This is one of my favorite psychic types out there, and the most expensive LGM is the Black Bolt art rare, which sells for $7. Surprisingly for BHM, we have a break card on this list. I always really liked the break cards, and recently someone commented on the channel that someone else out there loves break cards. We might be the only two out there though. The most expensive BHM is the break card found within the X and Y promotional Break Evolution box. This BHM card sells for $11. With Litwick, we have another promotional card. This Litwick card is surprisingly expensive and could be found within the Noble Victories 3-pack blisters. For some reason, this card is selling today for $24. If someone knows why this card is so expensive, can you let me know down below? I would assume there is some way it's playable and expanded, but I honestly don't really know. Up next, we we have Lampent, and it is back to White Flare with this art rare Lampent, which sells for $9. And with Chandelure, it is back to Black and White Next Destinies, with the shiny secret rare Chandelure, which sells for $150. Much like Litwick from earlier for Axew, we have yet another Black and White promotional release. This card was found in the Black and White base booster 2-packs, which were exclusive to Toys R Us, which is probably why this card is so expensive, costing anything up to $60. And for Fracture, it is once again Black Bolt, where we have the art rare, which sells for $19. And for Haxorus, we also have the card found within Black Bolt, which sells for $40, which is really cool. I love this Cubchoo card. It's honestly one of the best designed Ice-type Pokemon cards found within Black and White's Ice types. You know, all 7 of them. This Cubchoo art rare from Black Bolt sells for $11. Unfortunately, Beartick would not fare quite as well as Cubchoo, as Beartick's most expensive card is the art rare from Black Bolt, which only sells for like $5. For Cryogonal, once again, we are in Black Bolt with this art rare, which sells for $5. Remember earlier for Carablast, we had a Championship Series staff card? Well, up next for Shelmet, we have the same card, although this one is way more expensive, selling for $32. There would also be a Championship Series staff card for Aselgor, which is the most expensive Aselgor card, selling for $17. And for Stunfisk, we have both Unovan and Galarian Stunfisk once again. The most expensive Unovan Stunfisk is the White Flare art rare for $4. As for Galarian Stunfisk, it is the full art Galarian Stunfisk V from Darkness Ablaze, which sells for $1.50. Right, I have something to say about Mienfoo. Does anyone get serious Kung Fu Panda vibes from this art, or is it just me? The most expensive Mienfoo is the White Flare art rare for $6. As for Mienshao, we actually have 2 cards that are pretty consistently selling for $6. The Mienshao from White Flare, obviously, as well as the art rare from Paradox Rift. To be fair, both of these cards are really cool. Show of hands, who here likes Druddigon? I feel like a lot of people don't like this Pokemon, and I really have no idea why. The design is fine, and it does look like a dragon. The most expensive Druddigon is the Cosmos Holo version of the Team Plasma Druddigon promo. This card sells for up to $30. For Golurk, we are straight back to Black Bolt with his art rare that sells for $6. Golurk has one of my favorite shinies from Black and White Pokemon. I love the white and green design, and the most expensive card for Golurk is a shiny one, with the shiny secret rare Golurk from Black and White Boundaries Crossed, selling for $110. I really do feel like the Pawniard line needed a 3rd evolution. I love King Gambit, but for now, that's not a Pokemon I'm gonna get to talk about. Let's instead talk about Pawniard with the Black Bolt art rare selling for $5. Black Bolt also gives us the most expensive Bisharp card with these 2 dueling Bisharp. This card is honestly super cool and sells for $8. Despite having a special illustration rare within White Flare, the most expensive Bouffalon card is actually a staff pre-release handed out to coincide with the release of Stellar Crown. For a brief moment, this card did see some play in Terrapagos decks, but slowly it has been left behind as the Terrapagos deck has become less relevant. This Bouffalon sells today for $25. For Rufflet, it is once again the Black Bolt art rare, which sells for $5. Once again with Braviary, we have 2 Pokemon cards to talk about, starting with Unovan Braviary, with the most expensive being the Black Bolt art rare for $6. As for Hisuian Braviary though, we have the cheapest card of the video. It is the Astral Radiance card for 7 cents. Well, that was disappointing. We're almost in the final stretch, and up next we have Vullaby. Vullaby's most expensive card is the White Flare art rare, which sells for $5. And then we have Mandibuzz, which has yet again another break card as the most expensive. I was surprised to see 1 break card here, let alone 2. This promotional break card was found in the Arcanine Break Evolution box and sells today for $6. And then we have Heatmore, who has the kind of cheap art rare from White Flare, which sells for $5. And for our last Pokemon before we get into the really good stuff, we have Durant, whose most expensive card is the special illustration rare found within Surging Sparks, which sells for $20. And now, the good stuff, starting with Dino. Dino is actually a really good Pokemon, and its most expensive card may surprise you. It is not from White Flare. There was a first place winner Pokemon League Dino that was handed out to coincide with events going on around the time of Legendary Treasure's release, and this card sells today for around $30. Once again, we have to talk about these Xylas found within Black Bolt. Now, I do like the Xylas card found within this set, and it sells for around $10, so it's pretty affordable. And then we have Hydreigon, whose most expensive card is the Next Destiny Shiny Secret Rare, which sells for $125. And then we have 2 of the best Pokemon from Unova, Larvesta and Volcarona. Starting with Larvesta, whose most expensive card is the art rare from Black Bolt for $10. I am shocked that Volcarona does not have a more expensive card at the top. This Pokemon deserves an awesome special illustration rare. For now though, we still have this really cool art rare for Volcarona from Black Bolt, which sells for $29. And that brings us to the legendary Pokemon, starting with Cobalion, where we have the Noble Victories Full Art Cobalion, which sells for $50. Compared to Cobalion, both Terrakion and Virizion would have a much better time in the TCG. Both of these Pokemon receive shiny secret rare gold cards, and the most expensive Terrakion is that card, selling for $75, which is a steal. Meanwhile, the shiny secret rare for Virizion is the most expensive, selling for just a smidge more at $100. You're going to like how spread out these cards are, as I feel like each of the three genies has one card that is pretty different to the others. As the most expensive card for Tornadus is the Tornadus EX Staff pre-release promo for Black and White Legendary Treasures, which will cost you $55. Meanwhile, for Thundurus, we have the awesome Plasma Full Art EX, which sells for $125. And then for Reshiram, we are heading to Sun and Moon Cosmic Eclipse, where we have the Reshiram and Zekrom GX Tag Team, which sells for $400. Very conveniently, this is also the most expensive card for Zekrom. I was quite surprised to learn that Landorus's most expensive card is actually a promotional card that could be found in a free pack blister of all places in May 2013. This Team Plasma's Landorus at the time seemed really minuscule. Who would care about a card in a free pack blister? However, the card has gone up and up and up in value, with it now being worth anything up to $200. And for Kyurem, we have three cards to talk about, starting with Base Kyurem, whose most expensive card is the Kyurem EX Full Art found within Next Destinies that sells for $150. Meanwhile, for White Kyurem, we have the Full Art EX from Boundaries Crossed, which sells for $350. And then for Black Kyurem, we have the Full Art EX counterpart, also found within Boundaries Crossed, which sells for a little bit more than the White Kyurem at about $350 to $400 on average. And then for Keldeo, we are staying in Boundaries Crossed with this awesome Full Art EX for Keldeo's Resolute form, which sells for $150. I thought about splitting up Meloetta and her two forms, however the Pirouette form really does not have any expensive cards, so let's just focus on Meloetta's primary form, where we have a couple of pretty expensive cards, but the most expensive card is the Meloetta EX Special Illustration Rare, found within Black Bolt for around $40. And that brings us to the final Pokemon, Genesect. Thank you guys for enjoying this video, and thank you for bearing with me. My voice is not very good at the moment, and I'm really struggling to do these narrations. Make sure to subscribe down below and let me know what cards I missed. Every card in this video is priced using recently sold near mint cards on TCG Player. If I couldn't find a price on TCG Player, I would switch to eBay and price chart. However, the most expensive Genesect card is the Plasma Genesect EX Full Art, which sells for $300. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you later.
It is finally time for the shortest region of this series, as we are talking about the most expensive card for every Kalos Pokemon. And I'm going to start by retconning an error from my most expensive card for every set video. In that video, I said that the most expensive Chespin card was the McDonald's 2014 promotional Chespin. While yes, this is the most expensive card for Chespin that can be easily obtained, there is actually a very expensive Chespin that is way more expensive than the McDonald's 2014 card. The Art Academy promotional Chespin designed by Gabby. This card very rarely sells, and the price I found for this card online was $3,500. Everyone hates Quilladin. This is probably the most disliked starter ever, and I really don't get why. It is just kind of average. The most expensive card for Quilladin is the Reverse Holo from X and Y Breakthrough at about $4. Let's move on. Up next, we have a type of card that, as I am sure you all know by now, I am a huge fan of. The Break card for Chestnut. I kind of understand why people didn't like these cards. They could be a bit complicated at times. However, I still think they are cool, and the Chestnut sells today for $16. Generation 5 and 6 were real lows for the Pokemon franchise. It had seen a huge drop in active players in the West, and Pokemon were doing everything they can to try and bring some people back into the franchise. As such, they decided to run multiple McDonald's campaigns throughout both of these generations. And the most expensive Fennekin is the McDonald's 2016 Fennekin card, which is pretty expensive. The 2016 McDonald's campaign was one of the smallest McDonald's campaigns Pokemon ever ran, and as such, this Fennekin set now sells for up to $30. Now, if there is one thing that is guaranteed to make you a top dog within the TCG, it is having any card released in just about any Charizard set. Most cards in these sets, especially nowadays, are really cool. So take that one step further and share a card with Charizard, and you will have the Charizard and Braixen GX Secret Rare Rainbow card, which sells for up to $100. I reckon this is the generation where we're going to get a lot more break cards, which for me is great because I'm a huge fan of these cards. And the most expensive Delphox we have is the Break Delphox card, which sells for $10. Up next, we have the best Generation 6 starter, Froakie. Delphox was a disappointing final evolution for Fennekin, Quilladin was a disappointing middle stage for Chespin, but I really believe that the Froakie line has no weaknesses. The most expensive Froakie is the X and Y promotional Froakie found within the Froakie box, released at the end of Black and White. These boxes are expensive today, but thankfully the card isn't too bad, selling for $12. And then we have Frogadier, with the most expensive Frogadier card being the Hidden Fate Shiny Frogadier, which sells for $3. And the final starter Pokemon is Greninja, where we have a really expensive card. Greninja is arguably one of the best water type starters ever made. A Frog Ninja that is also a dark type, this design is just awesome. Greninja is the first Pokemon where we have really been spoiled for choice with most expensive cards. Cards like the Greninja and Zoroark Tag Team, the Rainbow Greninja GX from Forbidden Light, and of course the SIR from Twilight Masquerade. However, none of these even come close to the most expensive Greninja card. The Japanese Japanese Ashgra Ninja EX. In English, this card is pretty cheap. It was released within a promotional box, the Ashgra Ninja EX collection box, which was everywhere, and even today you can pick up for like $300. However, in Japan, this card was a little bit different. This card could only be obtained in Japan by visiting the Pokemon booth found at the Winter 43rd Next Generation World Hobby Fair. This fair took place at Makuhara Messe, Chiba on January 23rd and 24th, 2016, as well as the Nagoya Dome and the Kyocera Dome later in the year. However, that still would not get you the most expensive version of this card. This card would be reprinted in 2016 in a limited release found within the Pocket Monsters XYZ TV Anime Character Song Project Collection Volume 2 compilation. Yes, its name really is that long. This print featured an image of Ash in the bottom corner, and nowadays this card can sell for up to $1,200. This card barely ever gets sold, and as a result, it's really hard to find a price for. That was a lot. If you guys do end up enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe down below so that you don't miss the last few generations. Every price in this video is pulled from TCG Player, so if I missed any cards, let me know down below. And for Bunnelby, we actually have a super weird card, the Thank You Bunnelby. Normally at promotional events or competitions, Pokemon will give out stamped staff cards. There are so many of these cards out there, however the Thank You Bunnelby is kind of unique. This was given at our Play Pokemon event in 2020 until stock ran out and sells today for up to $13. Unfortunately, a lot of the cards in today's video are going to be a little basic, such as the most expensive Diggersby. Diggersby has never received any type of special card or art rare, and so the most expensive Diggersby is the rare found in X and Y Phantom Forces, which sells for $1. Fletchling, Fletchinder, and Talonflame might be some of my favorite regional bird Pokemon. These guys are so cool. For Fletchling, the most expensive card is the 2014 McDonald's Promotional Fletchling, which sells for $7. For Fletchinder, we have the first art rare for this video. For some reason within Paldea Evolved, Fletchinder would receive an art rare card. This card has actually become quite expensive recently, with it selling today for $10. In this generation, I'm trying to be a bit more international. Japanese cards in the West sell for a little bit more money than they would in Japan or Europe, so I'm trying to only include the English prints of these cards unless it is a Japanese exclusive or weird promotional release, such as the Japanese promotionally released Talonflame Break card. Within the West, we would get this card within X and Y Steam Siege. However, in Japan, this card was part of a 12-card promo pack given out to participants of the 2016 Pokemon Card Gym tournaments. This was only available for 2 months, at least until they re-released it later in 2016. This promotional Talonflame sells today for $10. And then for Scatterbug, we have the much simpler X and Y base set Scatterbug, which sells for 25 cents. X and Y base set also gives us the most expensive Spuper, which sells for 40 cents. I was expecting Vivian to be way more complicated than it is. Due to Vivian's pattern gimmick and having a different pattern in multiple countries around the world, Vivian would receive each of its patterns in various countries. So you would imagine one of these countries would be really expensive, but they just kind of aren't. The most expensive Vivian card is the R-Rare Vivian from Surging Sparks, which sells for $5. I could be wrong with this one. There might be a Vivian card from one country that's more expensive and I just couldn't find a record of it. If that's the case, can you let me know down below? Litleo and Pyroar have actually gotten a decent amount of love within the TCG over the past few sets, and Litleo would even get an art rare within Mega Evolution with this card that sells for $4. As for Pyroar, we have yet another Generation 9 art rare with the Pyroar found within Paldea Evolved. This awesome art rare sells today for $8, which is a bargain if you ask me. For Flabebe, we are heading to the Radiant Collection. The Radiant Collection was such a good addition into X and Y generations, and I'm quite surprised we haven't received a Radiant Collection since. Maybe in the next anniversary set, these cards will make a comeback. The most expensive Flabebe is the Radiant Collection Flabebe card, which sells for $2. As for Floette, we are staying within the Generations Radiant Collection for this super cool Floette card, featuring all the different flower colors this Pokemon has become known for. This Floette sells today for $3. And that brings us to Florges. Surprisingly, Florges has actually received a couple of special cards. However, the most expensive of these is the Florges EX Full Art found in X and Y Phantom Forces, which sells for $12. For Skiddo, once again, we have a promotional card. This card can be found within the Flashfire Single Pack Blisters. This card sells today for $2. And now we have the GOAT, literally with Go-Go. I actually really liked Go-Go within X and Y. Being able to use Pawn Leech against the various ground and water types found within Kalos was super fun. The most expensive Go-Go is yet another promotional card. This Go-Go could be found within the Furious Fist 1-pack blisters and sells today for $5. Furious Fist also gave us the most expensive Pancham card, with this adorable little guy selling for $1. Pangoro often gets overshadowed by Scrafty. Both were fighting and dark types introduced in one generation after the other, and so personally I would always choose Scrafty over Pangoro. However, Pangoro does have a kind of cool most expensive card, with this Theme Deck exclusive Cracked Ice Hollow Pangoro, which sells for $4. If there is one thing that always sells with Pokemon fans, it is adorable cat-like Pokemon. Pokemon like Skitty, Purloin, Glameow, Sprigatito, and many more are all adored by fans, and Esper is probably one of the cutest, with this Esper from the Generations Radiant Collection selling for $11. I'm expecting big things from Meowstic now that it has a Mega Evolution. If there is one Pokemon that I absolutely did not expect to get a Mega, it was hands down Meowstic. I will say though, I am a huge fan kind of a design. The most expensive Meowstic is the Promotional Meowstic, which could be found in the Roaring Skies single pack blisters. This card sells for $7. Up next we have Hoenn, and after what feels like forever of having pretty cheap cards, with Hoenn things are going to get way more expensive, as we have a Pokemon Championship Staff card. This card was handed out to coincide with the 2014-15 season and sells today for $50. Much like Hoenn, Doublade would also receive a Staff promotional card to coincide with Pokemon Organized Play. These cards are basically just stamped version of normal cards, but those stamps make them way more interesting. The Doublade sells for $40. And finally, Aegislash, where we have the Aegislash Staff Organized Play card. These cards were given out at various regional tournaments during the 2014-15 season, and nowadays the Aegislash sells for $52. With Spritzy, we are jumping way ahead out of X and Y all the way up to Scarlet and Violet Prismatic Evolutions, with this Master Ball stamped Spritzy, which sells for $1. Thankfully, this is also where we can find the most expensive card for Aromatisse. I feel like the fairy types we received in Generation 6 honestly weren't that good, and over time they have become better and better. The Master Ball stamped Aromatisse sells for $6. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like Swirlix's design, but damn it, this card from the Generations Radiant collection is insanely cute. This card sells for $6. For Slurpuff, we are heading over to Japan with the Japanese Start Deck 100 Battle Collection Slurpuff Art Rare. Wow, that was a mouthful. This card can be found in the currently exclusive to Japan Start Deck and will be likely appearing in Ascended Heroes when that drops. At the moment, the Japanese version of this card sells for $15. With Inkay, we have yet another exclusive Japanese card, only this one is a bit different. Between July 2018 and June 2019, you could earn this card by taking part in sanctioned play Pokemon events. This included things like tag battles and weekday tournaments. By accumulating enough points, you can redeem this Sun and Moon promotional Inkay card, which sells for $30. As for Malamar, we actually have a lot of cards that were quite high on the list, including a first place winner card. However, the most expensive card was the Staff pre-release card released for Forbidden Light, which sells for $35. For Binacle, we have the Binacle found within Forbidden Light, which sells for 25 cents. I'm shocked that Barbaracle has never received any kind of special card. This Pokemon is pretty cool, and hopefully with a Mega now, it will finally get the justice it deserves. The most expensive Barbaracle can be found in X and Y Flashfire, and sells for 50 cents. Flashfire also gave us the most expensive Skrelp card, which sells for 15 cents. For Dragalge, we once again have a Staff pre-release card, except this is a big one. If I were to ask you what was the most hyped set from X and Y outside of Evolutions, you would probably say Flashfire. While the most expensive Dragalge card is a Staff pre-release for Flashfire. This Dragalge card is very expensive, selling for up to $70. So far in this video, we really haven't had that many art rares. However, of every Pokemon to get one, Clauncher was not on my list. The most expensive Clauncher card is the art rare found within Scarlet and Violet, which sells for $5. And for Chlorancer, we have the counterpart to Dragalge, except Steam Siege is definitely not the counterpart to Flashfire. The most expensive Chlorancer is this Staff pre-release card from Steam Siege, which sells for $25. For Helioptile, we have one of my favorite cards found within Mega Evolution with the art rare for Helioptile, which only sells for $3, which is a bargain for such an awesome card. And then we have Heliolisk. I actually really like both Helioptile and Heliolisk. These are some of the funniest looking electric types out there, maybe even of all Pokemon. This is why I love Heliolisk. The most expensive Heliolisk card is the art rare found within Twilight Masquerade, which sells for $3. Tyrunt is my favorite fossil Pokemon out there. I don't know what it is about this little dinosaur that I just love so much. I've tried my best to get a shiny Tyrunt in just about every game he is available in, sometimes to very little success. The most expensive Tyrunt is the Cosmos Holo version of Tyrunt found within Furious Fist. This card sells today for $10, mainly because of how few Tyrunt cards there actually are. Meanwhile, for Tyrantrum, we have a promotional Tyrantrum EX card. This card can be found within the Tyrantrum EX box for released in 2015 as both a regular card and a jumbo version too. These Pokemon have very few cards, and Tyrantrum, despite being one of the coolest fossil Pokemon, only has one special card and 2 other cards. This Tyrantrum EX sells for $20. However, if you thought things were bad for Tyrunt and Tyrantrum, they are even worse for Amora. Amora has only ever received 2 cards, so finding the most expensive also finds us the cheapest. The most expensive Amora card is found in X and Y Furious Fist, with the Cosmos Holo of this card selling for $8. Much like Tyrantrum from earlier, Aurorus would also receive a special EX promotional card found within the Aurorus EX box. This promo card is honestly really cool and sells today for $17. Seriously, Pokemon, can you bring these fossils back now, please? And now we have the big dog, or cat, or fox thing, whatever Sylveon is. Sylveon is an evolution, so of course has some really expensive cards out there. One of Sylveon's cards is worth more than most cards on this list combined, which is crazy. The most expensive Sylveon is the Gardevoir and Sylveon GX Alternate Art Tag Team, which sells for $560. And then we have the baddest fighting type in all of Kalos, Hawlucha. This Pokemon is so cool, and when Ash got one in the anime, I was so excited to see it in action. Now that it has a Mega, this Pokemon has just gotten so much cooler. The most expensive Hawlucha is the Scarlet and Violet Violet Staff pre-release, which sells for $53. And it seems this is the point in the video where some of these Pokemon are getting more and more expensive. As up next, we have Dedenne. Dedenne's most expensive card is the Dedenne GX Rainbow Rare found within Unbroken Bonds, which sells for $40. Much like Slurpuff from earlier, the most expensive carbon card you can currently find is the art rare found within the Japanese Start Deck 100 Battle Collection. This carbon card is super cool, and as soon as this comes to English, you know I'm gonna have to cop it. This card at the moment sells for $14. I love Goomy. Despite not having amazing appearances within the TCG, Goomy is still one of my favorite Pokemon. The most expensive Goomy out there is the Forbidden Light version, which sells for 30 cents. Please, give Goomy a better card than this. And now we have our first Pokemon for Kalos that we are talking about two forms for. Sliggoo. The most expensive regular Sliggoo card is the Phantom Forces Sliggoo, which sells for 25 cents. As for Hisuian Sliggoo, we have the only Hisuian Sliggoo card found within Lost Origin for 6 cents. And we have to do the exact same for Goodra. The most expensive regular Goodra is found within Phantom Forces, which sells for $2. As for Hisuian Goodra, we have the Rainbow Rare Hisuian Goodra V-Star from Lost Origin, which sells for like $6 to $7, give or take. Recently, my friends and I chose Pokemon that would realistically be on our Pokemon teams in the real world, and I said Klefki mainly because I always lose my keys. The most expensive Klefki is the first place winner Pokemon League stamped Klefki, which sells for $16. Much like many Pokemon throughout this video, Phantom really should get an art rare at some point. These Kalos Pokemon are super cool, but because of how small the dex actually is and how much Gen 1 nostalgia flooded this generation, these Pokemon are a little bit left behind. The most expensive Phantom card is the X and Y base set Phantom, which sells for 25 cents. Thankfully, things get way better for Trevenant as we have yet another staff pre-release card. To celebrate the release of X and Y Breakpoint, we would get the Trevenant pre-release card given out to staff at Pokemon sanctioned pre-release tournaments. This card has become weirdly expensive, selling for $45. For Pumpkaboo, we have yet another first place Pokemon League card as the most expensive, with this card selling for $35. And then for Gorgeist, we have the X and Y base set Holo Rare, which sells for $3. For Bergmite, we have the Forbidden Light Bergmite, which sells for 10 cents. I'm surprised Avalugg never received a special card. I feel like this Pokemon does have quite a lot going for it. Just give it an EX already. The most expensive normal Avalugg is the first place winner Avalugg, which sells for $30. As for Hisuian Avalugg, well, he only has one card. It sells for 10 cents. Let's move on. With Noibat, we have the second shiny Pokemon of the video with the Noibat shiny found within Paldea Fates, which sells for $4. I feel like a lot of people forget that Noivern V has an alternate art found within Evolving Skies. Everyone focuses on the Evolutions and the Rayquaza, and so most people tend to overlook the Noivern V. This card is really cool and sells today for $65. Which brings us to the legendary Pokemon. Starting with Xerneas, where we have a really cool full art as the most expensive. The full art Xerneas EX found within an X and Y base set, which sells for $100. For Yveltal, we actually have a card featuring both Xerneas and Yveltal, with the alternate art promo for Yveltal EX. This card can be found in the Premium Trainers XY Collection box, and nowadays it sells for $180. Things get way more interesting with Zygarde and Fates Collide. I really like Zygarde, and with the release of Legends ZA, I just feel like this Pokemon got even better. The most expensive Zygarde is the Mega Powers Collection EX alternate art, which sells for $50. I reckon now that we have the Megas back in Generation Line and Legends ZA, that Diancie will finally get the justice it deserves and have an actual good version of Mega Diancie EX. For now though, the promo version we have will do at $32. I feel like almost every Mythical has a pretty expensive card, and Hooper is no different. I've decided to talk about both the regular Hooper and then Hooper Unbound, who have both appeared across numerous promos and sets. Starting with the regular Hooper, whose most expensive card is the Japanese exclusive promotional card. This card was handed out at movie theaters in Japan to celebrate the release of Hooper: The Clash of Ages. There were 3 million of these cards printed for the first 3 million visitors to see this movie. This card would set you back $45 to $60. As for Hooper Unbound, it is the Hooper GX found within Team Up for $20. And that brings us all the way back to Volcanion. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and let me know if I missed any cards down below. The most expensive Volcanion card is the Volcanion Staff pre-release card from Unbroken Bonds. This card tends to sell for around $40. Have you ever wondered what the most expensive Pokemon card is for each of the Alola Pokemon? Well, you've come to the right place, as today that is exactly what we are talking about. Starting with one of my favorite starter Pokemon of all time, Rowlet, which has a pretty funny story behind it. For my entire life, I have been terrified of birds, and yet for some reason Rowlet is one of my favorite Pokemon. It really makes no sense. The most expensive Rowlet is the Edvard Munch Scream-inspired Rowlet card, which was handed out to visitors of the Edvard Munch exhibit in Tokyo's Museum of Art. It was also obtainable in various promotions in Japan around the same time as this exhibit going on. This Rowlet card sells today for $325. We have a lot of bangers throughout this video, but unfortunately Dartrix isn't really one of them. As far as middle stage starters go, this card is fine. This Cosmos Holofoil Dartrix was found in the Decidueye EX box and sells for $25. To be fair, this entire lineup is already better than a lot of other starter lineups we have had throughout this series, and this continues with Decidueye. The most most expensive Decidueye card is the Sword and Shield Staff pre-release from Darkness Ablaze, which sells for $50. And as for Hisuian Decidueye, we have the Rainbow Rare V-Star found within Astral Radiance, which sells for $10. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, it really helps us out, and let me know what videos you want to see down below. Litten is a cat Pokemon that probably left just about every quadrupedal cat fan devastated upon evolution. Seriously, why can't Pokemon just give us a cat that stays on 4 legs? However, if you love Litten, then this most expensive card might be one for you to grab. This is the Sun and Moon Japanese exclusive Litten promo. This card could be earned by participating in Pokemon Card Station events between July of 2018 through to June of 2019. Eligible events included things like the Kangaskhan Tag Battle, the Sylveon Girls Battle, and the Weekend Tournament. This was one of 3 cards given out like this, with the other 2 being Chespin and Inkay. This Litten card would cost you $40 today. Torracat really has not had that many cards. Thanks to Generation 8 and V cards, Pokemon could add fully evolved cards as basic cards, meaning Pokemon like Incineroar, Decidueye, and Primarina didn't actually need their evolutionary line. Torracat's most expensive card is the Cosmos Holo version of Sun and Moon Base's Torracat, found within the Incineroar GX Premium Collection for $5. Incineroar is by far the strongest Pokemon that has ever been added to the game. It has support, it has offense, it has disruption. It really does have everything the VGC in particular needs. However, the TCG has not really seen Incineroar near the forefront yet. The most expensive Incineroar card, though, is an interesting one and is a Japanese exclusive, sort of. This is the Incineroar GX Full Art, a card that we found in English within the Incineroar GX Premium Collection. However, in Japan, this card can be found within the Enhanced Expansion Pack as a regular pull. This was an extra set that added onto the Sun and Moon base within Japan, and as such, the Japanese version of this card will cost you around $45 today. Much like many of the other cards we have already covered, we have a Japanese card as the most expensive for Poplio. This Poplio could be found within the weekly children's newspaper Kodomo in Japan from February of 2017 at 500 yen a month, or about $3 a month. This card features the Kodomo logo in the bottom left corner of the artwork, and if you like weird promo cards, this may be one to pick up as it only sells for around $5. Brionne is one of the least popular Pokemon within the TCG. To this day, Brionne has only received 2 cards and has now not been seen since Sun and Moon Lost Thunder. The most expensive Brionne is the Cosmos Holo of Brionne from Sun and Moon, which can be found in the Primarina GX Premium Collection. This card sells for $3. And finally, we have Primarina, one of the best new water starters. I always really didn't like Primarina, but then we got Inteleon and Quaquaval, and now it's like one of the best water starters we've had in the modern era. The most expensive Primarina card is the Rainbow Rare GX found within Sun and Moon Guardians Rising for $25. So we're done with the starters, but don't go anywhere. We have some surprisingly expensive cards coming up throughout this video. Let's start with Pikipek, whose most expensive card is a McDonald's promotional card from 2017. This Pikipek card sells for $3. Trumbeak is down there as one of the least popular Pokemon of all time. Whenever Bulbapedia talks about the most or least searched Pokemon, Trumbeak always appears at the bottom. This Pokemon just isn't that memorable. The most expensive Trumbeak is the Sun and Moon Lost Thunder uncommon card, which sells for 30 cents. I am surprised that Toucannon has not received a special card yet. I understand that some people aren't a fan of Toucannon, but I always quite liked its design. The most expensive Toucannon is the rare found in Lost Thunder, which sells for 50 cents. For Yungoos, we're heading back to a Japanese exclusive card with the Yungoos found in the Ash vs Team Rocket deck kit. This deck was exclusive to Japan and never saw any print in the West. As such, this Yungoos sells today for $6. Seriously, how does Gumshoes have a more expensive card than Toucannon? The most expensive Gumshoes card is the Sun and Moon Ultra Prism Staff pre-release card. Giving Gumshoes the honor of being the pre-release for Ultra Prism is insane. This Gumshoes card sells for $20. For Grubbin, we are once again heading to the 2017 McDonald's promotion. There will be quite a few cards on this list in that promotion. These promotions between the years of 2013 really to like 2022, 23 weren't that popular, and so some of these cards have become really quite expensive. This Grubbin card sells for $4. For Charjabug, we have a promotional prize pack stamped Radiant Charjabug card. In my every Radiant card video, I did question why Charjabug received a Radiant card. Was this some sort of play on how weirdly good it was within Pokemon Go? This Charjabug card sells for $40. Vikavolt is up there as one of the best bug types ever created for me. I love the electric bug type concept and feel like Vikavolt is a really good Pokemon to receive this typing. The Rainbow Rare Vikavolt found within Guardians Rising is the most expensive Vikavolt card, selling for $10. I feel like a lot of the cards we are going to be coming face to face with are going to be from that 2017 McDonald's promo. As up next, we have the 2017 Crabrawler McDonald's promo. This card sells today for $5. Fun fact, did you know Crabominable is one of the only Pokemon out there to have received more than one promotional pre-release card? Crabominable would get 2 release cards, one found within Stellar Crown and the other found within Burning Shadows. This Burning Shadows staff pre-release is the most expensive, selling for $25. I almost forgot that Oricorio has 4 different types, so that is 4 different cards for us to talk about. Let's start with the Fire type Oricorio, which has the special illustration rare Mega Evolution promo, found within the Mega Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. Collection. This card sells for $15. For the electric type Oricorio, we have this Pokemon League stamped Oricorio, which sells for $1. For the psychic type Oricorio, we have the second place League Challenge stamped Oricorio, which is for some reason more expensive than the first place. This card sells for $7. And then finally, we have the ghost type Oricorio, which has the most expensive Oricorio card, with the staff pre-release for Guardians Rising, which sells for $20. Thankfully, this becomes way simpler with Cutiefly, as we have once again the McDonald's 2017 promotional Cutiefly, which sells for $5. And then we have Ribombee. Journey Together gave Ribombee a lot of new cards. There was an art rare, a regular card, however, Ribombee would also get a staff pre-release card, which sells for $25. Rockruff is up there as one of my wife's favorite Pokemon. I remember when Rockruff's shiny was added to Pokemon Go, and my wife ran around for hours trying to get one before finally getting a blue puppy after years of trying. The most expensive Rockruff can be found within the Ash vs Team Rocket deck kit, which sells for $15. Alola really had a lot of Pokemon with different forms, as up next we have got Lycanroc, who would receive 3 forms. The first of these is the Midday Lycanroc with this shiny Lycanroc GX, which sells for $15. Then we have the Midnight Lycanroc with the Rainbow Rare found within Guardians Rising for $17. And then finally we have the Dusk Lycanroc with this Forbidden Light staff pre-release Lycanroc, which sells for $65. We also have 2 forms to talk about with Wishy-Washy, both its regular and its schooling form. The most expensive regular Wishy-Washy is the Wishy-Washy GX found within Cosmic Eclipse, which sells for $2. Then for schooling Wishy-Washy, we have the Cosmic Eclipse Art Rare, which sells for $15. For Mareanie, we have another card found within the Ash vs Team Rocket deck kit. This Mareanie represents the Mareanie that was in love with James in the Sun and Moon anime, which I really suggest you watch if you have not. This Mareanie card sells for $16. And then for Toxapex, we have yet another card from that deck kit, with this Toxapex card, which sells for $10. For Mudbray, we are heading into Sword and Shield base with this Mudbray, which sells for 30 cents. With Mudsdale, we once again have a staff pre-release card for Guardians Rising with this Mudsdale card, which sells for $30. It took me a little while to really start to appreciate the Generation 7 Pokedex. Initially, I really didn't like Pokemon like Dewpider, but as time has gone on, this little bubble bug has become one of my favorite bug types. This was a great generation for bug types. The most expensive Dewpider is the Ultra Prism Common, which sells for 30 cents. And then for Araquanid, we have the Unified Minds Rare card, which sells for 30 cents again. These Pokemon really deserve better than this. We're staying in Unified Minds with the most expensive Fomantis card, which is the common card that sells for 30 cents. And then for Lurantis, we're going back to Sun and Moon base set with this Rainbow Rare GX card. I love Lurantis, and thanks to its contrary ability, it has become one of my favorite Pokemon to use in online battles. This Rainbow Rare Lurantis sells for $8. Interestingly, for Morolol, for the first time and likely only time in this series, we have a Detective Pikachu card. This Morolol card sells for 30 cents. I'm sorry about the picture we have for Shiinotic. Unfortunately, these staff pre-release cards don't get scanned very often, and so finding a good quality image is pretty tough. This Sun and Moon base set staff pre-release Shiinotic sells for $50. One day I hope Pokemon will revisit Salander. It gives something to its male gender. Finding a male Salander is just kind of disappointing at the moment. The most expensive Salander comes from the Ash vs Team Rocket deck kit, which sells for $5. For Salazzle, we have no good scan available for this card anywhere, and we really looked hard. The most expensive Salazzle is the Sun and Moon Crimson Invasion staff pre-release card. This card sells today for $25. And then we have Stuffle, another of my wife's favorite Pokemon, mainly from Pokemon Go. Stuffle has become a little bit of an obsession of hers. The most expensive Stuffle is the Sun and Moon Toys R Us stamped Stuffle card, which was one of the last promos Toys R Us ever did. This Stuffle sells for $10. For Beware, it is back to the Ash vs Team Rocket deck kit with this Beware card. Beware was such a fun part of the Sun and Moon anime and pushed me to want to use one in Sword and Shield. This card features all of Team Rocket and sells for $50. For Bounsweet, we have a Cosmos Holo card found in the Serena EX Premium Collection. This Cosmos Holo card really isn't that expensive, selling for 50 cents. This Serena EX Premium Collection also gave us the most expensive Steamy card, with this Cosmos Holo card selling for 50 cents as well. And finally, we have Serena, whose most expensive card is not found within the Serena EX Premium Collection. Instead, the most expensive Serena card is the Radiant Serena Prize Pack Series card, which sells for $30. We've not seen that many art rares throughout this video. Thankfully, that will change with Comfey, as we have the Galarian Gallery Comfey card, which sells for $2. With Orangaroo, we have yet another Sun and Moon base set staff pre-release card, with this Orangaroo selling for $70. Sun and Moon base set would also give us a staff pre-release for the other monkey of Alola, with this Persimmon card, which sells for $60. For Wimpod, we have yet another art rare card, and this might be one of my favorites within all of Scarlet and Violet. This Wimpod found in Paradox Rift sells for $5. And the best part about that Wimpod is that it connects up with the Galissapod EX Special Illustration Rare, also found within Paradox Rift. If you put the Wimpod card on top of the Galissapod SIR, it makes one image, which is always so fun. This Galissapod sells for $15. We are on an art rare roll, as up next we have got Sandygast, who would receive an art rare within Paldea Evolved. People focus on the Magikarp within this set way too much, and so cards like the Sandygast get left behind a little bit. This art rare sells for $6. For Palossand, we have one of very few GX cards found within this video, with the Palossand GX found within Celestial Storm. This card sells today for $2. Then we have Pyukumuku, who I still don't really understand even to this day. The most expensive Pyukumuku is the pre-release card for Fusion Strike, which sells for $1. For Type Null, we're heading to the Hidden Fate Shiny Vault with the Shiny Type Null, which sells for $3. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about every type for Silvally, that sounds a little bit excessive. The most expensive Silvally card is the Full Art Trainer GX card featuring Gladion found within Cosmic Eclipse. This card is really cool and sells for $55. With Minior, we have one of the best art rares also found within Paradox Rift, with this Meteor Shower Minior. Imagine if Minior had gotten a Mega, that would have been so cool. This Minior card sells for $13. With Kamala, we have a Sun and Moon promotional card with this Kamala that was found in the Burning Shadows single pack blisters. This card sells for $1. And then we have Turtonator, a really interesting take on the dragon typing. I really like Turtonator and how it does break the normal conventional dragon type design. They did a great job with this one. This Rainbow Rare Turtonator GX sells for $8. And things get way more expensive with Togedemaru. We're once again heading to the Ash vs Team Rocket deck kit, but this Togedemaru smokes the rest of the cards we have spoken about so far. This Togedemaru sells for $80. And then we have Mimikyu. And Mimikyu has a card with my favorite Pokemon of all time. The most expensive Mimikyu is the Gengar and Mimikyu GX Tag Team Alternate Art. This card has been skyrocketing in price recently and is currently selling for $1,300. Then we have the worst Pokemon ever created, Bruxish. The most expensive Bruxish card is the Sun and Moon Staff pre-release, which sells for $35. I really didn't expect us to have so many Staff pre-release cards in this video, but up next we have the Staff pre-release for Drampa. This card is pretty expensive, selling for $40. And then we have Delmise with the Sword and Shield base set full art Delmise V, which sells for $3. Jangmo actually has two cards that are pretty on par with each other for the most expensive one. One is the Toys R Us stamped Jangmo, which could be found within the UK, and then the EB Games Jangmo, which was exclusively found in Australia. These cards sell for around $15 to $20. Much like a lot of the Pokemon within this video, Hakamoa just doesn't have that many cards to its name, which is pretty disappointing. The most expensive Hakamoa is the Cosmic Eclipse card, which sells for 30 cents. I think that compared to other Dragon pseudo-legendaries we have got within the past, Komodo is just not that good. It has a quad weakness to Fairy, weakness to Dragon, Psychic, and Ice, and on top of all this, it's not that good of a design. The only redeeming quality I personally believe Komodo has is an amazing shiny. However, my own personal feelings aside, the most expensive Komodo card I could find is the Komodo GX Rainbow Rare, found within Guardians Rising at about $15. Which brings us to the legendary Pokemon, and we are going to start with Tapu Koko. The most expensive Tapu Koko card is the Hidden Fates Gold Tapu Koko GX, which sells for $17. Tapu Lele for a while was very strong within the TCG. It left such a mark that only a few years later it would appear within the Celebrations Classic Collection. The most expensive Tapu Lele is the Tapu Lele Staff pre-release from Lost Thunder, which sells for $20. For Tapu Bulu, we are heading back to the Hidden Fates Shiny Vault with this gold card, which sells for $15. And finally, we end the Tapu Pokemon with the Tapu Fini Staff pre-release card for Sun and Moon Unified Minds, which sells for $50. Our next Pokemon actually has a surprisingly expensive card. This is the Cosmog found within the Japanese Lilian Cosmog Special Box. This promo has been quite hard to get in the West, and as such, it now sells for like anything up to about $100. Cosmoem is a weird legendary, however, its most expensive card is actually really quite adorable. This is the 25th anniversary Japanese Cosmoem Reverse Holo, which would cost you $7. I'm gonna mash Solgaleo and Lunala together, as the most expensive card for both of these Pokemon is the art rare for Solgaleo and Lunala GX that features Lily on the card. This is the secret rare version of this card and would set you back $350. I did a huge video recently where I went into detail about every Ultra Beast and their most expensive card, so I'm gonna keep it a little bit short for these. The most expensive Nihilego is the Nihilego GX Shiny found in Hidden Fates, which sells for $15. Then for Buzzwell and also Pheromosa, we have the Unbroken Bonds Tag Team Alternate Art. This card is often ignored by fans, which is a shame because I actually think it is really well designed. This card sells for $90. Then for Xurkitree, we have another Rainbow Rare card, only this time it's coming out of Sun and Moon Ultra Prism. One of the first cards for this video, which can be found within the actual Ultra Prism set. This Rainbow Rare card sells for $22. And then we have Celesteela, where we're going 2 for 2 with Sun and Moon Ultra Prism. I am really surprised this set has not appeared more, but it was definitely way better for trainer cards than Pokemon. This Celesteela Rainbow Rare GX sells for $45. And then for Kartana, we are backtracking to Crimson Invasion, the set that really defined the Ultra Beast within the TCG. This Rainbow Rare Kartana sells for $8. And our final card for the original Ultra Beast found in Sun and Moon is Guzzlord. Guzzlord is probably my favorite Ultra Beast. I just love its hollow void eating everything concept, and the design is also pretty cool. The most expensive Guzzlord is the alternate art for Naganadel and Guzzlord Guzzlord GX from Cosmic Eclipse, which sells for $110. We have 4 Necrozma forms to talk about, so buckle in and get ready. The most expensive regular Necrozma card is the Necrozma GX Rainbow Rare found within Sun and Moon Burning Shadows. This card sells for $20. As for Dawn Wings Necrozma, we have the Rainbow Rare found within Sun and Moon Ultra Prism. This card is honestly really cool and sells today for $25. Then we have Duskmane Necrozma, with the most expensive card for this form being the Rainbow Rare, also found within Ultra Prism, which also sells for $25. And then finally we have Ultra Necrozma. This is the most expensive Necrozma card out there, as well as being one of the only saving graces within the Dragon Majesty set. This gold Necrozma GX sells for $100. And so we are temporarily done with the Ultra Beast. So let's talk about Magearna. Magearna's most expensive card is really interesting as it's exclusive to Japan. Released in August of 2016, this Magearna card could be found within the Volcanion EX Special Jumbo card pack. This card has steadily been climbing in value to today, where it sells for around $90. As for Marshadow, we're heading to Unbroken Bonds, where we have the tag team alternate art for Marshadow and Machamp GX. This is such a cool card, and I wish I grabbed it back when it was way cheaper. This card sells today for $220. And so we now have all the Pokemon added during Ultra Sun and Moon, starting with Poplio, the only Ultra Beast capable of evolution. For a while, Poipole was a great Pokemon to sacrifice in the TCG thanks to this card, so you can spend some time stacking your deck. The shiny Poipole sells today for $5. For Naganadel, we once again have the tag team card with Guzzlord, which to recap sells for $110. As for Stack Attacker, we have the Celestial Storm Secret Rare Rainbow Stack Attacker GX, which sells for $30. And then for a close second favorite Ultra Beast of mine, we have the Blacephalon GX Rainbow Rare, which sells for $40. Zeraora has one of the most beautiful cards in the entire video. This is the Zeraora V alternate art found in Chilling Reign. This alternate art is one of many that have caused the set to be immensely frustrating for fans. This Zeraora V sells for $60. So we're done with Alola, but not for Generation 7, as there are 2 more Pokemon to talk about, starting with Meltan. The most expensive Meltan is the art rare found within Temporal Forces, which can be found selling for $5. And that brings us to Melmetal. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. The most expensive Melmetal card is the Lucario and Melmetal GX Rainbow Rare card, which sells for $65. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my Ultra Beast video for a more in-depth look at the Ultra Beast cards that broke the TCG meta.
Have you ever wondered what the most expensive card is for every Galar Pokemon? Well, you have come to the right place, as that is exactly what we are talking about today. Starting with Grookey, where we have one of the most British cards out there, the Grookey on the Ball promo. One of very few Pokemon to have a promotional card exclusive to the United Kingdom. This on the Ball promo was handed out to customers who spent £15 or more at participating game stores, essentially the UK's version of GameStop or EB Games. This promotion was meant to promote the FA and youth football within the UK, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, these promos were a little bit hard to get your hands on. This Grookey card sells today for up to $40. The Grookey line does actually have some pretty cool cards in its roster, as up next we have the Scarlet and Violet Staff pre-release for Twilight Masquerade. Twilight Masquerade is one of my favourite sets out there for the Scarlet and Violet era, and this Staff pre-release sells today for $25. And then we have the final Grass Monkey in this line with Rillaboom, who has yet another Staff pre-release card. This Rillaboom card was handed out at pre-release events for the beginning of the 8th generation of the TCG. This Sword and Shield Staff promo sells today for up to $100. For Score Bunny, we are once again going back to the On The Ball promos. These promos are honestly so cool, and one day I do hope to own them all. The Score Bunny On The Ball promo sells today for up to $50. And for Raboot, we have our first art rare for the video. I do kind of wish that the Cinderace EX found in Stellar Crown had gotten an SIR version. I think giving it to Cinderace would have made that set much better. Thankfully though, we would get the really cool art rare with Raboot, with this card that sells for $6. Now I know I spent a lot of the section on Raboot talking about Cinderace, but this is by far one of my favourite starters to date. I love the whole football striker, fiery personality design that they had going for Cinderace, and it works really well. The most expensive Cinderace is the Cinderace VMAX Rainbow Rare found within Rebel Clash, which sells for $16. And then with Sobble, we have our final On The Ball promotional card for the starter Pokemon. This Sobble Goalkeeper card is honestly really fun. This Sobble card sells today for up to $40. I have said countless times on this channel and will say countless more, I really do not like Drizzile and Inteleon. I think there was so much potential with Sobble that was just done so badly with Drizzile. The most expensive Drizzile card is the Shining Fate Shiny Hollow Rare Drizzile, which sells for $3. Despite having an alternate art card found within Fusion Strike, the most expensive Inteleon card is actually pretty disappointing. I would love to say that this card is the most expensive, but in reality, the most expensive Inteleon card is the Inteleon Mega Evolution Staff promotional pre-release card, which sells for $35. If you guys do enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. Let's get back into the cards, starting with one of the cutest Pokemon introduced in Galar, Squovert. Initially, I was not a huge fan of Squovert. However, using one in Scarlet and Violet really changed my perspective on this Pokemon. It is just such a fun and cute rodent Pokemon. The most expensive Squovert card is the Scarlet and Violet art rare, which sells for $5. I always assumed that Greedent wasn't that popular of a Pokemon within the TCG. TCG. However, I am completely wrong as Greedent has received a lot of Pokemon cards. Greedent would receive 3 different V cards across 3 sets, an alternate art within Fusion Strike, and even an art rare within Destined Rivals. And that doesn't even mention the Rainbow VMAX or the Terra Normal Greedent EX from Obsidian Flames. Greedent gets so much love from the TCG designers. However, the most expensive of these is the alternate art Greedent V, which sells for $11. Scarlet and Violet was really good for Generation 8 Pokemon. Because a big part of Generation 8 was separated into Sinnoh-based sets, we didn't have a lot of time for Generation 8 Pokemon. And so Scarlet and Violet decided to make an effort to give some Pokemon from Gen 8 some love. Like Rookie D. The most expensive Rookie D is the art rare found within Paldea Evolved, which sells for $8. And then for Corvisquire, we are once again heading back to Shining Fates, with the shiny Corvisquire found there. This card isn't too expensive, selling for $2. Corviknight has a lot of amazing cards to pull from for the most expensive one, with various Trainer Gallery cards from Silver Tempest or a Rainbow VMAX from Battle Styles. There are a lot of options. However, the most expensive of all of these cards is the Corviknight VMAX Prize Pack Series card. This card sells today for $70. Thankfully, compared to Alola, there are a lot less 50-cent cards. Even Pokemon like Blipbug have cards that are over $1. With Blipbug, we have the shiny Blipbug found in Shining Fates, which sells for $2. And for Dottler, we have an art rare card that I never knew existed. The big issue that Scarlet and Violet faces is there are just so many art cards within these sets, and this has meant that, at least for me, I would never have seen the Dottler card. This Dottler art rare from Paradox Rift sells today for $3. And from one art card to another, up next we have Orbeetle. The Trainer Gallery sub-series across the latest sets of Sword and Shield did an amazing job at combining iconic trainers as well as new Pokemon. The Lost Origin Trainer Gallery was in particular one of the best. This Trainer Gallery gives us the most expensive Orbeetle card, which sells for $7. With Nickit, we are once again heading back to Shining Fates, where we have this shiny Nickit card, which sells for $2. One of my favorite new artists within the TCG is NC Empire. This artist keeps coming up with these insane comic style designs for some full art cards. Pokemon like Loudred and Spidops have already received cards from this designer. However, my personal favorite is the Feeble card from this artist, found in the Crown Zenith Galarian Gallery. This card sells today for $2. And then we have Gossifleur, where we are back to Shining Fates with the Gossifleur Shiny, which sells for $2. For Eldegoss, we have a Prize Pack Series card. This card was originally found in Rebel Clash before being added to the Prize Pack Series. This card sells today for $35. Wooloo is one of the best Pokemon ever added to the games, is what a lot of people say. I personally do really like the design for Wooloo, but I can understand why some people say it's a little bit basic. At the end of the day, this is just a sheep, but for some people like me, that is enough. The most expensive Wooloo is the Hops Wooloo art rare found in Journey Together, which sells for $5. For Double, we have yet another exclusive product, except this time it was exclusive to Best Buy. This is the Hops Double stamped Journey Together card. For some reason, Pokemon decided that this would be an excellent promotional card for Best Buy, and only Best Buy, which seems a little bit weird to me. This double card sells today for $5. And then for Tootle, we once again have the shiny found in Shining Fates, which sells for $2. But now we have our first Champion's Path card for the video. This set was atrocious, and I really do not rank it very highly within the history of the TCG. There was one chase card within this entire set, and the pull rates were abysmal. The most expensive Dreadnought card is the Dreadnought VMAX Rainbow card found in Champion's Path, which sells for $6. Yamper quickly became a huge fan favorite Pokemon within the world of Pokemon. It's just an adorable little electric type corgi. The most expensive Yamper is the card from Shining Fates, which sells for $8. Boltund has a lot of good cards. This Trainer Gallery card was a sick edition of Brilliant Stars, but unfortunately this is not the most expensive Boltund card. Instead, the most expensive Boltund card is the Prize Pack card, which sells for $50. Roly-Poly is certainly one of the more underwhelming Pokemon within Generation 8. I'm not saying the Roly-Poly line is bad, but this Pokemon at the end of the day is just a rock. The most expensive Roly-Poly is the Roly-Poly shiny card from Shining Fates for $2. And then for Carkol, we are staying within Shining Fates with this shiny Carkol, which sells for $2. And then we have Coalossal, who I do actually really like. I used a Coalossal in Scarlet and Violet, and it was one of my favorite Pokemon to use. The most expensive Coalossal card is the Rebel Clash Staff pre-release card, which sells for $20. I love how Applin is very quickly becoming the new Eevee. This little apple now has 3 split evolutions, and one of them is a 3-stage evolution line, which is kind of crazy. The most expensive Applin card is the Twilight Masquerade art rare, which sells for $6. Rebel Clash would also give us the most expensive card for Flapple, with yet another Staff pre-release card. This Staff pre-release Flapple card sells today for $55. Unfortunately, compared to Flapple, Appleton does not do quite as well. The most expensive Appleton card is the shiny one found in Shining Fates, which sells for $4. Shining Fates also gives us the most expensive card for Silly Cobra, with this card which sells for $2. I love Sandaconda. I like Sandaconda so much that I bought a graded VMAX version of this card. Not the rainbow version or anything, just a regular Sandaconda VMAX. This is one of my favorite Gmax Pokemon within the game. The most expensive Sandaconda card is the EB Games exclusive stamped Sandaconda, which sells for $25. And things now make a huge jump, as next we have Cramorant. Cramorant. If you guys watched my weirdest official cards video, you will know exactly what card we have coming up for Cramorant. The Pokemon Stamp Box promotional release for Cramorant. In Japan back in August of 2021, you could purchase the Pokemon Stamp Box from participating post office or the Japanese Post Service website. By doing this, you will be able to find the Cramorant card based on the wild geese flying under the full moon painting by Utagawa Hiroshige. This painting was first used on Japanese stamps back in 1949 and pays homage to that legacy left by Hiroshige. This card sells today for $300. For Arrokuda, we have the shiny Arrokuda from Shining Fates, which sells for $2. And I am fairly certain that this is our only full evolutionary line so far with exclusively shiny cards. As for Barraskewda, we also have the shiny from Shining Fates, which sells for $2. Toxel and Toxtricity are two of the best Pokemon within Galar, and have arguably the coolest typing ever with Poison and Electric. The most expensive Toxel is the shiny Toxel found in Shining Fates, which sells for $3. This is also the same price as the shiny Toxel found within Paldean Fates as well, which also sells for $3. As for Toxtricity, we once again have a staff pre-release card that was created to coincide with the release of Phantasmal Flames. This promotional card sells today for $40. With Sizzlypede, we once again have a shiny found in Shining Fates, which sells for $2. And then we have Centiskorch. Introducing another bug and fire type, given how popular Volcarona is, was definitely a difficult decision for Pokemon. I imagine they had countless designs for this Pokemon, trying desperately to ensure that it carried the bug and fire mantle on from Volcarona. And I think they did a really good job. The most expensive Centiskorch is the Rainbow VMAX found in Darkness Ablaze for $7. Then for Clobopus, we have a real standout card. Throughout Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon have changed the way they design Pokemon cards. They have started to introduce newer design principles and methods that have led to some awesome cards, such as the most expensive card for Clobopus, with this art rare from Surging Sparks, which sells for $5. Grapploct is one of my favorite new shinies within Sword and Shield. This red and white design works so well. The most expensive Grapploct is the shiny from Shining Fates, which sells for $2. I would not be a good British person if I did not love Sinistea. When you're making a region based on Britain, you have to include a Pokemon based on tea, and Sinistea was such a clever idea for this concept. The most expensive Sinistea is the Shining Fates Sinistea, which sells for $3. For Poltegeist, we have a Jumbo card as the most expensive. This promotional Poltegeist card could be found in the Poltegeist V-Box alongside Rebel Clash. This Jumbo card sells today for $6. With Hatenna, we are returning to Shining Fates with this shiny Hatenna card, which sells for $2. And Shining Fates also gives us the most expensive card for Hatterene, with the shiny Hatterene, which sells for $3. Hatterene would also get a lot of love within the TCG, especially during Crown Zenith. Crown Zenith finally gave us Hatterene's Gigantamax form after years of waiting for it to get added. The most expensive Hatterene is the Galarian Gallery VMAX card, which sells for $7. However, we won't get very far from Shining Fates, as up next we have the Impidimp, with one of the best shiny Pokemon of all time. This Impidimp card sells for $2. This is also the case for Morgrem, with this shiny Morgrem, which sells for $2. And we're going free for free with this evolutionary line, as up next we have got the shiny Grimmsnarl VMAX found within Shining Fates. I've made an effort to get a shiny Grimmsnarl in both Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet because of how cool this shiny actually is. This card sells today for $5. And now we are in the new evolution section of the video, the part of Galar where older Pokemon receive new additions to their regional forms, starting with Obstagoon, where we have our first gold card for this video. The most expensive Obstagoon is the shiny gold card found in Vivid Voltage, which sells for $5. And then we have the new addition to the Meowth line with Berserker. I actually really like Berserker. I don't know why this Pokemon just works so well. Galarian Berserker has received a couple of great cards like the gold shiny from Rebel Clash, or the alternate art from Lost Origin. However, the most expensive of these is the Sword and Shield staff pre-release, which sells for $70. Cursula really does deserve a little bit better within the TCG. I really think the concept of Cursula works so well. The whole oceans dying and dead coral difference between regular Corsola and Galarian Corsola is a real omen for what will one day be our reality. This is, in my opinion, one of the best Pokemon in Galar when it comes to theming. One day Cursula will get an art rare, but for now the most expensive Cursula is the shiny from Shining Fates, which sells for $2. Sirfetch'd is yet another evolution that was needed. Transforming Farfetch'd into this fighting type bird was a really fun decision, and Sirfetch'd just made this Pokemon all the more memorable. Plus, its evolution method was really fun and made for an interesting challenge or maybe puzzle to get this Pokemon. The most expensive Sirfetch'd is the Galarian Sirfetch'd V Full Art, which sells for $2. These really are some of the best Pokemon in Galar, as up next we have the Galarian evolution for Mr. Mime, Mr. Rhyme. What a clever concept. Giving us the Fat Controller as a Pokemon was really clever, and making it an Ice type was certainly a choice. I don't really understand why it was an Ice type. I think the normal typing would have worked way better for Mr. Rhyme, but I can get behind it. The most expensive Mr. Rhyme is the League promo Thank You Mr. Rhyme Reverse Holo, which sells for $5. And then we have Runerigus, which was a pretty interesting choice for a regional evolution. I like Runerigus and this sort of like medieval wreck feel behind it. The most expensive Runerigus is the shiny Runerigus, which sells for $4, which brings our new evolutions to a close. Back to the
the regular Galarian Pokemon. The most expensive card for Milcery is the Stellar Crown Art Rare, which sells for $9. And then for Alcremie, we have yet another prize pack series card, with the Alcremie VMAX originally found in Champion's Path. This prize pack card sells for $40. Can you guys let me know down below how you feel about the new Phalanx Mega Evolution? I personally really like it, but some of my friends do not, which feels weird to me. The most expensive Phalanx is the Phalanx V Full Art from Rebel Class, which sells for $3. For Pincurchin, we have the shiny Pincurchin found in Shining Fates, which sells for $3. I love Snom, and clearly lots of other people do too. Something about this little bug and ice type is really cool and appealing to fans, as a lot of people have lost their minds over this little guy. The most expensive Snom card is the Temporal Forces Art Rare Snom, which sells for $9. As for Frostmoth, we once again have a Sword and Shield base staff pre-release. This Frostmoth card is a little bit basic, but the staff stamp helps make it much cooler. The Frostmoth sells today for $75. With Stonjourner, we're staying in Sword and Shield base with a Rainbow VMAX card for the Stonehenge Pokemon. This is a really cool card that sells for $9. Despite having a special illustration rare, Ice-Cube's most expensive card is actually a different art rare. Ice-Cube has been getting a lot of really cool cards within the TCG. The previously mentioned SIR is one that definitely comes to mind. However, I have to agree with the most expensive card being this art rare from Paldea Evolved. This card is really cool. Do you get it? Because he's an ice type. This art rare card sells today for $15. For Indeedee, we once again have a staff pre-release card. This Indeedee card was handed out at pre-release events for the release of Surging Sparks. This Indeedee card sells today for $25. And finally, we have the Generation 8 Pika clone, Morpeko. Morpeko is a really fun Pika clone, and its most expensive card is really interesting. This is the Marnie's Morpeko art rare card. This card could be found within the Marnie Rival Battle deck. These battle decks have unfortunately become really expensive recently. This Marnie's Morpeko sells today for $30. I love Q-Fan. It's just a cute little elephant. The most expensive Q-Fan is the art rare found within Shrouded Fable, which sells for $10. And then for our final non-special Pokemon, we have Copperaja. I do like that the region based on Britain incorporated elephants as well, and historical references to the British Empire. This Copperaja Gigantamax card is really fun and sells today for $7. Up next, we have Dracozolt, who had a surprisingly big part within the Evolving Skies expansion that a lot of people likely don't remember. I speak about Evolving Skies quite a lot on this channel, and one thing I always say about Evolving Skies is I reckon most people cannot name the cards outside of Moonbyon or Rayquaza. One of these cards is the Dracozolt VMAX, which had such a big role within this set, even getting a Rainbow Rare version. This card sells today for $7. The most expensive Arctozolt is the staff pre-release Arctozolt introduced for Darkness Ablaze. This card has become pretty expensive, selling for $45. I love Dracovish, and its position within Ash's team in the Journeys anime definitely helped make it the most popular fossil from Generation 8. However, even outside of that, Dracovish is a pretty powerful Pokemon. Its signature attack, Vicious Rend, is really good. The most expensive Dracovish is the shiny card found in Shining Fates. This card sells today for $4. I almost always forget that Arctovish actually exists. I never got to use this Pokemon, and so it kind of just fell through the cracks a little bit for me. Plus, being a water and ice type, it definitely has the most boring typing out of the rest of them. The most expensive Arctovish card is the shiny found within Shining Fates, which sells for $1.50. Much like earlier with Dracozolt, I feel like Duraludon has slowly faded from being a chase card in Evolving Skies. For a while, the Duraludon found in this set was pretty good in the TCG, but as it rotated out of legal play, people have begun to leave this Pokemon behind. The most expensive Duraludon card is the Duraludon V alternate art from Evolving Skies, which sells for $20. I really thought Dreepy would have gotten an art rare card by now within Scarlet and Violet. Dragapult EX has become one of the best decks in the meta for quite a while now, and Dreepy and Dracloak are equally important within those decks. The most expensive Dreepy is the shiny Dreepy from Shining Fates, which sells for $5. With Dracloak, we also have the shiny found within Shining Fates, which also sells for $3. And that means we can finish our final non-legendary Pokemon for Galar with Dragapult, where we have the special illustration rare Dragapult found within Prismatic Evolutions. This card is such a great design, nowadays selling for $90. Which brings us to the legendary Pokemon, starting with a banger with Zacian. Zacian has a real plethora of amazing cards. Cards like the gold cards from Sword and Shield base, as well as the promotional version. The trainer gallery cards from both Astral Radiance and Crown Zenith. The art rare found in Phantasmal Flames, and of course the special illustration rare for Hop Zacian from Journey Together. However, despite all of these amazing cards, the most expensive card is a prize pack series card for Zacian V, which sells for $75. Compared to Zacian, Zamazenta has done considerably worse within the TCG. It would also receive 2 gold cards, as well as the 2 trainer gallery cards. However, it has fallen behind in recent sets as well as within the TCG meta. Zamazenta never really saw any usage. Most expensive Zamazenta card is yet another prize pack card, which sells for $20. And then we have Eternatus, where we have another prize pack card. This is the Eternatus VMAX prize pack card, which has become insanely expensive recently. For a while, this
this card was pretty playable, and so some fans like collecting these price pack cards to remember these times in the meta. This alternative sells today for $70. Kubfu has only ever received one card within the TCG. The most expensive Kubfu is the only Kubfu card found in Chilling Reign, which sells for 10 cents. Urshifu has had such an amazing time in the TCG, getting rainbow cards, alternate arts, trainer gallery cards, and even gold cards. There are more special Urshifu cards than cards from most legendaries. Urshifu would receive 20 special cards compared to only 2 regular cards. The most expensive Rapid Strike Urshifu is the alternate art Urshifu VMAX found within Battle Styles, which sells for $70. Unfortunately, Single Strike Urshifu does not get quite as expensive. This is pretty much just a redesign and recolor of the regular VMAX card, so it just doesn't hit that well. This Single Strike Urshifu VMAX sells for $35.
Despite being the only mythical Pokemon in Sword and Shield, Zarude has not done amazingly within the TCG. When it comes to regular cards, the most expensive Zarude is just the Zarude V full art from Vivid Voltage. However, there is another Zarude card found exclusively in Korea, with this Secrets of the Jungle stamped Zarude that was handed out to viewers of the Zarude movie in movie theaters. This card sells today for $35.
Regieleki is one of my favorite legendaries from the modern era of Pokemon. I love the light bulb design as well as some of the competitive strategies people came up with in singles for this Pokemon. The most expensive Regieleki card is the Rainbow Regieleki VMAX, which sells for $8. Regidrago is arguably the best V-Star Pokemon card ever created. It would take a little while for Pokemon fans to really figure out how to use this Pokemon, but when they did, it became a monster. We do have a video coming out later this week all about the V-Star cards, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. The most expensive Regidrago card is not the V-Star, but rather the alternate art V from Silver Tempers for $20. Glastria is about to make a comeback to the TCG thanks to its inclusion within the Japanese Mega Dream EX set, which is a huge relief as it has only appeared in one set so far with only one card. The most expensive Glastria is the Lost Origin card for $1. Spectra is also about to make a comeback to the TCG within whatever set we get that adapts it from Mega Dream EX. For now though, the most expensive Spectra is the Lost Origin card for $1. And that brings us to Calyrex, where much like Urshifu, we're gonna have to talk about a lot of cards. The most expensive regular Calyrex is the only Calyrex without its horses. This Calyrex from Crown Zenith sells for 50 cents. As I said, there are a lot of cards for Calyrex in both its steed forms. The most expensive cards of all of these, however, are the Chilling Reign alternate art cards for both Calyrex forms. The Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX alternate art sells for $40. Meanwhile, the Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX alternate art card designed by Mitsuhiro Arida sells for $80. And so we are done with Galar, but not with Generation 8, as we do have a couple of Hisuian Pokemon to introduce to our list, such as Weirdeer. The most expensive Weirdeer is the full art Weirdeer V found within Astral Radiance for $2. I think Cleavor was a very clever past evolution for Scyther, since the whole metal thing was evidently not possible in the olden days. Despite Pokemon like Onix still being capable of evolution, this Cleavor evolution makes sense if you just don't look into it too much. The most expensive Cleavor is the Rainbow V-Star from Astral Radiance, which sells for $8. And then we have Ursaluna, arguably the best new evolution for a previous Pokemon. We will not be talking about Blood Moon Ursaluna here, as that is considered closer to a Paradox Pokemon than another form. The most expensive Ursaluna is the Ursaluna V found within Silver Tempest for $1. Then we have a stinker with Basculegion. Not all of these Pokemon could receive special cards, however this one is stamped. The most expensive Basculegion is the Astral Radiance stamped Basculegion, which sells for $1. I really like Hisuian Sneasler. I think trying to live up to the legacy set by Weavile is no easy task for any Pokemon, and I think Hisuian Sneasler really does this really well. The most expensive Sneasler card is the Astral Radiance alternate art, which sells for $25. For Overquill, we have another card for less than $1, with the Hisuian Overquill rare card found in Astral Radiance. This card sells for 20 cents. And finally, we have Enamorus, probably the worst legendary in all of Generation 8. God, I hate this Pokemon. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and check out my V-Star video when that comes out later this week. The most expensive card for Enamorus is the Enamorus V Trainer Gallery card from Lost Origin, which sells for $9.
We have every single Paldea Pokemon and their most expensive card today. These are of course the newest Pokemon within the TCG, however there are a couple of cards hidden throughout this video that will definitely surprise you. Starting with Sprigatito, where we have our first but certainly not last art rare for the video. I've said multiple times on this channel that if the Quaxley line was better, the Generation 9 could be competing with regions like Sinnoh when it comes to their starter quality. Sprigatito was such a fun concept, giving us this cat that loves to roll around in the grass. The Sprigatito art rare from Paldea Evolved sells today for up to $30. This is also around the same price as the Pokemon Horizon stamped Chinese Sprigatito card, which is also selling for around $30. In fact, we are staying within Paldea Evolved with Florigato. Florigato has become one of my favorite middle stage starters. While like most people, I do wish Pokemon would just let us keep a quadruped animal, Florigato captures the awkward middle phase between baby and adult really well. The most expensive Florigato is the art rare found within Paldea Evolved for $11. And that leaves us with Meowscarada. Meowscarada had an amazing amazing time within Paldea Evolved, getting a hyper rare gold card as well as a surprisingly cool full art version. Meowscarada already has a lot of really cool cards, but the most expensive of all of these is the special illustration rare found in Paldea Evolved, which sells for $18. As cool as the Sprigatito line is, my favorite starter from Generation 9 has got to be Fuecoco. I love this derpy look that he has to him, and when he burns his orange in the starter cutscene, I was actually really sad. Fuecoco also has a lot of really cool cards. Cards like the Fuecoco full art from the Chinese Gem Pack, or the Pokemon Horizon stamp promo from Surging Sparks. However, the most expensive of all of these is the Paldea Evolved art rare, which sells for up to $30. And for Crocodile, we have yet another Scarlet and Violet Paldea Evolved art rare. I personally think that every Pokemon region should at some point have a set where the starters get a lot of love. Every single Paldea starter now has an art rare thanks to this set. This Crocodile art rare sells today for $12. And finally, my favorite fully evolved starter is Skeledirge. The concept is really cool, the design is badass, and the typing is so much nicer than all the fighting and fire types we have received in the starter lineups in the past. I'm glad Pokemon began experimenting with new typings for their starters. The Skeledirge SIR from Paldea Evolved is the most expensive Skeledirge card, selling for up to $30. And then we have Quaxly. Now, I know I said I'm not a huge fan of this line, but in reality, I'm really just not a fan of Quaquaval. I hate the way it's animated in Scarlet and Violet, it just feels weird. The most expensive Quaxly card is the Pokemon Horizons Full Art Quaxly from the Chinese Gem Packs, which sells for $15. I also am not particularly irritated with Quaxwell. I think with Quaxwell there was still a little bit of potential left in the Quaquaval line, but unfortunately Quaquaval just kind of ruined it for me. The most expensive Quaxwell is the Quaxwell found in Paldea Evolved, which sells for $5. Surprisingly, when it comes to Quaquaval, we are not going to be talking about the special illustration rare for Quaquaval EX from Paldea Evolved. In fact, the card we are talking about cannot even be found in Paldea Evolved. Instead, we have the Scarlet and Violet base staff pre-release Quaquaval, which has become really expensive, selling for $30. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the Pokemon regions on my channel. While you're there, let me know your favorite Pokemon of this series. I do think the Generation 9 did a pretty good job with the Pokemon they introduced. I love Pokemon like Lechonk, but can understand why this region is quite so polarizing. There are some great Pokemon and some simple Pokemon. The most expensive Lechonk is the EB Games Reverse Holo Lechonk promo found exclusively in EB Games in Canada. This Lechonk card sells today for up to $80. For Oinkologne, we actually have two cards that are pretty close to each other in price. The first of these is the shiny Oinkologne found within Paldean Fates, which sells for around $3. We do also have the jumbo version of Oinkologne EX, which can be found within the Oinkologne EX box. This box sells today for around $40, however the promo card found within it only sells for around $3. With Tarantula, we are going forward to one of my favorite cards from Scarlet and Violet base set. Scarlet and Violet has really changed the way Pokemon designs cards, giving us some brand new styles that we have never seen before. The Tarantula art rare from Scarlet and Violet base sells today for $7. And for Spidops, we have the connecting artwork to Tarantula with this special illustration rare Spidops EX. I do love the amount of connecting artworks we have received within the Scarlet and Violet era. This Spidops EX sells today for $6. Unfortunately, Nimble and Lokix would not do quite as well as Tarantula and Spidops. Up next, we have Nimble, where the most expensive card is the Phantasmal Flames art rare, which sells for $2. Then for Lokix, we have the first boring card of the video with this Cosmos Holo version of Lokix. This card could be found in the Twilight Masquerade 2-pack blisters and sells today for $2. Pawmi might be my favorite Pika clone out there, at least from a mechanic standpoint. I think the entire Pawmi line is one of the best design lines there is within Paldea, and Double Shock is a really interesting concept for this line. The most expensive Pawmi is the shiny rare within Paldean Fates for $3. Paldean Fates also gives us the most expensive card for Pawmo, with the shiny art rare Pawmo, which sells today for $3. Which brings us to the final evolution for Pawmi. I'm glad Pokemon introduced a Pika clone that could evolve. It kind of annoys me how they have ignored Raichu and Pichu for a long time, giving us only the cute rodent one-stage Pokemon. The most expensive Pawmo is the Scarlet and Violet base staff pre-release, which sells for $35. A lot of this video is going to be Pokemon found within Paldean Fates. I do like the change that Shining Fates and Paldean Fates made to the shiny format, by giving way more shinies to Pokemon from their region. The most expensive Tandmouse is the Paldean Fates shiny rare, which sells for $10. With Mousehold, we have yet another amazing art rare. I really think the Pokemon design team went way too hard when it came to Scarlet and Violet. This is a format they are now going to have to keep up for the rest of the Pokemon TCG. We have really come to expect this quality from Pokemon. The Mousehold art rare from Paldea Evolved sells today for $50. Honestly, despite not being the most expensive of generations, I think Paldea has the best cards of this entire series. Cards like the art rare Fido from Scarlet and Violet base set. He just wants the bread. This Fido sells today for $13. As for Darksbun, we are jumping ahead to the Stellar Crown expansion. Stellar Crown is honestly not the best of sets, however it did give us some really cool special illustration rares, such as the Darksbun EX SIR, which sells for $35. As a Spanish-themed region, introducing an Olive Pokemon was a pretty clever choice. Smoliv is one of the best Pokemon within Paldea, and yet has not received an art rare yet. The most expensive Smoliv card is the shiny rare found in Paldean Fates, which sells for $3. As for Dolive, we are once again heading back to Scarlet and Violet base set with yet another amazing art rare card. The best thing about these art rare cards is that they really aren't that expensive at the moment. I reckon by the time Gen 9 has come to an end, these cards will start to go up in price. This art rare Dolive sells today for $5. And that brings us to Arbeliever. I'm shocked that Dolive has received an art rare and yet Smoliv and Arbeliever haven't. Arbeliever would get an EX within Destined Rivals, but unfortunately would not make the cut for special illustration rares within this set. The most expensive Arbeliever is the Paldea Fate shiny rare, which sells for $2. Squawkabilly EX is one of the most played cards within the Scarlet and Violet era of Pokemon, thanks to its Squawk and Seize ability. Squawk and Seize essentially worked as a free professor's research at the beginning of the game. This meant you could bring a decent HP wall that had a good ability, as well as a semi-decent attack that you could use if you wanted to, but no one really ever does. Squawkabilly EX was a really fun card, and the most expensive is the SIR from Paldea Evolved, which sells today for $8. We really need to speed up a bit now, as we have a lot of Pokemon we still have to get through. Let's start with Nacli. The most expensive Nacli is the Paldea Evolved art rare, which sells for $5. With Knucklestack, we have not received an art rare, and so the most expensive Knucklestack is the Paldean Fate shiny rare, which sells for $2. Garganical has received 2 art rares at this point within the TCG. One found in Mega Evolution, and the most expensive one found in Paldea Evolved. The Paldea Evolved art rare sells today for $4. Things get much more expensive with Charcadet, as we have the Pokemon Center stamped Phantasmal Flames promotional Charcadet card, which sells for $35. Armor Rouge has not had quite as good of a time within the TCG as Ceruledge, however it does have a really cool most expensive card. This is the Scarlet and Violet base set Armor Rouge art rare, which sells for $10. And then for Ceruledge, we have yet another special illustration rare card. The most expensive Ceruledge is the Prismatic Evolution special illustration rare, which is super cool. This card sells today for $100. And now things will plummet in price when it comes to the most expensive card for Tadbulb. Tadbulb would not appear within Paldean Fates, it wouldn't receive any art rare, and overall has not had a good time so far in the TCG. The most expensive Tadbulb is the Iono's Tadbulb card from Journey Together, which in a Cosmos Holo version sells for 30 cents. Thankfully, things do get much more expensive with Bellibolt, as we have another special illustration rare. This time coming from Journey Together, we have the Iono's Bellibolt EX special illustration card, which sells for $40. With Wattrel, we have yet another art rare, this time found within Twilight Masquerade. The art rare Wattrel sells today for $3. However, it is back to an Iono Pokemon with the most expensive card for Killer Wattrel, as we have the Journey Together staff pre-release card for Iono's Killer Wattrel, which sells for $20. Baschiff would receive a shiny card during Scarlet and Violet, however this card was found exclusively in the Paldean Fates sticker collection. Nowadays, the most expensive Baschiff is the shiny found in that sticker collection, which sells for around 50 cents. When I say I was not ready for the Mabostiff storyline with the Scarlet and Violet, I really mean it. This gut punch of emotion was not something I was ready for in a Pokemon game. The most expensive Mabostiff pays excellent tribute to this storyline. The most expensive Mabostiff is the special illustration rare from Destined Rivals, which sells for $27. With Shroodle, it is straight back to Paldean Fates with the shiny Shroodle card, which sells for $4. In my initial playthrough of Scarlet Violet, I never used a Grafaiai, and that was a huge mistake. In future playthroughs, I would use Grafaiai and have had a great time with it. The most expensive Grafaiai is the art rare from Paldea Evolved, which sells for $5. With Bramblin, we have yet another art rare card that goes hard. The most expensive Bramblin card is the Paldea Evolved illustration rare, which sells for $10. Much like Tadbulb from earlier, we have a pretty boring card for Brambleghast, with the Temporal Forces prize pack Brambleghast. This Brambleghast sells today for 10 cents. Thankfully, there are way less stinker cards in Generation 9, such as Toadschool, where we have the Scarlet and Violet base set Toadschool card. This most expensive card sells today for $5. With Toadschool, we have a card that I never knew existed. I've said in previous videos that Scarlet and Violet has so many art rares that some do just kind of fall through the cracks of it. The most expensive Toadscroll comes from Paradox Rift with this art rare, which sells for $6. And then for Clorth, we have this art rare version found within Scarlet and Violet base set, which sells today for $4. With Capsakid, we have the shiny rare found within Paldean Fates, which sells for $2. For our first ever grass and fire type, Scovillain was a very clever choice. Using a chili pepper for the grass and fire type makes a lot of sense. The most expensive Scovillain is the Scarlet and Violet base set Scovillain, which sells for $4. And then we have Rellor, where once again we have a shiny rare found within Paldean Fates. This Rellor card sells today for $2. Rapska is a very clever Pokemon for our first ever Scarab Pokemon. I'm surprised we went so long without a Pokemon based on this Egyptian trinket. The most expensive Rapska is the Paldea Evolved art rare, which sells for $5. For Flittle, it is back to Paldean Fates with the most expensive being the shiny rare, which sells for $2. And then we have Espathra. When I first started shiny hunting in Paldea, Espathra was the first Generation 9 shiny Pokemon I came across. The most expensive Espathra is the Paradox Rift illustration rare, which sells for $6. The Steel and Fairy typing is definitely definitely not an easy typing to design Pokemon for. Despite this, the Tinkaton line did an amazing job at matching this typing. The most expensive Tinkaton card is the Paldea Evolved Art Rare, which sells for $17. We're sticking within Paldea Evolved for the most expensive card for Tinkertuff. Tinkertuff really does that awkward middle stage really well. The most expensive Tinkertuff is this art rare, which sells for $17. Unfortunately, the special illustration rare found within Paldea Evolved for Tinkaton EX is not the most expensive card for Tinkertuff. Instead, the most expensive card is the Tinkaton Paldea Evolved Staff pre-release card, which sells today for $140. As for Wiglet, the most expensive card is the art rare found within Scarlet and Violet base set, which sells for $11. Then for Wugtrio, we are returning to Paldean Fates with the shiny rare card for Wugtrio, which sells for $2. But it's back to Scarlet and Violet base for the most expensive Bombardier, with the art rare version of Bombardier. This card sells today for $4. I love Finizen. I think the evolution methods introduced within Scarlet and Violet were really unique, but I'm worried how Finizen will adapt to future regions. Most expensive Finizen is the Paldean Fates shiny rare, which sells for $4. With Palafin, we have one of the coolest Pokemon cards found within Prismatic Evolutions. This Palafin EX special illustration rare has a really cool story behind it that I covered in my Pokemon card collaborations video. This Palafin EX sells today for $50. For Varoom, we have the Obsidian Flames art rare Varoom, which sells today for $2. And then we have Revavaroom. Revavaroom was such an interesting and somewhat pivotal Pokemon within Scarlet and Violet thanks to the Starmobiles, but I think they could have adapted it a bit better so we could even use the typings of the Starmobiles. The most expensive Revavaroom is the Scarlet and Violet base set staff pre-release, which sells today for $30. With Cyclizar, it's back to Paradox Rift where we have the Cyclizar art rare, which sells for $7. Orthworm is one of the weirdest Pokemon introduced in Scarlet and Violet. A metal worm with armor was a really weird decision, but I kinda like it. The most expensive Orthworm is the Paldea Evolved art rare, which sells for $7. For Glimmet, we have the Paldean Fate shiny rare, which sells for $2. I hope that at some point during the Mega Evolution era, we get a sick special illustration rare to shut up the Mega Glimora haters. I actually kinda like this Mega. The most expensive Glimora card is the shiny Full Art EX found within Paldean Fates, which sells for $1. With Greavard, it is back to Scarlet and Violet base that we go with the Greavard art rare of Greavard lying on a little Gengar bed. This card is adorable and sells today for $20. Surprisingly, Houndstone has not really had any good cards despite getting multiple EXs. The most expensive Houndstone is the surprisingly cheap Mega Evolution art rare, which sells today for $2. I really do think that despite being the newest region, we have a lot of really good cards to talk about in this video. The most expensive Flamigo is the art rare found within Paldea Evolved, which sells for $7. For Satoddle, we have a pretty unique card. Satoddle was absent from Paldean Fates despite having an amazing shiny. Satoddle has not received an art rare yet and really has been forgotten by the TCG designers. However, there is one place where Satoddle has done really well: the holiday calendar. With this snowflake stamped Cosmos Hollow Satoddle, which sells today for $1. Thankfully though, Titan would get a bit luckier within Surging Sparks and would get an art rare version. This art rare Titan sells today for $3. Veluza is not really that popular of a Pokemon, however it does have a really cool Pokemon card. Once again found within Paradox Rift, this is the art rare Veluza card, which sells today for $6. I remember when Scarlet and Violet's TCG era was just beginning, and everyone was going nuts about this Dondozo card, at least in TCG circles I am in. Something about this card broke fans, and it is really cool. This Dondozo art rare sells today for $10. Normally I would talk about every form for each Pokemon, and I was ready to do this with Tatsugiri. However, only really one form has been getting Pokemon cards. The most expensive curly form Tatsugiri is the Twilight Masquerade Staff pre-release card, which sells for $65. As for the other Tatsugiri forms, well, they appear in this card, I guess, the art rare from Twilight Masquerade, which sells for $20. Annihilape, I would argue, is one of the best new evolutions we have ever received. I really love the concept of Annihilape getting so angry its dormant energy breaks free. The most expensive Annihilape is the Full Art Annihilape EX from Paldea Evolved for $4. And then we have Clodsire, and I'm going to talk about two cards here, both the Full Art EX from Paldea Evolved, as well as the shiny Full Art from Paldean Fates. Both of these cards are really close in price, with them both selling for around $2. I really feel like the one place Paldea excelled was giving older Pokemon new evolutions. There are some Pokemon that I think they could have gotten a little bit better with, however it does not seem that Pokemon are done with these newer evolutions, and I reckon a lot more Pokemon will receive them in the future. The most expensive Farigiraf card is the Paldea Evolved art rare, which sells for $8. With the Dunsparce, we have our first Pokeball card of the video. Currently the Dunsparce found in Prismatic Evolutions is somewhat playable in certain decks, and so the Master Ball Dunsparce has become kinda expensive. This Master Ball Dunsparce sells today for $11. With the chess Pokemon Bisharp, it was only a matter of time until we got a card depicting a chessboard, and this card is sick. You have, of course, King Gambit in the middle, the newest Paldea Pokemon. Two Bisharps stand by its side, and then an army of Pawniard in front of it. This art rare for King Gambit from Scarlet and Violet base set sells today for $6. And that brings us to the special Pokemon, and these are some real bangers. Starting with the past Paradox Pokemon, like Great Tusk. For Great Tusk, we have this insanely cool Sandstorm Great Tusk card found within Scarlet and Violet base set, which sells for $8. At the moment, Screamtail is a pretty viable Pokemon within TCG thanks to its cards within Prismatic Evolutions. However, this is not the most expensive Screamtail. Instead, the most expensive Screamtail is the Pokemon Center stamped Screamtail that could be found in the Paradox Rift Pokemon Center ETB. This card sells today for $40. Tomokazu Kamiya has created some of the most beautiful Pokemon cards in history. However, his Brute Bonnet design is genuinely terrifying. This is the Brute Bonnet art rare found within Paradox Rift. This card is insane. The Brute Bonnet sells today for $13. And then we have Fluttermane, where once again we have a Pokemon Center stamped card. This card was found within the Temporal Forces Elite Trainer boxes, and the Fluttermane art rare sells today for $35. As for Sliverwing, we are heading back to Paradox Rift with this Sliverwing art rare, which sells today for $5. Sets in recent years have gone so hard when it comes to the Paradox Pokemon, and perhaps the best recipient of these is Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks has received 2 special illustration rares found within both Paradox Rift, as well as the most expensive with the Prismatic Evolutions SIR. This Prismatic Evolutions card sells today for $30. Then to match the Great Tusk from earlier, we have the Iron Treads EX Special Illustration Rare. This card is really cool and surprisingly cheap, selling for only $4. For Iron Bundle, we have the future counterpart to Screamtail with this Pokemon Center stamped Iron Bundle found in the future Paradox Rift Elite Trainer boxes. This card is really cool and sells today for $35. And then we have Iron Hands, who has once again become a really playable card recently. This Iron Hands EX Special Illustration Rare from Prismatic Evolutions is really well designed. This Iron Hands EX sells today for $45. Things go back to being a little cheaper with the future Paradox form for Hydreigon, Iron Jugulus. I'm kind of surprised that this Pokemon isn't more popular. The Iron Jugulus art rare sells today for $13. I love Volcarona, and I do think both Sliverwing and Iron Moth did an excellent job at adapting this Pokemon into both a past and future form. The most expensive Iron Moth is the EB Games Promotional Iron Moth, which sells for up to $50. And for our final Paradox Pokemon, for now, we have Iron Thorns, which at one point was a really surprising deck that took a World Championship by storm. The most expensive Iron Thorns is the Pokemon Center stamped Iron Thorns art rare found within the Iron Leaves Temporal Forces ETB. This card sells today for $40. Okay, I'm going to apologize. I have been very critical about the Frigibax line in a recent video I made towards the end of last year. Some people were really angry at me, and so I took a little bit of time to reflect. I actually really quite like this line now. I replayed Scarlet and Violet last month, and I used a Frigibax, and I forced myself to use one, and I actually had a great time with it. The most expensive Frigibax is the Paldea Evolved art rare, which sells for $13. For Arctibax, we are staying within Paldea Evolved, with the most expensive Arctibax being the art rare within this set, which sells for $12. And finally, we have Baxcalibur, who has a really cool new Mega. I feel like the reason Baxcalibur's original design is a bit toned down is because they had this Mega planned a while ago. The most expensive Baxcalibur is the Paldea Evolved Staff pre-release Baxcalibur, which sells for $45. And that puts us at Pokemon 999 with Gimmighoul. I don't get the hate for Gimmighoul and Goldengo. These guys are some of the most elusive and grindy Pokemon we have ever received, and it works well for Pokemon 1000. The most expensive Gimmighoul is the Paradox Rift art rare, which sells for $9. However, the real standout Pokemon for the TCG within Generation 9 has been Goldengo. Goldengo is one of the most used Pokemon cards within the Generation 9 competitive scene, and has been a real threat for a long time now. Goldengo has won $600,000 in competitive games, with 74 top 8 finishes throughout both regional and international tournaments, and it shows no sign of slowing down. The most expensive Goldengo is the Goldengo EX from Prismatic Evolutions, which sells for $55. At some point, Wo-Chien has got to get some love, right? Chi-Yu and Ting-Lu were really powerful in the VGC. Chien-Pao was great in the TCG, and Wo-Chien just kind of got left behind. If Wo-Chien ever comes to Pokemon Unite or Pokemon Go, I really hope it is broken so we can get a good Wo-Chien moment finally. The most expensive Wo-Chien is the special illustration rare Wo-Chien EX from Paldea Evolved, which sells for up to $15. As I said previously, for a moment, Chien-Pao was a pretty good threat in the TCG. It worked really well within Palkia V-Star decks, but that time has long passed. The most expensive Chien-Pao is the Surging Spark Staff pre-release, which sells for $40. With Ting-Lu, we have yet another special illustration rare EX found within Paldea Evolved. This card sells today for $10. And finally, we have Chi-Yu, and things jump up once again here as we have our first card to sell recently for $100. The Chi-Yu Staff pre-release from Paradox Rift. The most recent sale of this card was on the 6th of January 2026, where it sold for $100. However, normally it sells for around $45, so finding the price is a little bit hard. And that means we have our final 2 non-legendary Paradox Pokemon, starting with my personal favorite, Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon has had a lot of good cards within the TCG, however the most expensive is the special illustration rare found in Prismatic Evolutions, which sells for anything up to $200. Also found within Prismatic Evolutions, we have the special illustration rare for Iron Valiant EX. And I'm going to be honest, this card is nowhere near as cool as the Roaring Moon EX SIR. The Iron Valiant EX special illustration rare sells today for $50. And that brings us to the legendary bikes for Paldea. Koraidon and Miraidon. Let's start with Koraidon, where we have the Pokemon Center stamped exclusively found in Koraidon ETB for Scarlet and Violet base version of Koraidon, which sells for $65. And then for Miraidon, we also have the Miraidon Pokemon Center stamped exclusive, which sells for around $70. So we are done with base Scarlet and Violet, but not with Scarlet and Violet as a whole, as we would get a lot of new Pokemon within the 2 DLCs that we received for this game. Starting with Walking Wake, where we have the special illustration rare for Walking Wake EX found within Temporal Forces, which sells today for $35. Temporal Forces would also give us the most expensive card for Iron Leaves, as we have the special illustration rare for Iron Leaves EX, which sells for $23. We will come back to the rest of the Beast and Sword of Justice paradoxes just a bit later. But now we have to talk about my boy, Dipplin. I love Dipplin. The whole candy apple design is really fun. The most expensive Dipplin is the Twilight Masquerade art rare, which sells for $6. And then we have Poltergeist, which was a really interesting take on a convergent form for Sinistea. Giving the Japanese-themed area a matcha tea Pokemon was a good concept, and adapting it from the previous tea Pokemon was pretty clever. The most expensive Poltergeist is the Twilight Masquerade art rare, which sells for $4. And then we have the evolved form of Poltergeist with Sinistra. This is a really clever Pokemon, and I've always really liked the Ghost Grass typing, and feel this Pokemon does a great job with it. The most expensive Sinistra is the Twilight Masquerade special illustration rare, which sells for $20. And then we have Blood Moon Ursaluna, who I deliberately missed in my video talking about the most expensive for every Galarian Pokemon. Blood Moon Ursaluna is a pretty tough Pokemon to categorize. It feels more like a paradox Pokemon than a regional form of Ursaluna, and so I couldn't decide where to put it. The most expensive Blood Moon Ursaluna is the Blood Moon Ursaluna special illustration rare EX from Prismatic Evolutions, which sells for up to $75. And now we have the stupid Loyal 3. These are just badly designed Pokemon, however, each has had a bit of competitive viability within the TCG at one point or the other. Starting with Okidogi, where we have the Okidogi EX special illustration rare from Shrouded Fable, which sells for $19. However, the real standouts for the Loyal 3 are Munkidori and Fezandipiti. These Pokemon appear in just about every deck out there. The most expensive Munkidori is the Shrouded Fable special illustration rare, which sells for $35. And then we have Fezandipiti, probably the most popular card within the TCG at this moment. Fez works in every deck. It has a colorless attack that no one really uses, as well as the Flip the Script ability, which lets you draw 3 cards when your opponent knocks out your active Pokemon. The most expensive Fezandipiti is the special illustration rare EX from Shrouded Fable, which sells for $50. And now we have the 4 Ogerpon cards, so let's get through these. Starting with the Teal Mask Ogerpon, where we have the EB Games stamped Cosmos Holo card, which sells for $80. Then for the Half Flame Ogerpon, we have the Ogerpon EX special illustration rare from Prismatic Evolutions, which sells for $20. Prismatic Evolutions also gives us the most expensive for Ogerpon Wellspring, with this special illustration rare, which sells for $13. And finally, that brings us to Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, where surprisingly we have the special illustration rare found within Twilight Masquerade instead of Prismatic Evolutions. This card sells today for $14. We're in the final stage of the Paldean Pokemon, and up next we have the newest new evolution within Paldea for Duraludon with Archaludon. This is the EB Games stamped Cosmos Holo Archaludon, which sells today for $55. And then we have Hydrapple. I really love Hydrapple. I really like the Hydra concept, and the only other Pokemon to ever have this is Hydreigon, so introducing it to another Pokemon was a really fun choice. Most expensive Hydrapple is the Hydrapple EX special illustration rare, which can be found in Stellar Crown, which sells for $21. Which means it is time to end the Paradox Pokemon with the remaining legendary beasts and Sword of Justice Paradox Pokemon, such as the Gouging Fire Staff pre-release. Released to coincide with the Surging Sparks expansion, this Staff pre-release sells today for $45. Then we have Raging Bolt, one of my personal favorite decks from the Scarlet and Violet era. This deck could do big damage and made excellent use of resources. The most expensive Raging Bolt is the Raging Bolt EX found in Prismatic Evolutions, which sells for $65. Things get a lot cheaper with Iron Boulder, as we have the Iron Boulder EX special illustration rare found within Temporal Forces, which sells for $15. And with Iron Crown, we have arguably the best designed card within Temporal Forces, with this special illustration art rare for Iron Crown EX, which sells today for $40. And that leaves us with 2 Pokemon, starting with Terapagos, where we have the Prismatic Evolution special illustration rare EX, which sells for $40. And that leaves us with the final Pokemon. We have now covered the most expensive card for every Pokemon throughout this series, and it has been hours and hours of work, exhausting both me and my editor. I want to say a quick shout out to my editor who has made this entire series possible. If you guys enjoyed the video and even this series as a whole, make sure to subscribe, and that means we have Pecharunt. The most expensive Pecharunt is the Prismatic Evolutions Pecharunt EX special illustration rare, which sells today for $30. Thanks for watching.